Bro, listen. Everyone in this world treats support magic like useless garbage for weaklings, but our guy Thor is so disgustingly broken, he turns a rookie girl with a wooden sword into an absolute speed demon. With one single stat multiplier, she blasts past top academy geniuses and slices through high-tier fireballs in under 1 second. That is the power of a legendary support mage. After getting fired by a corrupt headmaster, our bro walks into the royal palace and gets offered a starting salary of 100 gold coins a month, plus an instant marriage proposal from the crown princess herself. And it all starts at Velen Magic Academy, where Thor is quietly working as a low-rank instructor researching support magic. 10 years ago, a legendary battle took place that changed everything. The heroes' party went head-to-head against the terrifying Demon King Jeeber. The frontline fighter Alan gets smashed back by an oppressive dark assault, calling out for backup. A hand snaps forward, instantly deploying a glowing blue magic circle to intercept the blow. Meet Thor, the frontline support mage keeping the entire squad alive with high-speed barrier magic. People call support magic babysitting magic because it looks like you're just tending to others from behind. Thor analyzes the incoming power, realizing basic defensive shields aren't enough to withstand the Demon King's relentless pressure. Even so, he knows his role is crucial if his comrades are going to stand a chance. The hero party's vanguard struggles to hold his ground, gasping as the pressure mounts. Thor's magic circle spins up with intricate runes as he prepares his next layer of defense. He channels a divine buff, casting Holy Veil to reinforce everyone's armor. A radiant surge of holy energy washes over his allies, fully restoring their momentum in the clash. The hero grins as his body suddenly feels light as a feather, thanking Thor for the clutch buff. The Demon King unleashes another deadly dark energy ball, forcing Thor to react instantly. Thor yells out for his team to push forward while he handles the defensive coverage. Fast forward 10 years after successfully repelling the Demon King as a legendary hero's party member. Thor is now standing alone in a grand, sunlit hallway when someone calls out his name. He turns around, wondering who could be looking for him. An arrogant colleague slams a massive stack of ungraded test papers right into Thor's hands. Thor panics, reminding him that these are exams for his own class's students. The guy just walks off, claiming he's way too busy and dumping all his work onto Thor. Thor lets out a deep, exhausted sigh as he's left holding the heavy load alone. 10 years after quitting life as an adventurer, this is what his daily routine has become. He now works at the prestigious Velen Magic Academy as an instructor, researching and refining support magic. While his younger colleagues get quickly promoted to professors and associate professors, Thor stays stuck at the bottom. Because support magic is widely looked down upon, he's treated as a low-ranked teacher stuck doing everyone else's chores. Other teachers step on his fallen papers without even apologizing as they walk past him. Yet Thor isn't bitter or surprised by the disrespect. On paper, support magic boosts stats, reduces fatigue, and speeds up natural healing for allies. It can completely tip the scales of a fight when used right, but the modern world views it differently. Society no longer values support mages the way they used to. In actual combat, people think it's far more efficient to just blast enemies down with high-tier attack spells. Plus, magic items and enchanted gear can easily replace almost every buff a support mage provides. Because of this, society treats support magic as nothing more than a babysitting trick for weaklings. Shadowy combatants dominate the battlefield, while support users are left in the background. With support magic being so wildly unpopular, Thor's department is almost completely dead. For that exact reason, this entire year, exactly one single student decided to enroll in his support magic class. Thor carries boxes down the quiet academy hallway, taking everything in stride. Suddenly, another arrogant teacher calls out to him, ordering him to haul supplies to the classroom. Without even asking, they stack even more heavy bundles onto Thor's hands. Thor wobbles under the absurd pile, trying not to drop anything while being told to tidy the schoolyard too. Papers scatter everywhere across the hall as the arrogant teacher casually breezes past. Back in his empty office, Thor sits behind his desk, seriously questioning if it's time to retire early. He sighs and gets ready to clean the yard before finishing his Mount Everest of paperwork. While walking outside near the fountain, he hears a commotion brewing nearby. Thor glances over and notices 3 students cornering someone against the academy wall. It's Reyna Regnitz, the witch hat-wearing girl who happens to be the only student in his support magic class. The loudmouth bully G-Bird Zaxberg is aggressively shouting in her face for rejecting him. Thor knows he can't just stand by and watch his student get harassed like this. He steps up behind the group, asking them what on earth they think they're doing. G-Bird turns around with a cocky grin, recognizing him as the eternal low-ranked teacher, Thor. Thor steps between them, calmly asking the bullies to leave the girl alone since she's uncomfortable. G-Bird clicks his tongue in annoyance, clearly not used to being challenged. He leans in close and jabs his finger at Thor, bragging that he's the son of Imperial Count Zaxberg. Thor gives him a stone-cold look, stating simply that he already knows who he is. He reminds Gebeard that the academy is meant for studying magic regardless of noble birth or status. Gebeard completely loses his temper, shouting that he doesn't care if Thor was part of some hero party. He yells at Thor to mind his own business and back off. Gebeard aggressively grabs Thor by the collar, flexing his magic power to intimidate him. Rihanna calls out in concern, telling teacher Thor that this is her problem and he shouldn't get hurt. Gebeard squeezes Thor's arm tightly, but Thor doesn't even flinch. Gebeard's lackeys start sweating, realizing Thor isn't backing down at all. Seeing Thor stand up for her, Reyna steps up beside him and proposes a formal magic battle. Then Reyna casually drops a bombshell, saying if the bullies win, she'll just marry them. Bro was not ready for her to wager her entire life over a hallway argument. Thor panics, telling Reyna she can't just casually throw around marriage bets like that. He sweats nervously, wondering what kind of wild logic his student operates on. Reyna ignores his panic and lays down her condition for when they win. When we win, you will never speak rudely to teacher Thor again. Gebeard blushes fiercely and sputters out an agreement, completely caught off guard by her confidence. He yells at them not to regret this as they agree to head to the duel arena. Reyna walks toward the training grounds with absolute composure. Gebeard keeps shouting warnings behind her, but she doesn't even bother turning around. His veins bulge as he fumes at being completely ignored by her. Reyna pulls out her wooden training sword, completely unfazed. She turns to Thor and tells him she'll take the lead in this fight. Thor blinks in confusion, asking if she's really going to fight on the front lines alone. Reyna asks him to apply his support magic directly onto her. She glares through her glasses with absolute conviction. She hits him with the ultimate reality check. Are you saying that your support magic is really that weak? Thor goes silent for a moment, hit right where it hurts. A smirk crosses his face as he locks eyes with her. Leave it to me. Reyna smiles back, knowing she picked the right teacher. Thor raises his hand and unleashes his true support magic, targeting Reyna. Acceleration. Magic circles ignite beneath Reyna's feet, blasting her forward at absurd speeds. Reyna's eyes widen in shock as the scenery around her turns into a complete blur. She realizes Thor's support magic isn't just a basic buff, it's a high-tier status multiplier. Thor doesn't stop there. He casts a secondary spell targeted right at Gebeard's party. Gebeard grunts as his arms feel like lead, barely able to lift his hands to cast. Desperate, he forces out a massive fire spell, launching a giant fireball straight at Reyna. Thor instantly stacks another buff on Reyna's weapon, Aquaveil. Reyna leaps into the air, her wooden blade dripping with dense water magic. She slices cleanly through Gebeard's fireball, extinguishing the flames in a massive burst of steam. She closes the gap in the blink of an eye, her sharp gaze locked onto her target. Before Gebeard can even react, Reyna has her wooden sword pressed firmly against his throat. Do you still want to continue? Reyna presses her wooden sword tighter against Gebeard's neck, asking if he wants to get stabbed next. Gebeard collapses to his knees, completely exhausted and outclassed. The spectating students stand in awe, blown away by Reyna's insane sword skills. They can't believe Gebeard lost, considering he's supposed to be one of the top geniuses in the whole academy. Even Thor is surprised, wondering to himself if Reyna was always this talented with a blade. Gebeard's lackeys glare at Thor in sheer frustration, unable to accept their defeat. They carry their beaten boss away while shouting generic villain threats down the hallway. Thor turns to Reyna and suggests they head back to class as well. Up in the high tower, the academy headmaster looks down through his window at Thor. His expression is dark and full of quiet resentment. A few minutes later, Thor knocks on the office door asking if he was called in. He steps inside the headmaster's lavish office, completely unaware of what's coming. The old headmaster sits behind his massive desk with his arms folded. He glares cold daggers directly at Thor. Without wasting any time, he drops the hammer. Thor, you're fired. Thor stands frozen in disbelief, asking for a reason behind the sudden termination. He tries to explain that the clash in the courtyard was already resolved peacefully. The headmaster cuts him off, claiming the academy can no longer waste budget on a useless support magic department. He doubles down on the disrespect, calling Thor nothing more than a salary thief. Thor takes a hit to his pride, hit hard by the headmaster's bitter insult. He looks down and accepts the harsh truth that support magic courses are dying out everywhere. The walls of the office are lined with glowing portraits celebrating pure attack mages and wealth. The headmaster reveals his true, corrupt colors, stating that Count Zaxberg's family provides major funding, so harming his son is unforgivable. When Thor tries to speak, the headmaster slams his fist on the desk and yells for silence. He rants that the academy needs rich patrons to survive, and Thor blew it by standing up to a noble. Thor calls out his blatant, corrupt favoritism toward rich students over justice. Dude really admitted on main that money matters more than actual education. The headmaster doesn't care and orders Thor to pack his things and get out immediately. Thor takes a quiet breath and asks for one final favor before leaving. The headmaster snaps in rage, screaming at him to get out of his sight right now. Thor steps out into the empty hallway as the heavy wooden doors slam shut behind him. Thor walks down the long corridor, processing everything that just happened. He lets out a heavy sigh, accepting that his time at the academy has officially come to an end. He opens the giant main doors and steps outside into the sunlight. As he walks out, he spots a familiar figure waiting near the entrance. It's Rihanna, who immediately bows and thanks him for protecting her during the duel. Thor tells her not to worry about it, but mentions he has some serious news to share. He breaks the news gently, telling her he's been fired and today was his last lecture. Rihanna gets flustered and blames herself, but Thor reassures her he was already thinking about quitting anyway. He smiles softly, telling her he's glad if his lessons were able to help her even a little bit. Rihanna lowers her hat, looking deeply conflicted and disappointed. Without hesitation, she turns toward the door and states that if he's leaving, she's dropping out too. Thor panics and grabs her shoulder, begging her not to ruin her future over this. He gets way too close to her face, warning her that dropping out means living a broke life like him with no promotions. Rihanna blushes at how close he is, but remains completely unfazed about her future. She fixes her glasses and casually mentions that she already earned enough credits to graduate anyway, only in her second year and already speedrunning the entire magic curriculum. Thor is completely dumbfounded, realizing his quiet student is actually an absolute super genius. Rihanna looks him dead in the eye and asks if he's truly set on leaving the academy. Thor confirms it, telling her she's a fast learner and will do amazing things on her own. He gives her a final warm smile and tells her he won't stop her path anymore. Rihanna silently watches him walk down the hallway through the grand golden gates. Thor offers a silent prayer, hoping his support magic continues to help her wherever she goes. The next day, Thor packs his bags and officially leaves his staff quarters behind. He walks out the academy gates, wondering where he should even go with his limited savings. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him. Rihanna is waiting right outside holding a travel bag of her own. Thor mentions he was thinking about wandering around the world like during his adventurer days. Rihanna pulls out a fancy sealed letter and hands it to him, telling him to head to the imperial capital. She explains that she has a close acquaintance in the imperial palace who deeply admires Thor and wants to meet him. Thor accepts the wax-sealed envelope, curious about who this mysterious admirer could be. He bids her farewell, wishing her the best of luck on her journey. Thor turns around and begins walking down the sunlit pathway toward his new chapter. Rihanna watches his retreating back with a soft smile, whispering that she'll be waiting for him at the capital. A few days later, Thor arrives at the grand capital of the Neustadt Empire. Before he even realizes what's happening, he's brought straight into the royal palace throne room. The emperor himself greets Thor warmly, telling him there's no need to bow so formally. Thor kneels on the marble floor, completely baffled about how his life escalated this quickly. He thinks back to a few days ago when he handed Rhaena's letter to the palace guards. The moment the guard read the letter, he immediately saluted and announced they had been waiting for him. Maids rushed to guide him through the palace corridors with royalty-level treatment. They served him ultra-rare fruitcakes and luxury herbal tea made from the finest leaves. Thor's eyes practically turned into stars at the sight of high-class gourmet food. The head butler bowed low, personally escorting Thor through the estate. He gave Thor a full grand tour of the guest rooms, greenhouses, and private gardens. Thor was left sweating bullets, wondering who on earth Rhaena's acquaintance actually was. Back in the present, Emperor Heinrich explains that the Empire still remembers how Thor saved the capital during the Demon King's raid. Thor listens quietly as the ruler of the Empire heaps praise onto him. Humble as always, Thor bows his head and says he just did what any adventurer would do. He insists he's just a support mage and that the frontline hero party did all the real work. The Emperor laughs heartily, offering to grant Thor a noble title or whatever reward he desires. Thor freaks out internally. He just wanted to find a basic teaching or adventuring job. A gorgeous, silver-haired lady sitting beside the throne speaks up and steps forward. She reveals that she's the one who received Rhaena's letter and arranged his welcome. She introduces herself as Princess Elena von Neustadt, sending Thor into absolute panic. Thor realizes Rhaena's childhood friend is literally the crown princess of the Empire. He drops to his knees in a frantic bow, begging for forgiveness for not realizing her status. Princess Elena giggles softly, telling him there's absolutely no need to apologize. She turns to the Emperor, suggesting she personally guide Thor to his guest quarters to rest. The Emperor agrees with a warm smile, entrusting Thor's stay entirely to her. He tells Sir Thor to make himself completely at home in the palace. Thor bows respectfully as the Emperor exits the grand hall. Elena leads Thor to a serene private balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Sitting down for private tea, Thor nervously asks about her relationship with Reyna. Elena smiles softly, insisting that Thor can just call her Elena without formal titles. Thor sweats profusely, thinking there's no way he can casually address royalty by her first name. Elena reveals a secret that Thor actually saved her life years ago during the war. She blushes as she admits how envious she was that Reyna got to be his student. She explains that her royal duties prevented her from attending his academy classes personally. Thor rubs the back of his neck, humbly claiming he isn't all that special or talented. Elena cuts him off, sharing that Reyna constantly talked about how amazing and interesting his lectures were. Thor stammers in shock, stunned to hear that Reyna enjoyed his classes that much. A flashback shows Reyna quietly taking notes in his empty classroom with a gentle smile. She always cherished his support magic lessons more than anything else. Realizing his hard work as a teacher actually mattered to someone, Thor gets hit right in the feels. He covers his face as happy tears stream down his cheeks. Elena chuckles at his cute reaction before bringing up his job search. Thor admits he came to the capital hoping to find work as a low-rank mage or tutor. Elena instantly offers him an official position as the Empire's High Court Mage. Thor almost chokes on his air. A court mage is a top-tier royal position. Elena explains that he'll live in the palace with all meals provided while helping solve imperial crises. Then she drops the starting salary, 100 gold coins per month. A helpful box reminds us that just 1 gold coin is enough to live comfortably for an entire month. Dude just got offered 100 years worth of living expenses as an entry-level salary. Thor loses his mind over the absurd paycheck, but Elena assures him she'll even pay in advance. Thor nervously stammers her name, sensing something else is attached to this offer. He asks if there's any other specific condition she wants from him. Elena leans forward with a blushing, dreamy smile across her face. She drops the ultimate proposal, "I'd like you to marry me." Thor's brain completely short-circuits as his soul leaves his body. Bro came looking for a teaching job and accidentally bagged a royal proposal. Thor walks down the hallway, still reeling from Princess Elena's casual marriage proposal. He tells himself it had to be a joke, but accepts that after eating her luxury food, he can't exactly turn down the court mage position. He decides he needs to proceed with the utmost caution to avoid getting dragged into royal drama. He arrives outside his assigned guest room in the palace wing. He notices the door is already slightly open and peeks inside. To his surprise, Reyna is standing inside wearing a high-ranking court mage uniform, greeting him enthusiastically. Thor blinks in shock, asking if that's really her. Reyna bows politely, greeting her former teacher with a bright smile. Thor realizes she actually went through with dropping out of the academy. Reyna explains that since she already had enough credits to graduate, staying without his class was pointless. Thor gets choked up, touched that she valued his support magic class that much. He thanks her for helping him get this court mage job, even if the high expectations feel a bit overwhelming. Reyna assures him he'll do great and promises to support him with all her heart. Thor gets confused when she reveals that she's officially a court mage as well. She explains Princess Elena originally sent her to the academy to refine her skills for the court. In fact, it was Princess Elena who personally recommended that Reyna take Thor's support magic class in the first place. Thor puts the pieces together, realizing the princess has been tracking his abilities for years. Reyna tells him not to worry about admin work because her official assigned role is to be his personal assistant. She beams with pride, saying she looks forward to working under him. Thor asks her to drop the formal language since he feels weird acting like her superior. Reyna points out that as his assistant, she prefers keeping things official, so Thor just rolls with it. Thor asks what court mages actually do on a daily basis, and Reyna tells him they have total freedom to do whatever they want. Thor's sweat drops, wondering if you can even legally call that a real job. Reyna blushes, admitting that Princess Elena set up those extremely relaxed rules specifically for him. She explains the hierarchy. Court mages report directly to the Emperor and Princess Elena. During times of war, they take orders from the division commander who leads the unit. Since it's peacetime and there are no orders, Thor suggests going to greet his new division commander boss. Reyna agrees it's a good idea and offers to lead the way to the command office. They arrive at the division office door, and Reyna knocks to announce their presence. A deep voice commands them to enter, and the heavy doors swing open. Inside sits Vice Commander Badan Zaxberg, looking thoroughly annoyed at being interrupted. Reyna's eyes narrow as she recognizes him immediately. She introduces Thor as the newly appointed court mage assigned to the department. Badan snaps in anger, yelling that he was never informed about any new hires. He turns his wrath on Reyna, questioning who she even is and when she became a court mage. Reyna pulls open her collar to reveal her official Imperial Court emblem, proving her rank is 100% legit. Badan mutters that Thor looks like a small fry who won't get any real work anyway, before asking who hired this unrefined man. Rihanna answers that Princess Elena hired him, causing Badan to lean back in surprise. Rihanna explains that's why they came to greet the division commander today. An illustration shows the silhouette of the true division commander standing in a glowing magic circle. Badan explains that the division commander is away on imperial orders, making him the acting commander in charge. Rihanna nods politely, stating they look forward to working with Vice Commander Badan, but Badan declares he strictly disapproves of this. Badan refuses to accept it, claiming the division commander left him in charge of hiring and he won't allow random recruits. Rihanna calls him out, asking if he's seriously choosing to disobey Princess Elena's direct orders. Badan slams his desk, roaring that hiring some unknown nobody will destroy the court mage's reputation. Rihanna adjusts her glasses with a smug look, completely unfazed by his temper tantrum. She points out that openly defying the imperial family is what actually damages the unit's reputation. She turns on her heel to leave, roasting him on the way out by saying talking to a small fry vice commander is a waste of time. Badan jumps up with veins popping on his head, screaming at them to halt. He fumes behind his desk, unable to handle being disrespected in his own office. Thor steps forward smoothly, asking if Badan simply wants to test his qualifications for the role. Badan insults Thor directly, claiming he looks totally weak and useless at first glance. He demands to know what element or magic discipline Thor specializes in. When Thor answers that he specializes in support magic, Badan bursts into hysterical, mocking laughter. Man thinks support mages are joke tier. He has no idea who he's talking to. Thor stays polite as ever, asking for a chance to demonstrate his skills in combat. He offers to step down gracefully if Badan finds his abilities lacking. Badan gets a sinister grin on his face, seeing an opportunity to humiliate him. He mentions that a court mage hiring exam is conveniently about to take place today. He sneers ugly, telling Thor to prove his worth during the practical test. Thor bows respectfully, accepting the condition without hesitation. As Thor walks out, Badan mutters under his breath, hoping Thor gets crushed during the trial. Rihanna glares back cold daggers, warning Badan that he's the one who's going to regret this. The massive Imperial Bell Tower rings out across the capital, summoning all exam applicants. A crowd of hopeful mages gathers at the arena within less than an hour. Badan boasts about how elite his applicant pool is compared to academy washouts. An arrogant red-haired applicant steps up, flexing his magic and bragging that he's the future division commander. The red-haired guy turns around, and Thor double takes in recognition. Thor greets him with a giant friendly wave. "Geeberd, so you're here too." Geeberd's jaw drops as total PTSD floods his entire body. Bro thought he escaped his worst nightmare, only to run right back into them at the job interview. Geeberd clings to his father, crying hysterically, begging to quit being a court magician on the spot. Dude is experiencing pure, multi-generational trauma just from seeing Thor and Rihanna again. Vice Commander Badan shakes his son, telling him to stop being ridiculous and pull himself together. Badan glares furiously at Thor, demanding to know what he did to traumatize his precious boy. Thor raises his hands defensively, explaining they just had a tiny friendly spar back at the academy. Badan clicks his tongue in annoyance, forced to keep up appearances. He orders Geeberd to get ready because this exam was rigged specifically for him to pass. Badan raises his hand and loudly announces the start of the court magician selection exam. The crowd of onlookers gathers around the arena, eager to watch the trials. Badan points directly at Thor, declaring that he will personally oversee Thor's practical test. Thor bows politely, thanking him for the opportunity to prove himself. Badan smirks, explaining that since Thor specializes in support magic, his test will focus on team synergy. The elite Royal Knight Verger arrives alongside a nervous-looking female knight. Badan presents the female knight, introducing her as the newest recruit from the Royal Guard. He conveniently points out that she had the absolute lowest combat score among all recruits. Badan clears his throat maliciously as he sets up the rigged match. He pairs Thor with the weakest female shield user, pitting them against the powerhouse Verger and Geeberd. The female knight gasps in shock, realizing she's being used as a handicap. Rihanna warns Thor that Verger is known as the strongest warrior after the division commander himself. Badan sneers, claiming winning isn't required and that he'll be lenient on the grading. He smirks smugly, clearly expecting Thor and his partner to get completely crushed. Thor walks over to his new partner to introduce himself. He smiles warmly, introducing himself as Thor, the support mage. She introduces herself as Mia Valsburg, a rookie from the Royal Guard. Rihanna immediately pulls up Mia's file, noting she's the eldest daughter of the Valsburg barony. Rihanna brutally reads off her stats, pointing out that her combat evaluation was an embarrassing E rank. She adds that Mia is skilled with a shield, but completely useless on solo missions. Rihanna tops it off by mentioning Mia is literally on the verge of getting fired from the Knights. Rihanna really dropped her entire tragic background story right in front of her. Thor, sweat drops, gently reminding Rihanna that some truths are better left unsaid. Mia gives a weak, embarrassed smile, admitting that every painful detail is 100% true. Mia feels terrible, apologizing for dragging an innocent stranger into her doomed situation. She looks down in shame, assuming they stand no chance against elite knights. Suddenly, a calm hand settles her doubts. Raina cuts in, stating with absolute confidence that Teacher Thor is on their side. She adjusts her glasses, declaring it's fundamentally impossible for them to lose. Thor smiles gently at Mia, promising that he'll make sure they win this match. Mia's eyes light up with newfound hope and determination. She clutches her shield tight, promising to give it everything she's got. On the other side of the arena, Bedan yells at G-Baird to stop shaking like a leaf. G-Baird stammers in terror, paralyzed by Raina glaring at him from the sidelines. Bedan snaps at him, reminding G-Baird that Raina isn't even the one fighting him today. He grabs G-Baird, pointing out that their opponents are just a pathetic support mage and an E-rank rookie. Plus, they have the top-tier Royal Knight Verger carrying their team. Bedan gets a villainous grin as he looms over his son, asking how it's even possible for them to lose. G-Baird gets hyped up by his dad, convincing himself there's no way he can lose this match. He strikes a dramatic pose, yelling that he's going to burn Thor straight into ash. The elite knight Verger watches quietly, recognizing that Mia actually has decent potential. His eyes narrow as he locks his gaze onto Thor. Verger senses Thor's calm posture, realizing this support mage is extremely dangerous. Thor smiles back, completely relaxed, ready for the battle to begin. Bedan yells out the official exam rules, stating anything goes and surrender is allowed. Both teams take their combat positions in the center of the dusty arena. From the sidelines, Rina analyzes their opponent, Royal Guard Verger. Among all mythical beasts, dragons are universally acknowledged as the strongest species. Verger earned legendary status across the Empire by single-handedly slaying 2 full-grown dragons in battle. Rihanna smiles slightly, noting that Thor finally has a truly worthy opponent. Bedan boasts from the stands, claiming nobody can match Verger and G-Bird's fire magic. He brags that only the absolute highest tier of royal knights can stand against Verger. G-Baird channels his magic into a giant flaming orb, shouting at Thor. He hurls his ultimate fire spell, Hellburn, straight at Thor and Mia. Thor doesn't even flinch, telling Mia to leave the magic countermeasures entirely to him. He raises his hand with a smirk, stating that heavy magic is useless if it never reaches its target. Thor explains his strategy, delay the spell's activation window, then disrupt its magic structure from within. His magic circle flashes bright blue as he targets G-Bird's incoming fireball. Purge! A pulse of anti-magic ripples out, completely unraveling the flame spell mid-air. G-Baird stares at his empty hands in sheer panic as his fire vanishes into nothingness. Seeing an opening, Verger charges forward like a lightning bolt to attack Mia directly. Verger realizes in an instant that Thor dispelled high-tier magic like it was child's play. Verger swings his giant broadsword down toward Mia, telling her not to take this personally. Thor calculates in a split second that debuffing Verger won't work due to his high magic resistance armor. Instead, he channels his spell directly into Mia's defense gear, Wall. Glowing runes wrap around Mia's shield as Thor massively boosts its durability. Verger's heavy blade slams directly into Mia's great shield with a deafening impact. Mia braces for impact, gasping as she holds her ground against the Dragon Slayer's blow. Sparks fly wildly off her reinforced shield as the shockwave shakes the pavement. Mia's shield doesn't even crack under Verger's full strength. Mia is completely stunned, realizing she can deflect legendary-level attacks with ease thanks to Thor's buff. Knowing her shield won't hold forever, Thor decides to take out G-Baird first using lightning acceleration. Thor flashes behind G-Baird and zaps him with a burst of electric magic. G-Bird's eyes roll back into his head as he gets fried into an instant knockout. G-Bird falls flat on his face, smoking like a burnt toast. Seeing his son get folded, Bedan panics and tries to call off the exam. He opens his mouth to cancel the match. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure crushes down on him. Rihanna hit him with that divine silence glare from the sidelines. Rihanna unleashes her magical aura, ordering Bedan to shut his mouth and stay silent. Verger grunts as his swift movements get bogged down in heavy aura. Verger flexes his magic power, instantly breaking through the debuff before it takes full effect. Thor smiles. He expected as much from a Dragon Slayer. He channels a speed buff into Mia instead, casting Acceleration. Thor calls out to Mia, telling her to swing her mace with everything she's got. As she swings, Thor stacks another spell onto her weapon, Gravity Raid. Her mace surges with gravitational force, multiplying its impact weight tenfold. Mia brings down her heavy mace like a falling meteor. Verger raises his sword to block, realizing the weight behind this strike is insane. The massive collision creates a blinding shockwave across the entire arena floor. Before the dust settles, Thor casts acceleration on himself and dashes straight into the fray. He deploys shield and wall of steel, creating a spatial barrier that traps Verger's weapon in place. Thor materializes right beside Verger, leaving the elite knight completely immobilized. Verger stares in utter disbelief as his sword is locked tight in Thor's magic force field. Thor gently disarms him, bringing the duel to an absolute end. Verger closes his eyes and exhales, accepting his total defeat. He marvels at Thor's genius, a support spell that boosts speed, weight, and defense all in one seamless flow. Verger acknowledges the truth. This support mage operates on a completely godlike level. He looks back at Mia and praises her, admitting he still has a long way to go himself. Verger smiles warmly at Mia, telling her she did an amazing job and to keep working hard tomorrow. Mia's eyes tear up with joy as her effort is finally recognized by a legendary knight. Verger announces they are returning to headquarters, and Mia happily salutes. Mia bows deeply to Thor in gratitude before running to catch up with Verger. Thor chuckles warmly as he watches the rookie knight leave with renewed confidence. Rihanna dashes over with a beaming smile, celebrating his flawless victory. She congratulates Teacher Thor on passing his court mage exam with flying colors. Suddenly, Vice Commander Badan comes barging out, screaming that the exam isn't over yet. This dude is really moving the goalposts because his son got one shot. Badan grabs Thor's collar, raging that he won't acknowledge him unless he passes a second match. Thor sighs in annoyance at how sore of a loser Badan is. Instead of arguing, Thor calmly accepts the second match. Rihanna looks at him with concern, wondering why he's entertaining Badan's nonsense. Thor turns to her and explains that he wants to push his own limits to test his true capabilities. He wants to know for sure if he has what it takes to be a court mage. Badan laughs maliciously, telling him to just wait right there while he summons his next opponent. He yells up at the spectator balcony, ordering a female mage to come down and teach Thor a lesson. The female mage closes her spellbook with an annoyed sigh. She sits casually on the balcony railing, groaning about being dragged into Badan's petty grudge. Meet Luna, one of the elite mages of the Imperial Court Magician Corps. Badan yells at Luna, demanding that the division commander's daughter actually do some work. Luna groans in annoyance, pointing out that she doesn't consider Badan her family or superior. Badan accuses her of trying to disgrace the entire Court Magician Corps. Luna points her staff at Badan, telling him to do it himself if he's so persistent. She looks down at Thor, thinking he looks completely weak and unimpressive. Badan smirks, knowing Luna is an obnoxious brat, but her magic is top tier among all court mages. Luna floats gracefully down from the balcony to the main arena floor. Badan plans to let Luna crush Thor and discredit the entire support magic department in one move. He sneers evilly, confident that no support mage could ever defeat a prodigy like Luna. Badan watches from the balcony as the two opponents face off. Luna walks up and addresses Thor, asking if this old man is her applicant. Thor politely greets her, asking if she's the examiner for his second test. Thor notes that she constantly channels mana into her staff, calling it the mark of a true master. Luna blushes in surprise at the unexpected compliment. She smiles proudly, praising him for not treating her like a kid. Rhina steps in with a stone-cold glare, saying a proper adult shouldn't call a stranger old man. Rhina is really giving her a full manners etiquette lesson right before a deathmatch. Luna snaps back, yelling at Rihanna for acting high and mighty just because she's pretty. Rihanna adjusts her glasses, telling Luna to state her name and speak politely if she wants to be taken seriously. Luna fumes with rage, sparks literally flying from her eyes. Thor frantically steps between the two girls, holding his hands up to keep the peace. Thor gives a warm smile, stating he's looking forward to working with her regardless. Luna pouts and looks away, letting the insult slide only for Thor's sake. She introduces herself as Luna and asks what the next test should be. She declares that the rule is simple, a direct battle between the two of them. Luna explains that the moment any magic attack so much as grazes either of their bodies, the match is over. She walks to her starting position, telling Thor to use whatever magic he wants. She spins her staff with a playful grin, announcing the start of the match. Before she even finishes speaking, Thor instantly casts Aqua Acceleration. A high-speed water jet shoots across the arena and splashes Luna directly in the face. Luna stands frozen in place, soaking wet with water dripping down her witch hat. She blinks in sheer shock at the ridiculous speed of his spell. Match ended in literally 0.5 seconds before she could even raise her staff. Water continues to drip onto the pavement around her feet. Luna stammers in confusion, trying to process what just happened to her. Rihanna immediately calls the match, congratulating Professor Thor on his victory. Luna loses her mind, screaming that she was just caught off guard and demanding a redo. She jumps up and down, arguing that the referee didn't even give the start signal yet. She throws a full temper tantrum, insisting they redo the entire duel right now. Thor turns to Rihanna and asks if it's okay for them to have a proper rematch. Rihanna points out that letting your guard down on the battlefield is entirely the fighter's fault. Thor bows politely to Rihanna, asking her to grant Luna's request. He explains that winning on a surprise attack doesn't let him gauge his true combat capabilities. Luna grips her staff tightly with fire in her eyes, warning the old man that she's going all out. Thor gets into position, promising to give it his absolute all as well. Luna channels immense green wind magic around her body. She unleashes a massive wind blast, forcing Thor to analyze her output in real time. Thor casts a wind spell of his own to try and cancel her projectile out. His counterspell shatters immediately, proving Luna's raw output is far higher than his. Luna smirks as her green storm overpowers his defense, shouting that the real show starts now. She instantly stacks a second high-tier element, casting Mega Aqua right alongside her wind spell. Thor focuses his mana, planning to use support magic to absorb the momentum of her dual onslaught. Luna hovers in midair, casting multiple high-level spells simultaneously without breaking a sweat. A torrent of combined wind and water magic surges toward Thor. Thor deploys defensive magic rings, but the sheer volume of attacks is overwhelming. Thor breaks sweat, realization sinking in as high-tier elemental spells rain down on him relentlessly. Luna hovers majestically, surrounded by glowing elemental crests like a true archmage. She gazes down at Thor, realizing his tactical mindset reminds her of a certain legendary hero from the past. Thor watches Luna cast magic, feeling a wave of nostalgia as it reminds him of his old adventuring days. He thinks back to a former companion who started learning magic around the same time he did, but quickly outpaced him. Thor remembers feeling deeply envious and frustrated as his friend soared past his own limits. He looks down sullenly, accepting the bitter truth that he simply possessed no outstanding natural talent. Yet on chaotic battlefields, when terrifying monsters loomed, there was never any time to curl up in fear. Because he couldn't overpower beasts with raw magic, Thor poured everything into mastering support magic to protect his party. Flashbacks show his old hero party standing together, reminding him of where his journey began. He tells himself that it was precisely because of his limitations that he refined his current combat style. Thor shakes his head to clear his thoughts, telling himself to focus entirely on the high-stakes match in front of him. Across the arena, Luna continues channeling massive offensive magic output against him. She fumes in frustration, shouting in her mind as Thor predicts and counters every single spell. Luna wonders how on earth he's reading her incantations ahead of time, starting to rush her chanting. Thor watches her lips carefully, waiting patiently for the slightest flaw in her execution. Rushing her spell, Luna stumbles over her word that mispronounces a rune. She bites her lip in panic, realizing she just committed a rookie chanting error mid-combat. Her grip slips on her staff as unrefined magic turns completely unstable. A wild lightning bolt surges off her staff, misfiring directly into the sky. Thor's eyes narrow as he steps forward. Now! He notices her initial motion lagged for a fraction of a second following the misfire. Thor seizes the split-second opening he was patiently waiting for. He casts a swift wind spell to create a localized visual screen. He stacks concealment magic on top of it, completely masking his presence and aura. Using acceleration, Thor blitzes straight into Luna's blind spot. Before she can even turn around, Thor materializes directly behind her. Luna stands in sheer shock as she realizes she's completely defenseless. He gently taps her on the back of her hat, letting out a soft warning. Thor steps back and announces that the match is officially over. Rihanna immediately calls the victory in favor of Professor Thor. Luna stands completely dumbfounded, realizing she was outmaneuvered from start to finish. She looks back on her mistake. Covering her mouth on reflex created a fatal blind spot in her vision. Thor catches his breath, admitting that his live combat experience against monsters gave him the edge. He acknowledges that if Luna had simply opted for brute force, she would have overpowered him easily. From the upper balcony, Vice Commander Badan gets an evil, sinister grin on his face. Noticing everyone's attention is fixed on the arena floor, he decides to pull an assassination attempt. He secretly channels a deadly, illegal lightning spell targeted directly at Luna. Thor's survival instincts spike as he senses lethal mana forming above. A massive purple death crest manifests right over Luna's head. Thor realizes the incoming strike will hit Luna head-on and disintegrate her. Whether it's a rogue spell or an assassination, he knows he has to save her immediately. He grits his teeth and channels max power into his legs. Thor sprints forward, screaming at Luna to throw her staff into the air. As she instinctively tosses it up, Thor casts Float directly on the staff to act as a lightning rod. The sky splits open as a massive bolt of thunder crashes down. Thor casts Leap and launches himself across the arena at lightspeed. Luna looks up in confusion as the shadow of the falling spell looms over her. Her eyes widen as Thor dives straight toward her. Thor scoops Luna up into a smooth bridal carry and dives out of the blast zone. The lightning bolt obliterates the exact spot where Luna was standing a millisecond ago. Smoke and debris erupt into the sky as the crater smolders on the pavement. Thor exhales in relief, thankful he made it in time. He looks down at Luna in his arms and asks if she's all right. She went from fierce archmage to blushing mess in 2 seconds flat. Luna turns beet red, her face burning up as she realizes how close they are. She flails wildly, screaming that she could have handled that spell herself. She yells at him to put her down immediately before she dies of embarrassment. Thor gently sets her back on her feet, chuckling nervously. Luna crosses her arms tsundere style, declaring that this doesn't count as a real loss. She turns around and bolts away, shouting that she'll mop the floor with him next time. Vice Commander Badan comes screaming down from the stands, refusing to acknowledge Thor's passing. He points his finger violently, roaring that Thor fails the exam no matter what. Suddenly, a squad of heavily armored Imperial Royal Guards surrounds Badan from behind. The Knight Captain steps forward, announcing that Badan is under arrest by Imperial decree. They slam heavy anti-magic handcuffs onto him, reading off a massive list of charges including embezzlement, bribery, and corruption. Shoulder break. Seeing corrupt officials get dragged away in broad daylight is top-tier satisfaction. Badan sweats profusely and screams that he's completely innocent and knows nothing. The captain ignores his whining, stating the Emperor will judge his crimes personally. Badan gets dragged across the courtyard, kicking and crying like a toddler. Thor watches him get hauled off, shaking his head at how corrupt the deputy commander turned out to be. Thor turns back around to wrap up his paperwork. Raina claps her hands together with a bright smile, officially congratulating him on passing the court mage exams. Thor scratches his head, asking if everything really ended up okay. Raina reassures him that Princess Elena's orders were absolute, and he proved his worth beyond any doubt. She beams with immense pride, declaring that Teacher Thor's support magic is truly the undisputed best in the world. Thor lays flat on his back on his guest room couch, exhausted after a chaotic day. He stares at the ceiling, trying to process if he actually passed his court mage test. Suddenly, a polite knock comes from the bedroom door. Thor sits up, assuming it's just Raina coming to drop off supplies. The door opens, and Princess Elena herself walks in to apologize for the Vice Commander's behavior. Thor panics so hard he literally casts acceleration just to jump off the couch and bow. Bro used high-tier speed magic just to stand up respectfully in front of royalty. Thor offers her a chair, begging her not to make formal apologies. Princess Elena smiles gracefully and takes a seat across from him. She praises his performance during the exam, saying Raina told her all about it. Thor smiles humbly, admitting he was nervous about whether he fit the court mage standards. Elena asks how the fight against Luna felt from his perspective. Thor responds with confidence, saying he feels ready to handle his new duties. Elena giggles playfully, asking if the cute young archmage Luna caught his interest during the duel. She adds that watching him move during combat was genuinely dashing and impressive. Thor turns bright red, completely flustered by the princess complimenting him. Elena tells him not to be modest, encouraging him to have pride in his unmatched talent. She stands up to leave, apologizing for intruding on his rest. Before walking out, she reminds him that Rina is fully dedicated to serving him as his personal assistant. She mentions that Rihanna is willing to handle his meals, chores, or anything else he needs. Elena pauses at the doorway, dropping one final cryptic reminder. Please don't forget what I said to you this afternoon. Thor covers his face as happy tears well up again, touched by how much his former student respects him. He wipes his eyes, feeling deeply appreciated as a teacher. Then he suddenly remembers what she said earlier, that she wants him to marry her. Rihanna suddenly opens the door holding a tray, startling Thor out of his mental crisis. She apologizes for sneaking in and presents a freshly baked homemade chiffon cake. Thor takes a bite and his face lights up. It's absolutely delicious. Rihanna claps her hands in delight, thrilled that he likes her baking. She beams with pure joy, happy to make her teacher smile. Thor looks at her, thinking about how remarkably kind and caring she's always been. He reflects on her idolizing him, assuming she'll eventually realize he's just an ordinary guy. Still, a small part of him wants to stay a cool, heroic teacher in her eyes forever. He chuckles internally at his own stubborn pride, promising to give his all as her mentor. Rihanna notices his expression and promises to cheer him on with everything she has. Thor gets hit by wholesome emotional damage once again, wiping away more happy tears. Rihanna offers him a second slice of cake, and Thor happily accepts. Later that night, moonlight washes over the tranquil royal palace. Inside the royal quarters, the head maid informs Princess Elena that her bedtime routine is ready. As soon as the maid leaves, Elena locks the doors and sits down at her desk. She opens a thick, leather-bound sketchbook with a mysterious look in her eye. She pulls out a set of colored magic pens and starts drawing at light speed. Her calm, regal mask completely crumbles into a manic, possessed grin. It turns out Princess Elena is a closet Thor mega otaku who draws full-color fan art of him every night. The crown princess of the Empire is literally Thor's #1 fangirl. She giggles hysterically, gushing over all the cool combat faces he made during today's match. She sketches the scene of Thor bridal carrying Luna, squealing at how heroic he looked. She gets jealous of her own drawing and aggressively erases Luna, redrawing herself in Thor's arms instead. She surrounds the sketch with hearts and flower petals, dreaming of becoming his wife. She doodles little chibi versions of Thor all over the margins of her secret diary. Elena stares at her masterpiece, blushing deeply as she imagines their future together. She collapses onto her giant bed, kicking her feet and squealing into her pillow like a total simp. Thor settles into his new life as a court mage, wearing his high-ranking imperial uniform. He decides he needs to start taking on official assignments to build up his reputation. He turns to Reyna, asking if she has a moment to help him. Reyna immediately perks up, thrilled to be of service to her teacher. Thor hesitates, saying he feels guilty taking up so much of her valuable time. Reyna gets flustered and declares that taking care of him is literally her favorite thing to do. Thor's brain starts melting as he calculates his absurd salary, 100 gold coins a month for basically zero actual labor. Dude is suffering from extreme imposter syndrome over getting paid too well. He panics internally, refusing to live as a useless salary thief on the taxpayer's dime. Reyna smiles warmly, finding his earnest work ethic super endearing. She offers to guide him to the Court Mage Division request board where open tasks are posted. Thor follows her down the grand hallway, asking how the task system works in the palace. Reyna begins breaking down how missions are categorized for court mages. She explains that top priority crises become official imperial decrees assigned to divisions. Everything else gets dumped onto the free tasks board for any mage to pick up voluntarily. They step into the archives room where the massive request board is located. Thor browses the postings, finding ridiculous odd jobs like collecting dragon dung or grocery shopping in neighboring kingdoms. He notes that most open requests offer terrible pay for annoying chores. Suddenly, a specific handwritten letter catches his eye, a plea for help from the village of Ryugat. Reyna reads the poster, which explains that crops in the village have been dying from mysterious poison for 2 years. She notes that multiple investigators were sent before, but no one could ever figure out the root cause. Thor looks at the desperate request, deciding he wants to head there immediately to help the villagers. Reyna smiles softly and agrees to accompany him on the investigation. Thor gives a warm smile, stating that helping people in need is the most rewarding part of being a mage. Reyna gets starry-eyed at his nobility, while the lazy mages in the back sneer at him for caring about peasants. Thor blushes nervously, asking her not to praise him so much. After a quick journey, Thor and Reyna spot the quiet village of Ryugat in the distance. Reyna catches her breath, noting that Thor's speed support magic saved them hours of travel time. They look over the deserted streets, noticing hardly any smoke rising from the chimneys despite it being midday. They walk into the quiet village square to look for the client. An old man rushes out with tears in his eyes, weeping in relief at the arrival of palace mages. The village chief Graba bows repeatedly, thanking them profusely for coming to their tiny town. Thor asks him to show them the poisoned farmland directly. They arrive at the fields, finding the soil completely decayed and glowing with toxic purple energy. Thor examines the dirt, ruling out basic water or wind contamination based on previous reports. Chief Graba despairs, fearing they somehow angered their ancient sacred tree that watches over the land. Thor looks over at the massive, perfectly vibrant green tree standing untouched in the center of the withered field. Thor steps forward into the ruined crops to investigate closer. Reyna proudly tells the chief to leave everything to Professor Thor since his magic is on another level. Thor's sweat drops at her hype, raising his hands to channel a purification spell. He prepares his mana circle above the soil. Purity. A wave of holy green light sweeps across the withered grass. The toxic purple miasma temporarily recedes under his magic. However, within seconds, the toxic aura surges back even stronger than before. Thor tracks the flow of returning poison, noticing it spreading outwards from a single central point. He points his finger directly at the massive sacred tree. Chief Graba freaks out, insisting the 2,000-year-old sacred tree is their holy symbol and couldn't possibly be the culprit. Thor reassures him that he won't harm the tree, but points out that every other factor has already been ruled out. He approaches the colossal trunk, admiring how healthy and full of life it looks on the surface. He asks Chief Graba for permission to cast a localized cleansing spell around its roots. Thor places his palm near the base and channels purity once again. The moment his holy magic touches the roots, the entire earth begins to violently tremble. Cracks split through the soil as a wave of pitch-black demonic energy erupts from the trunk. The sacred tree contorts violently, transforming into a terrifying wood monster right before their eyes. Rihanna gasps in horror as a legendary ancient treant awakens from its slumber. The colossal treant roars with glowing purple eyes, towering over the village like a literal mountain of death. The sacred tree was literally a raid boss absorbing the village's life force for 2,000 years. Thor looks up in shock as the colossal demonic treant looms over the entire battlefield. Village Chief Graba falls flat on his butt, screaming in absolute terror as roots crush the ground around him. Thor casts acceleration directly onto the old man, telling him to retreat to the village immediately. Chief Graba gets blasted across the landscape at Mach 5 speeds, screaming for his life. Gramps just set the world record for the 100-meter dash thanks to support magic. Thor turns to Rhina, ordering her to fall back to a safe distance as well. Rihanna draws her longsword, her eyes glowing with absolute combat focus. She tells Teacher Thor not to worry about her safety and to fight freely. Thor looks at her, remembering how easily she dismantled G-Baird back at the academy. He realizes her sword technique is far beyond anything taught in a standard magic school. Thor estimates this colossal treant easily ranks as an S-tier threat, the highest danger classification for adventurers. Rhaena smiles with complete trust, ready to execute whatever plan he comes up with. Thor stacks speed buffs onto her body, casting acceleration and swiftness simultaneously. Rihanna leaps into the air like a phantom, effortlessly slicing incoming roots to ribbons. Her sharp eyes track every whip-like movement of the monster's vines. Thor supports her from behind, casting deceleration to slow the treant's root strikes. Even with its speed reduced, the sheer quantity of attacks forces Thor to keep casting without pause. He watches Rhaena fight, suddenly feeling like her stance and blade movements look strangely familiar. He shakes the thought out of his head, reminding himself to focus entirely on the raid boss. Thor dodges a massive root strike, analyzing the treant's natural elemental weaknesses. He calls out to Rhaena, telling her he'll control the crowd so she can push for the core. Rhaena immediately dashes forward, closing the distance to the main trunk in a single breath. Thor marvels at how perfectly synchronized they are without even needing to speak. Rhaena weaves through a dense wall of tentacles with flawless agility. The treant swings its massive main branches like giant battering rams to crush her. Rhaena deflects the strike, but the sheer weight vibrates through her arms. She realizes the branches are way too dense and thick to cut through with raw strength alone. She looks for a flaw in its defense, finding almost no opening to land a lethal hit. Thor spots the split-second gap and locks onto her weapon from afar. He casts a distance elemental enchantment, formula target, Rhaena's sword fire veil. Rhaena's blade erupts into a roaring column of intense fire. She swings her flaming sword, slicing clean through the treant's main bark with a fiery explosion. The monster shrieks in pain as fire engulfs its upper canopy. Thor watches closely, knowing an ancient S-rank monster won't go down that easily. Suddenly, a loud gushing noise echoes from beneath the earth. Thousands of gallons of underground water rush up through the roots like a high-pressure pump. The treant floods its own trunk with subterranean water, dousing the flames instantly. The steam clears, revealing that the monster's thick, wet bark suffered zero permanent damage. Thor smiles, realizing this monster is actually intelligent enough to bait elemental counterplays. Thor whispers his new tactic to Rhaena. He'll cast Fire Veil again, but swap it at the last microsecond. Rhaena blinks in surprise, wondering how a live spell swap is even possible. The treant roars in fury, swinging its roots as time runs out. Rhaena gets into her sprint stance, putting absolute trust in her teacher's plan. She gives him a nod of complete confidence. Thor applies Fire Veil and acceleration, sending her charging toward the treant once more. Sensing the fire aura, the treant smugly draws up even more underground water to absorb the hit. Thor watches the monster fall right into his trap with a confident smirk. Dude really said, "I'm a former university professor. There's no way I'm getting outsmarted by a plant." The treant fills its internal vascular system to max capacity with water. Rhaena leaps directly at the monster's chest with her flaming blade. Thor raises his hand, triggering the most difficult support technique in existence. He channels his magic circle with god-tier precision, switching spell formula, Fire Veil to Ice Veil. In a flash of light, the fire instantly converts into sub-zero freezing frost. Rhaena slashes into the water-filled treant, instantly freezing its entire internal body solid from the inside out. Frost shatters across the treant's trunk, locking its internal root system in solid ice. Thor explains his strategy: lure the monster into absorbing water, then freeze its core from the inside. He prepares the final phase of his plan, raising his glowing hand. Switching spell formula from Ice Veil back to Fire Veil, Rhaena's sword instantly reignites into a towering pillar of intense flame. She drives her blazing sword straight into the frozen core, igniting the monster's trapped interior. A catastrophic explosion of fire erupts from deep within the Train's trunk. Rihanna leaps back as the colossal wooden raid boss burns down in seconds. The towering flames reduce the S-rank monster to a harmless pile of smoldering ash. Thor drops to his knees, completely drained after maintaining triple formula support magic. He looks up at the sky, humbly muttering that he was just doing his usual support job. Reyna lands beside him with a bright smile, praising him for a brilliant victory. She gets super flustered, insisting that all credit belongs to Professor Thor's godly magic. The villagers rush over, cheering for Reyna and praising her insane sword skills. They crowd around her, marveling at how cool court mages are in real life. Reyna panics, frantically trying to explain that Thor is the actual genius who carried the entire fight. The villagers look over at Thor, assuming he's just her humble, tired assistant. Thor gives Reyna a gentle pat on the shoulder, smiling as he tells her she was truly incredible. Chief Graba rushes over in tears, apologizing for their sacred tree causing so much trouble. Thor tells him not to apologize, explaining that an evil demon spirit had corrupted the tree's core. He advises the chief to help clear out the burning stump before the fire spreads to nearby homes. The chief nods in agreement, ordering the villagers to chop down the remains. Thor and Reyna roll up their sleeves and join the villagers in cleaning up the fields. After hours of work, the charred remains are gathered into neat piles of ash. Chief Graba thanks them profusely for staying to help with the manual cleanup. He apologizes that the official mission reward is so small compared to their effort. Thor waves it off, mentioning that Princess Elena pays him more than enough as a court mage. The chief offers them all the sacks of tree ash as a token of the village's deep gratitude. Reyna's eyes widen, noting that ash from a 2,000-year-old sacred tree sells like gold dust in the capital. Thor proposes an even better idea. He offers to enchant the ash with a growth spell so the villagers can use it as fertilizer. He tells Chief Graba that the sacred tree protected their village, so its ash should nourish their land. Chief Graba gets choked up, deeply touched by Thor's selfless generosity. Thor raises his hands and casts a basic growth promotion spell over the ash piles. He reflects on the fight, realizing the sacred tree resisted its monster instincts for 2 years to avoid hurting the villagers. He smiles softly, knowing the tree's final wish was to keep protecting its people. Chief Graba weeps with reverence, offering a silent prayer to their holy guardian. The villagers bow deeply as Thor and Reyna prepare to take their leave. The two mages walk out through the village gates, heading back toward the capital. The villagers chat among themselves, praising how kind and humble both court mages were. Suddenly, a farmer comes screaming down the path in sheer shock. Less than 10 minutes after Thor sprinkled the enchanted ash, vibrant green crops shoot up from the dirt at light speed. Thor called it minor nature magic, but Bro accidentally turned dead soil into a hyper-growth agricultural paradise. The villagers fall to their knees in awe, declaring it the ultimate blessing of the sacred tree. They watch the crops bloom instantly right in front of their eyes. The entire valley bursts into a lush paradise of healthy, glowing vegetation. Meanwhile, on the road, Reyna walks beside Thor with a gloomy pout on her face. Thor notices her dark mood, wondering why she looks so disappointed. Reyna grumbles internally, annoyed that she stole the spotlight when her goal was to make Thor famous. Thor turns to her and apologizes for making her do farm work and stay overnight without asking. Ryena's face instantly brightens up, her eyes sparkling with joy. She blushes, squealing that she welcomes staying overnight with Professor Thor anytime. Thor smiles, relieved that she isn't upset with him. He raises his hand and casts a gentle, fatigue relief spell onto her. Reyna gasps as warm energy washes over her, thanking him with a sweet smile. Thor tells her it's the least he can do after all her hard work. As they walk toward the sunset, Reyna adjusts her glasses with a devious smirk. She's already playing 4D chess to get Thor ennobled as a lord so they can get married. She plans out her master scheme to make sure Thor gets full credit for the miracle crop harvest. Meanwhile, far away in a pitch-black subterranean dungeon, the rookie knight Mia blocks heavy blows, her armor cracked and battered. Surrounded by towering dark knights in a death-trap dungeon, Mia grips her shield in despair, wishing Thor was there to save her. Morning arrives over the Imperial Palace as the sun rises. Reyna greets Thor with a cute big yawn, wishing him a bright good morning. She beams with energy, promising to work hard alongside him today as well. 5 minutes later, she's completely slumping and dragging her feet like a zombie. Thor looks at her with concern, urging her to take a day off to rest up after the Ryugat village mission. Reyna smiles softly, saying she can go without sleep as long as she's by his side. Suddenly, she notices Thor walking down the hallway toward the Royal Guard Division quarters. She tilts her head, wondering why he's visiting the night barracks. She giggles to herself, deciding to follow him and make this her unofficial day off. Inside the Royal Guard quarters, Thor browses through the open mission requests. He steps into the bustling night hall where off-duty guards hang out. The knights look at his court mage uniform in surprise, asking if mages take on free tasks too. The knights explain that everyone is fired up to make a name for themselves since Princess Elena is back in the capital. Thor sweats nervously, remembering Elena's marriage proposal from the other day. A knight mentions that even the archmage Luna has been grinding non-stop lately. Thor chuckles, guessing Luna is still sore about getting splashed during their duel. Overhearing another table, Thor hears guards gossiping about a dangerous new mission. They mention that an arrogant squad leader named Boldus dragged the rookie shield user Mia into a deadly C-rank dungeon. Thor steps over to their table, demanding to hear all the details about Mia's mission. Thor rushes out of the building, deeply concerned for Mia's safety. He learns that Boldus took Mia as a human shield to conquer an unmapped dungeon near Ulven village. To make matters worse, over 20 experienced adventurers have already been slaughtered inside. Thor realizes the dungeon's official C-rank rating is completely wrong and dangerous. He stacks 4 separate support spells on himself: weight reduction, fatigue relief, acceleration, and fleetfoot. Man just turned himself into an F1 race car to go rescue a rookie knight. Thor sprints across the country, planes at Mach speeds, determined to reach the quarry in under an hour. A quick breakdown explains that dungeons are monster strongholds spawned by Dark Realm cores. If a core isn't destroyed quickly, hordes of monsters overflow into nearby human towns. Thor analyzes the threat, knowing miscalculated dungeons often hold hidden boss-tier monsters. He crests a hill and spots the abandoned mining quarry of Ulven village. The surrounding village is completely deserted, confirming the dungeon spillover has already begun. Thor senses a presence trailing behind him near the quarry entrance. He stops on a ridge, keeping his guard up. He activates Orcus' magic sight, his eyes glowing bright blue as he scans the terrain. He spots a familiar long-haired silhouette trailing him from the tree line. It's Reyna. Thor assumes she's shadowing him to evaluate his magic on behalf of Princess Elena. Determined not to look weak or get fired, Thor resolves to clear the dungeon perfectly. He dashes straight into the dark mine shaft like a phantom. Reyna bursts out of the trees, gasping for air, stunned that she had to sprint at 100% just to keep up with him. Inside the cavern, Thor moves quietly down the abandoned wooden scaffolding. He prepares for the worst, knowing irregular dungeons can jump from C rank to A rank without warning. Knowing Reyna's top-tier sword skills, he feels reassured that she's safe behind him. Thor activates dual detection spells, night vision, and magic sight. He tracks fresh human mana signatures deeper inside the tunnel system. He runs down the stone corridor, following the trail of combat. He spots broken pieces of knight armor scattered across the ground. Suddenly, the shadows writhe as metallic clanking echoes through the passage. A squad of living armor spirit monsters emerges from the dark, wielding heavy broadaxes. Thor realizes the party ahead couldn't finish these monsters off properly and fled in panic. 5 living armors surround Thor, blocking the entire tunnel. Thor sighs calmly, identifying them as spirit-type constructs. Living armors use metallic gear as vessels and will continuously regenerate unless their spiritual core is purified. Simply smashing the armor achieves nothing. You have to strike them with holy element magic. Thor raises his hands, deciding to handle this efficiency style. He channels a complex multicasting formula. The living armors raise their weapons and charge at him simultaneously. Thor unleashes a quintuple cast crowd control spell, slow delay, X5, stand immovable, X5. All 5 monster knights freeze mid-stride, locked in place by glowing purple binding circles. Thor immediately stacks a second quintuple cast spell, Holy Light, X5. 5 radiant golden orbs of divine magic manifest around his body. He fires all 5 holy projectiles simultaneously, obliterating the spirit cores of all 5 living armors in one go. The heavy suits of armor collapse into harmless piles of scrap metal on the floor. Thor casually adjusts his collar, muttering that they were too noisy. He walks past the wreckage, worrying about whether Mia is still holding out ahead. Watching from behind a boulder, Reyna stands frozen in utter disbelief. Quintuple casting 2 different spells back-to-back with 0 delay is literally myth-tier mage territory. She loses her mind, realizing even first-rate archmages struggle with basic dual casting, while Thor just quintuple casted like it was nothing. She stares at his back in awe, marveling at how easily he swept an encounter that wiped out 20 adventurers. Reyna blushes with pride, so glad that Professor Thor came to rescue the Royal Knights. She quietly steps into the shadows to follow him, thinking her teacher looks ridiculously cool. Thor navigates through the gloomy stone tunnels of the C-rank dungeon. He casts Holy Light as invisible spirit wisps float through the air. Activating Magic Sight, he notes a severe lack of combat traces, realizing the previous squad just panicked and ran. He runs deeper inside, knowing inexperienced parties always fall apart in unseen encounters. A breakdown shows that without visibility magic, Non-magical fighters get slaughtered by hidden wisps. A flashback reveals Boldus's squad screaming at their mage to reveal the invisible monsters. The knights stumble over their own feet in total darkness, blaming each other for the chaos. Boldus screams at his team, completely losing his composure under pressure. The squad members argue loudly mid-combat, throwing tantrums while monsters surround them. Their defensive line collapses into a messy dogpile as wisps fire magic from the dark. Showing his true coward colors, Boldus shoves his own teammates aside and flees for the exit. Squad leader really used his own rookies as bait just to save his own skin. Back in the present, Thor arrives just in time to intercept the monsters closing in on the abandoned knights. He instantly multicasts Immovable Stand and Holy Light, obliterating the monster wave. Thor applies fatigue relief to the injured guards, telling them they can stand on their own now. He demands to know where Mia is, forcing the panicked knights to speak up. They confess that Mia stayed behind alone to draw all the monster aggro so they could escape. Thor orders them to retreat to the surface while he goes deeper to save Mia. He sprints down the dark hallway, praying that Mia's shield skills are keeping her alive. He knows she's a prodigy with the Great Shield, but holding off an entire dungeon solo is suicidal. Thor reaches a fork in the cavern, finding combat tracks leading down both paths. He activates Hawkeye, enhancing his vision to inspect microscopic physical details. He spots microscopic sweat droplets glistening along the right tunnel floor. Confirming it's Mia's path, Thor dashes down the right passage at top speed. Deeper in the dungeon, Mia gasps for breath, her body battered and bleeding. She is completely cornered by a horde of living armors and invisible wisps. Purple laser beams rain down on her, hammering her heavy shield continuously. Her arms tremble from exhaustion as her mace feels like a mountain. Her stamina hits rock bottom as she sinks to her knees in despair. Her final torch flickers and dies out, plunging her into pitch darkness. A massive living armor raises its broadsword to crush her head. Suddenly, Thor's voice booms through the cavern. Heavy attack from the rear. Dodge! Thor applies 4 instant buffs: fatigue relief, iron defense, and weight reduction. Mia's shield flashes bright blue as she deflects the giant sword with 0 effort. She gasps in shock as her mace suddenly feels light as a feather. Thor raises his hand, shouting Lux Magic Light to reveal the hidden enemy positions. Dozens of invisible wisps suddenly glow bright red throughout the entire room. Thor tells Mia to ignore the wisps and focus entirely on smashing the living armors. Reinvigorated by his arrival, Mia gets into stance with fire in her eyes. Thor snipes every wisp from range while Mia pulverizes the living armors up close. In less than 10 seconds, the entire room full of monsters is completely cleared out. Rihanna finally reaches the room from behind, leaning against the wall out of breath. She pants heavily, amazed by how fast Thor cleared the entire encounter. The entire cavern floor is littered with shattered armor and fading mana dust. Thor walks over to Mia, praising her for holding the line until he arrived. Mia slumps on her shield, stammering in shock as to why he came all this way. Thor offers her a warm hand, explaining he heard she was in danger and came to rescue her. Mia's face explodes into a bright crimson blush, her heart beating out of her chest. Heroic Knight Princess mode completely shut down by one handsome teacher rescue. Thor smiles gently, asking if she sustained any injuries during the fight. Mia covers her chest in total embarrassment, flustered beyond belief. Watching from the tunnel entrance, Raina pouts with extreme jealousy, wanting to take Thor home immediately. Suddenly, the monster ash on the floor begins to vibrate and float into the air. Thor senses a massive spike in dark mana, telling Mia to prepare for another fight. Mia quickly gets back into her combat stance, ready for whatever comes next. All the defeated monster souls and ash get pulled toward the back wall of the room like a vacuum. The stone wall shatters open as pitch-black miasma spills out into the cavern. Thor realizes a soul-devourer monster has been feeding on all the dead adventurers inside the dungeon. A massive blood-red scythe emerges from the dark portal. The hidden, irregular dungeon boss, the Death Eater, manifests in all its terrifying glory. Mia panics, recognizing the Death Eater as a high-rank boss that shouldn't exist in a C-rank dungeon. She suggests creating a brief distraction so they can retreat to safety. Thor analyzes her judgment, admiring how calm and analytical she remains under pressure. He gives her a warm, reassuring smile, pointing toward the chamber behind the boss. Mia looks over his shoulder into the dark rear room. Her eyes widen as she spots the glowing purple dungeon core floating in the center. The Death Eater swings its blood-red scythe in a sweeping arc. Thor casts Iron Defense on Mia's shield, locking her footing into the ground. Mia braces behind her shield, amazed that she can tank the boss's blow without sliding back. Sparks fly off her enchanted shield as the scythe gets deflected into the wall. The Death Eater backs off, shocked that its heavy strike failed to breach her defense. Mia realizes that as long as the dungeon core remains intact, The boss will keep regenerating endlessly. Thor explains that the monster grows stronger by devouring souls, so they must destroy it now. He tells Mia that with her god-tier defense and his support buffs, they have a 100% chance to win. Thor asks if she's willing to trust his tactical judgment. Mia shouts her answer without a single second of hesitation. Thor smiles warmly, touched by her absolute faith in him. He lays out the strategy. Mia will draw aggro while Thor strips away the boss's magic-resistant cloak. Mia asks for the speed buffs, proudly declaring that she has infinite stamina to burn. Thor casts Fleetfoot and Acceleration, turning Mia into an unstoppable speed tank. Mia charges forward, shouting taunts at the giant mist skeleton. Mia really walked up to an S-rank dungeon boss and called it a mist skeleton. The Death Eater raises its scythe for a crushing overhead execution strike. Thor casts Stand Immovable on her feet, reinforcing her posture to absorb the blow. The heavy blade slams into Mia's shield with a bone-rattling thud. Mia grits her teeth, holding her ground against the colossal weight. Thor calls out real-time advice, telling her not to block two-handed attacks head-on, but to parry them sideways. Mia remembers her training with Knight Captain Verger about angled shield work. She adjusts her grip and stance in a split second. She pushes her shield upward, cleanly deflecting the boss's scythe into the stone ceiling. The Death Eater stumbles forward, completely losing its balance. Recognizing the opening, Mia drives her shield right into the monster's chest. She repels the boss backward with a textbook shield bash. She grins with newfound confidence, realizing she can actually duel a dungeon boss with Thor's support. She parries and deflects every follow-up attack effortlessly. Thor smiles in admiration, seeing how rapidly Mia's combat skills are evolving. Realizing its physical attacks are useless, the Death Eater turns its glowing red eyes directly toward Thor. The boss retargets the support mage, charging at Thor to eliminate the source of the buffs. Mia flashes in front of Thor, blocking the scythe with an absolute wall of steel. She tells Thor to keep focusing on his spell while she protects him. Thor casts Acceleration on himself, leaping right over Mia's head into close range. Using a light short blade, Thor rapidly slashes away at the boss's dark mist cloak. He shreds the magic-resistant outer robe to pieces while taunting the boss to hit harder. Thor's blade moves like a blur, completely stripping the Death Eater of its magic armor. The boss's skeletal core is left completely exposed to holy magic. Mia steps in, hammering the exposed ribs with her mace to keep its aggro locked on her. She taunts the monster relentlessly, threatening to smash its bones to dust. Thor catches his breath, telling Mia he's ready to unleash the final holy strike. Mia gives him a thumbs up, promising to hold the boss right where it is. She vows that no monster will touch a single hair on Teacher Thor's head. Thor smiles, putting total faith in his frontline vanguard. He channels Max divine mana into his hands. Holy veils sacred enshroud. Terrified by the surging holy aura, the Death Eater rushes straight at Thor in a desperate charge. It lunges down a narrow, straight-line path. Thor's eyes glow bright gold, noticing the boss walked right into Mia's counter zone. Mia steps in and lands a massive knockback shield slam right into the boss's jaw. The Death Eater gets launched airborne, completely defenseless. Thor leaps above the boss, driving a lance of concentrated holy light straight through its skull. And just like that, the S-rank raid boss gets deleted from existence. The Death Eater disintegrates into a massive explosion of golden particles and ash. Thor lands softly beside Mia as the dark miasma clears out. The dungeon core shatters, officially clearing the dungeon once and for all. Mia collapses onto her knees, crying tears of joy and thanking Thor for saving her life. Thor kneels down and picks up a broken sword hilt from the ashes. He notes it was a well-crafted weapon belonging to an adventurer who fell here earlier. Mia looks at him with soft, affectionate eyes, deeply moved by his respect for the dead. Thor examines the glowing dust left behind by the purified Death Eater. Golden mana particles fill the cavern air, sparkling like a night sky full of stars. A bright pink flash of mana illuminates the mountainside as the dungeon collapses. Thor and Mia emerge from the portal into the open air. Thor notes that newly created dungeons dissolve quietly once the core is destroyed. A diagram shows how dungeon ejections work, returning trapped items to the surface. Mia marvels at seeing a dungeon disappear for the very first time. Thor notices that Rihanna has quietly slipped away, guessing she returned to the capital ahead of them. Thor holds the broken relic weapon, worrying about his upcoming evaluation report. Mia looks down, apologizing for being useless during the mission. Thor stops her, asking who could possibly call her useless after her performance. Mia admits she feels unsuited to be a royal guard after getting left behind by her squad. Thor smiles warmly, assuring her that defeating the Death Eater would have been impossible without her. Mia's face turns bright red as she hears someone approaching on horseback. Heavy horse hooves thunder down the dirt path toward the quarry. Knight Captain Verger arrives, leading a full search party of mounted guards. Verger leaps off his horse, shouting with relief that Mia is safe and sound. He rushes over to her, thanking goodness that she survived. Mia bows in apology for causing so much trouble for the division. She vows to work 10 times harder in the Night Court to repay her debt. Verger stops her, reminding her that protecting fellow guards is a sacred oath. He looks past her and gasps in shock, realizing the dungeon core has already been destroyed. Thor humbly steps in, claiming he just assisted Mia a tiny bit. Mia panics, insisting that Teacher Thor did 99% of the heavy lifting. Verger turns his head, giving Boldus a cold, murderous glare. He calls out Boldus, pointing out how drastically different the reality is from his coward report. Thor notices Boldus and his lackeys are all beaten up with bruised noses. Verger demands an explanation, asking why Boldus reported that Mia abandoned the squad. Boldus sweats nervously, trying to talk his way out of getting court-martialed. He points aggressively at Mia, screaming that she must have rigged the mission for money. He loses his sanity, accusing Thor of conspiring with her. A dead, chilling silence falls over the entire battalion of knights. Verger rubs his temples, thoroughly disgusted by Boldus's pathetic lies. Terrified of Verger's wrath, Boldus's squadmates immediately confess that Boldus forced them to leave Mia behind. Boldus grabs his teammate by the shirt, but Verger cuts him off. Verger flexes his terrifying knight aura, declaring Boldus officially stripped of his rank and fired on the spot. He addresses the lackeys, promising proper disciplinary action for their cowardly retreat. Verger turns around and walks over to Thor. The legendary Dragon Slayer knight bows low, offering his deepest apologies to Thor for Boldus's behavior. Thor panics frantically, begging a top-tier captain to raise his head. Verger promises to repay Thor through actions rather than empty words. Thor mentions he doesn't need compensation, but asks for one small favor. He asks the Royal Guard to deliver all the recovered adventurer relics back to their families. Mia and Thor walk back to the capital on foot together, enjoying the peaceful weather. Mia looks at him, asking if he was really okay giving up all the loot rewards to the guild. Thor chuckles, explaining that returning relics to fallen adventurers' families is the right thing to do. Verger was left completely stunned by Thor's incredible selflessness. Mia giggles, saying it was her first time ever seeing Captain Verger look so confused. Thor explains that keeping good relations between the court mages and guilds helps everyone. He asks Mia why she chose to walk with him instead of riding in the night carriages. Mia blushes shyly, admitting she stayed behind because she wanted to ask him something important. Thor tilts his head, listening intently. Mia looks him straight in the eyes and begs him to teach her support. Magic! She admits that speed is her main weakness and she wants to learn acceleration from the best. Thor gets hit right in the heart, ugly crying happy tears of sheer joy. My man is crying tears of joy just because someone voluntarily asked to learn support magic. Mia panics, asking what's wrong, but Thor wipes his tears and says he's just overjoyed. Thor grabs her hands with intense passion, promising to teach her iron defense and a movable stand too. Mia gets flustered by his sudden closeness, her heart beating a mile a minute. Thor immediately begins planning out her custom training curriculum and study materials. Mia smiles warmly, realizing she found an amazing mentor. She reflects on Boldus's childish antics, glad that justice was served. The two of them walk down the sunlit road, excited for their future lessons. Meanwhile, deep inside a dense and shadowy forest somewhere in the kingdom, the prodigy archmage Luna pulls down her hat, groaning in absolute despair. It turns out she got completely and utterly lost while trying to prove her independence. Top-tier court mage can summon nuclear elemental spells, but can't read a basic map. Skewered meats and fresh veggies sizzle over charcoal at a lively capital tavern. Rihanna asks Thor if he enjoyed the meal, noticing he stopped eating surprisingly early. Thor rubs his stuffed stomach, wondering how these two girls have so much appetite. He flashes back to earlier that evening, when Mia invited him out for dinner to thank him for the rescue. Thor mentioned he was a countryside guy who didn't know any good restaurants in the capital. Rihanna immediately popped out of nowhere, offering to guide them to the best food spots in town. Rihanna proudly struck a pose, declaring herself the ultimate capital food expert. Back in the present, the three of them enjoy skewers and drinks together. Thor mentions that Mia expressed interest in learning support magic from him. Rhaina's eyes light up with absolute excitement hearing the news. Mia looks down, admitting that outdated knights look down on support magic as unchivalrous. Both Thor and Rihanna slam the table together, angrily calling that mindset complete nonsense. Thor takes a drink, explaining that boosting combat stats has nothing to do with being lazy. He looks around the warm, noisy tavern with a nostalgic smile. The lively atmosphere reminds him of his old adventurer days with the heroes' party. As night falls over the capital, they decide to wrap up dinner and head back. The three of them take a pleasant after-dinner stroll through the cool evening breeze. Thor groans internally behind them, realizing he ate way too much oily food. They pass by the plaza, arriving in front of a giant marble statue of Hero Allen. Mia gets starry-eyed, asking Thor what the legendary Hero Allen was like in real life. Thor smiles fondly, describing Allen as brave, noble, just, and an amazing companion. Mia listens intently, admiring the legendary story. Rhaena looks at Thor's profile with a somber expression, finding his praise hard to digest. She glares at Allen's statue, wondering why such a noble hero would ever banish a support mage like Thor. She knows Thor refuses to speak ill of his past companions, but suspects there's a dark secret. She vows to figure out the truth behind his mysterious banishment. The moon shines brightly over the imposing statue of the hero. The next morning, a messenger knight delivers sacks of rare Death Eater drop materials to Thor's room. The poor messenger begs Thor to accept them so Captain Verger won't yell at him. Thor sweats nervously, agreeing to take the loot off his hands. Thor looks at the mountain of high-grade monster materials sitting in his parlor. Since he already gets paid a massive salary, selling them for money feels unnecessary. Rhaena adjusts her glasses, suggesting they take the materials to a master blacksmith to craft custom gear. Thor agrees, remembering how intense his recent battles have been. He realizes the Death Eater's cloak can be processed into magic-resistant combat robes. They head down to the capital's finest custom equipment workshop. The master blacksmith examines the monster scythe and shakes his head, saying forging it is impossible. Thor and Rhaena gasp in surprise, asking why a master smith can't process it. The smith explains that the blade is made of Demon King steel, which has an impossibly high melting point. He adds that normal magic flames can't raise his forge temperature anywhere near high enough. Thor strokes his chin, analyzing the thermodynamic properties of the furnace. He gets a brilliant idea, asking the old blacksmith for permission to enter the forge. The smith agrees, curious to see what the young court mage is planning. Thor steps up to the furnace, explaining his multi-step support magic strategy. He casts Purge to strip the metal's magic resistance, encapsulates the furnace with heat shields, and fuels it with enchanted wisp ash. Boom. A blinding, white-hot nuclear fire erupts inside the forge. Bro didn't have high attack magic, so he just engineered a mini nuclear reactor inside a blacksmith shop. The Demon King steel glows red-hot in seconds as the blacksmiths yell to start hammering. The blacksmiths pound the glowing demon ore with absolute passion into the evening. Sparks fly into the night sky as the masterpiece blade is finally quenched. Thor unsheathes his new custom silver longsword, admiring its flawless balance and craftsmanship. He thanks the master smith, amazed that they finished the entire job in half a day. The blacksmith laughs, noticing that both Thor and Rhaena carry matching customized magic swords. He grins, teasingly remarking that their matching robes make them look like a cute newlywed couple. Rhaena panics in a blushing fury, waving her hands and screaming that he's going way too far. She's been planning their marriage for weeks, but gets completely destroyed when someone mentions it out loud. As they walk home under the moonlight, Rhaena stammers that she feels guilty receiving such an expensive sword. Thor smiles gently, telling her she's done so much for him that it's not nearly enough to repay her. He tells her to let him show off a little as her teacher. Rhaena looks at him with soft, affectionate eyes, whispering that he's already the coolest person in the world to her. Thor chuckles softly as the two of them head down the street to grab a late-night bowl of noodles together. Thor checks the open mission board in the court mage office. Rhaena notices that plenty of high-paying requests are still available today. She mentions that Luna hasn't been seen around the division for 2 or 3 days. Rhaena pulls up Luna's last assigned request file, noticing something deeply concerning. The mission sent her to Cargo Forest, a notoriously vast mountain woods where even local hunters get lost. Other mages laugh in the background, betting that Luna just got lost and will burn the forest down to find her way home. Thor decides he can't just leave her missing, heading into Cargo Forest with Rhaena. They hike up the dense mountain trail, listening to the ambient sounds of nature. Rhaena notes that nearby villagers have avoided this forest for over a week due to a wild monster sighting. Thor agrees, noting that the absence of civilians makes it easier to track mana signatures. Rhaena pants heavily as the incline grows steeper and steeper. Thor spots a glowing purple mana mark carved into the trunk of an ancient oak tree. He tells Rhaena to activate Magic Sight to inspect the trail. Rhaena's eyes glow blue as she detects Luna's hidden navigation glyphs. She notices the purple X markers veer off the main path into deep wilderness. Thor asks her if she remembers her support magic tracking protocols. Rhaena recites the lesson perfectly: avoid heavy acceleration and rely solely on Fleetfoot to preserve stamina. Thor smiles proudly, realizing Rhaena's field awareness has already reached elite status. They follow the trail until Luna's mana markers suddenly vanish completely. They arrive at a heavily scorched clearing filled with smoldering crater marks. Thor inspects the uprooted trees, identifying high-tier multi-elemental magic impacts. Reyna spots a pool of dark monster blood splashed across the rocks. Thor deduces that Luna wounded the beast and gave chase, recklessly abandoning her trail markers. Reyna urges them to press forward and follow the blood trail. They track the red droplets deeper into the dark woods. Suddenly, the blood trail stops abruptly in the middle of a clearing with no corpse in sight. Thor looks up, noticing an abnormal opening in the forest canopy directly above them. Heavy branches are snapped off, suggesting the wounded monster was winged and flew away. Thor considers the possibility of a flying predator, but finds it unlikely in such dense foliage. He calculates the worst-case scenario: the beast summoned high-level reinforcement companions. He rests his hand on a stone, analyzing the situation. Or even worse, Luna simply got completely lost in the woods like a total dummy. Reyna looks worried, but Thor reassures her that he has specialized scout tracking spells. Reyna gets starry-eyed, marveling at her teacher's endless arsenal of utility magic. Thor decides to perform a wide-area mana release to ping Luna's position. He explains that mana release acts like a sonar pulse across the environment. Reyna nods in understanding, realizing monsters might also sense the pulse and attack them. Thor steps onto a high rock, completely unbothered since he has Reyna guarding him. He closes his eyes and focuses his internal energy. He spreads his mana out thinly like a massive invisible web covering the mountain. A wave of brilliant green mana ripples outward across the entire forest. Reyna gasps as the warm, gentle pulse washes past her. The sonar pulse sweeps through miles of trees in every direction. Thor's eyes snap open as a ping echoes back from the northeast. He calls out the coordinates, telling Reyna they found her. They sprint through a natural stone archway toward the signal. They burst through the tree line into a sunlit rocky canyon. They spot Luna huddled on the ground beside a tiny campfire, looking completely miserable. Luna pouts in embarrassment, her face pale as a ghost. Thor rushes over, asking in panic if she was severely injured by the monster. Luna flails tsundere style, groaning for him to leave her alone. Thor notices a skewer of raw wild mushrooms sitting next to her fire pit. The kingdom's greatest archmage wasn't defeated by a monster. She got taken out by undercooked forest mushrooms. Thor raises his hands and casts a targeted detoxification and natural healing spell over her. The soothing green light instantly cures her food poisoning, restoring her healthy complexion. Luna blushes beet red, quietly muttering an embarrassed "thank you." Thor gets stern, grabbing her by the shoulders to scold her for wandering off alone. He demands to know why an elite court mage is eating random toxic fungi in a ravine. Reyna watches from behind with a deadpan glare. Suddenly, a deafening, apocalyptic roar shakes the entire canyon. A colossal, terrifying red dragon descends from the clouds, blocking out the sun with its massive wings. And just when things couldn't get more chaotic, an actual Calamity-class dragon enters the chat. A breakdown explains that dragons are the undisputed apex predators among all monster species. Reyna asks Luna if the beast she was chasing was actually a dragon. She points out that dragons are A-rank threats that no single mage should ever face alone. Luna stammers in embarrassment, admitting she was actually chasing a giant desert lizard. Suddenly, a giant lizard monster leaps out from behind a rock to ambush Luna. Reyna casually one-shot the exact monster that had Luna lost in the woods for 3 days. Reyna sheaths her blade, explaining that magic users naturally struggle in close-quarters combat. Luna looks behind them in sheer panic as the ground begins to shake. An entire pack of giant red lizards emerges from the tree line to avenge their packmate. Luna grips her staff, telling Thor and Reyna to run while she holds the horde back alone. Thor steps in front of her, calmly stating he won't abandon a fellow court mage. Reyna surges forward with speed buffs, ready to clear the ground troops. Reyna slashes through the lizard pack like a whirlwind of steel. Suddenly, the young red dragon roars from above, descending into the canyon. Thor analyzes the dragon, noting its smaller size means it's still a juvenile monster. He warns Luna as the beast charges a massive breath attack in its gullet. Luna raises her staff, refusing to back down from a long-range magic clash. The dragon unleashes a roaring stream of fire, colliding directly with Luna's water shield. Flames wash over her barrier, testing her mana output to the absolute limit. Luna grits her teeth, holding her ground with stubborn archmage pride. Thor notes that young dragons rely entirely on raw power, making their attacks predictable. Luna screams at Thor, asking why he isn't running away while she holds the line. Thor steps beside her, telling her to maintain her position as he prepares a support counter. He raises his glowing hand, targeting Luna's failing barrier. Ice Enshroud, a thick layer of dense sub-zero ice, encapsulates her shield. Luna stares in utter shock as the dragon's breath washes harmlessly off the ice armor. The fire dissipates, leaving her completely unscathed. Thor explains that young dragons lack the mana reserves to spam breath attacks continuously. He looks up at the sky, noticing the beast circling overhead to recharge its flames. Luna snaps at him, yelling at the old man for lecturing her during battle. Thor chuckles at her tsundere attitude, taking no offense. Luna admits to herself that Thor's tactical insight and support magic are second to none. Thor points up at the beast, revealing the dragon's ultimate weak point located on its throat. Every dragon slayer knows you gotta aim directly for the reverse scale beneath the neck. He points out the glowing reverse scale that controls the dragon's mana circulation. Thor explains that hitting that tiny scale will completely paralyze the beast's magic. Luna asks how they're supposed to hit a moving target that fast in midair. Thor gets a confident smirk on his face. He leans in and whispers his 3-step combo strategy to her in detail. The dragon grows impatient and dives out of the clouds at top speed. Luna grins, ready to execute her role in the strategy. Thor calls out the timing as the dragon prepares its third breath attack. Luna deploys Water and Shroud to absorb the initial heat. Thor casts Purge directly on the dragon's scales, stripping away its natural magic resistance. He immediately follows up with Slow Delay, targeting the dragon's wings. The dragon's wings freeze mid-flight, forcing the massive beast to crash glide toward the earth. Luna charges her staff with high-voltage electricity, aiming right at the exposed neck. She fires a concentrated lightning spear straight into the reverse scale. A direct hit, lightning explodes through the dragon's throat with a deafening blast. The dragon screams in agony as its mana flow gets completely short-circuited. Luna cheers in victory, boasting about her ultimate spell landing cleanly. Suddenly, the wounded dragon snaps its jaws open and fires a point-blank retaliatory breath right at Luna. Thor flashes in front of her, casting Stand Immovable to block the dragon's fire with his own body. Thor holds the barrier steady, taking the brunt of the firestorm to protect her. Luna gasps in horror as she sees Thor's right arm getting severely scorched by the heat. Thor ignores the intense pain, roaring at Luna to ready her staff for the final blow. He stands like an unbreakable wall, shouting for Luna to finish the dragon once and for all. Thor expands his spell range to cover the dragon's entire body, casting Immovable. The colossal red dragon gets completely locked in midair by glowing purple mana rings. Thor screams at Luna to fire her ultimate attack before the binding breaks. With tears in her eyes, Luna channels her maximum magic output into her staff. Firestorm. A colossal lightning bolt tears through the sky. The massive dragon falls out of the sky, crashing onto the rocks below with a thud. Luna stands in disbelief, unable to process that they actually took down an S-rank dragon. Thor grins, praising her for the insane power behind her lightning spell. Suddenly, Luna remembers Thor's right arm getting blasted by fire earlier. She grabs his hand in a panic, offering to cast healing magic immediately. Thor smiles, showing his arm is completely uninjured thanks to Water and Shroud. Luna turns beet red, screaming at him for making her worry for nothing. She stammers out a super quiet thank you while holding his hand. Thor leans in, asking her to speak up since he couldn't hear her. Luna gets defensive, blaming his lightning spell for ruining her hearing. She casts a quick healing spell on his minor scratches anyway. Reyna dashes over, cheering that the dragon was conquered in pristine condition. The three of them organize the harvest operation for the dragon's corpse. Thor assigns roles, Reyna handles the claws, while Luna uses water magic to wash the materials. Luna looks at them working, realizing Thor and Reyna never lecture or belittle her like other mages do. She smiles softly, feeling genuinely respected for the first time. A team of Imperial butchers arrives from the capital to assist with butchering. They begin harvesting the rare scales, meat, and elemental organs. One of the head butchers calls Thor over with a confused look on his face. He holds a strange, glowing crimson crystal extracted from the dragon's stomach. He asks if the mages can identify what this weird glowing stone is. Thor's eyes widen in sheer horror. Finding an unhatched dungeon core inside a living dragon's stomach is beyond terrifying. It's an active dungeon core seed, pulsing with abnormal dark mana. Reyna gasps, wondering why a dragon was incubating a dungeon core inside its own body. Thor whispers to Luna and Reyna to keep this secret and take the core directly to the High Command. He treats Luna like an adult, trusting her discretion. Luna blushes proudly, agreeing to keep quiet until they investigate further. Reyna smiles, noting how good Professor Thor is at managing Luna's personality. Convoys of heavy carriages carry the dragon materials back to the capital as night falls. The group arrives at the royal capital gates under the full moon. All three mages drag their feet down the street, completely exhausted from butchering a dragon. Luna groans that organizing dragon scales took 10 times more mana than the actual fight. Thor chuckles, pointing out that doing it manually would have taken the butchers a week. Reyna recites her ideal philosophy of what makes a truly capable adult. She praises Professor Thor again, leaving him with a leg cramp from embarrassment. Rihanna offers to give Thor a personal foot massage when they get back to his quarters. Thor panics, trying to decline her overly generous offer. Luna shyly tugs on Thor's sleeve. She's trying so hard to invite him to her favorite bathhouse without exploding from embarrassment. Luna blushes fiercely, recommending a hot spring bathhouse to cure his muscle fatigue. Steam literally rises off her head as she stammers that she's just offering out of gratitude. Rihanna gets excited about the bathhouse idea, agreeing that they should all go together. Thor smiles, happy to relax after a long day of adventuring. They arrive at the capital's top-tier hot spring bathhouse. Thor sinks into the steaming herbal bath, letting out a long, peaceful sigh. He hears the girls laughing happily in the adjacent bath section. He reflects on the dragon core, wondering how a monster obtained an unformed dungeon seed. He realizes that ever since the Demon King's defeat, natural dungeon spawns had been nearly zero. Having both a Death Eater and a dragon spawn near the capital in such a short time is statistically impossible. Thor splashes warm water over his face, realizing an artificial mastermind is deliberately planting dungeons around the kingdom. He leans back against the bath wall with sharp eyes, preparing to report his findings to Princess Elena. Thor reflects on the suspicious dungeon core seed found inside the dragon's stomach. He prepares to report the incident, assuming royal bureaucracy will delay any real investigation. To his surprise, Princess Elena takes the threat with extreme seriousness and orders an immediate capital-wide sweep. She declares that protecting the Empire's citizens comes first, trusting Thor's intuition completely. The next morning, Thor walks through the palace, feeling appreciated by his superiors for once. Rihanna greets him cheerfully, beaming with pride at Princess Elena's swift response. Thor thanks Rihanna for advising him to take his concerns directly to the crown. He mentions a specific free mission posted on the division board that caught his eye. They arrive at the Court Mage Division office to review open assignments. Thor browses the board, noting that extra patrols have been deployed throughout the city. Mages nearby gossip about Luna taking special leave after her dragon battle. Rihanna asks Thor which specific request he wants to investigate. Thor pulls down a quest poster regarding a mysterious voice in the underground waterways. He points to a map of the capital, explaining that ancient abandoned sewers are ideal spawning grounds for artificial dungeons. Rihanna agrees, noting that the capital's vast underground canal network is nearly impossible to monitor completely. Thor warns that if a dungeon core activates beneath the city, the civilian casualties would be catastrophic. He resolves to investigate the waterways personally before any disaster occurs. Thor and Rihanna descend into the gloomy stone sewer system, activating Magic Sight to scan the area. They walk along the damp stone ledge, finding the main channels surprisingly clean and well-maintained. Thor notes that collapsed or sealed-off sections are usually where monsters hide undetected. He pauses, turning to Rihanna. "By the way, Rihanna, I've been meaning to tell you something." Rihanna's face instantly turns bright red as she imagines a romantic love confession. Girl really thought he chose an abandoned sewer tunnel to confess his feelings. Thor's sweat drops, awkwardly clarifying that he actually detected someone stalking them from behind. He senses a strong mana signature following their footprints in the dark. Since the aura isn't hostile, he decides to let the spectator tag along silently. Hidden figures in dark cloaks creep through the sewer arches behind them. Rihanna agrees that leaving the spectator alone is fine for now. Thor smiles, determined to show off his support magic for his mysterious fan. They continue down the winding stone tunnels. Thor calculates that searching the entire commercial sector's drainage system will take at least half a day. Suddenly, flickering torchlight appears at the end of a long corridor. Thor slows his pace, realizing someone else is conducting an active search nearby. Voices echo down the tunnel, complaining about the tedious investigation work. It's a squad of female royal guards holding torches and complaining about finding nothing. The rookie knight Mia scolds her two slacker teammates, telling them to take the mission seriously. The slackers groan, admitting they doubt any monster actually exists down here. Mia turns around, sensing someone stepping out from the pitch-black shadows. Thor and Reyna materialize out of the dark without a torch, terrifying the entire night squad. Startled out of her mind, Mia instinctively lands a full-power right hook straight into Thor's nose. Bro survived a dragon's fire breath just to get his nose broken by a jump-scared rookie. Thor holds his bleeding nose, casting natural healing while praising Mia's godly reflexes. Mia panics frantically, bowing profusely and apologizing for breaking her teacher's face. Mia explains that her squad was assigned to investigate the mysterious sewer voice by Captain Verger. Thor nods, surprised to learn the Royal Guard is running a parallel search. Mia pulls out a blueprint map of the capital's drainage network. Rihanna leans over to inspect the map, spotting an anomaly in the sector layout. She points out an uncharted storage room marked with a red X that doesn't exist on official palace maps. Thor realizes the room was newly carved out during recent collapse repairs. He decides to check out the hidden room, inviting Mia's squad to join them. Mia's teammates whisper in awe, recognizing Thor as the legendary support mage Mia always gushes about. They arrive outside the sealed stone storage chamber. Thor casts Orcus Magic Sight, inspecting the wall for hidden mana signatures. His eyes glow bright as he detects a faint magical reaction deeper underground. He spots a tiny artificial mechanism embedded directly into the brickwork. He finds a hidden magic keyhole used to seal the secret passage. The knights watch in fascination as Thor analyzes the locking mechanism. Rather than hunting for the key, Thor decides to override the lock with support magic. He places his palm over the keyhole. Purge. Purge energy disrupts the lock's mana supply, completely short-circuiting the mechanism. The heavy stone wall slides open, revealing a hidden staircase descending into the abyss. Thor steps forward as the hidden door unlocks smoothly. A toxic wave of green miasma and the nauseating stench of rotting corpses billows out from the dark stairs. Thor and the squad descend the stairs, discovering a massive hidden arena beneath the capital. They stare in horror at hundreds of cages packed with wild goblins, orcs, and direwolves. Rihanna realizes someone is breeding and managing an illegal underground monster army right under the city. Cultists on the upper balcony spot the intruders and scream to kill them. They pull emergency levers, unlocking every cage in the arena simultaneously. Hundreds of starving monsters flood the arena floor, completely surrounding Thor's party. Mia braces her shield, admitting the sheer quantity of enemies is overwhelming. She reassures her squad, declaring that having teacher Thor on their side makes them invincible. Thor raises his hands, telling the knights to handle the front line while he provides support. Rihanna draws her longsword, determined to demonstrate her growth as his student. She focuses her mana, aiming to earn her teacher's praise. She leaps into the monster horde like a whirlwind of razor-sharp steel. Thor's massive speed and strength buffs wash over the 3 Royal Guard knights. The knights gasp as their bodies feel weightless, effortlessly dicing through orcs and goblins. Mia deploys Iron Defense, blocking 50 monster attacks simultaneously without yielding an inch. In less than 10 seconds, the entire army of hundreds of monsters is completely slaughtered. The cultist leaders on the balcony stand frozen in terror at the instant wipeout. Panic breaks out as the cultists turn to flee for the secret exit. Suddenly, lightning crackles across the exit door, paralyzing the fleeing cultists. It's Archmage Luna standing at the top of the balcony, groaning that everyone stole her fun. Thor looks up in surprise, realizing Luna tracked the underground facility on her own. Luna pouts down at him, shouting that she already alerted the Imperial Guard. Heavy footsteps echo from the entrance as a battalion of Capitol Guards arrives to secure the scene. Luna accompanies the guards to escort the captured cultists to the surface. Thor examines the vast Colosseum, realizing an operation this large required royal funding. He notes that high-ranking insiders in the palace must be pulling the strings. Sensing a dark presence lingering in the shadows, his expression turns dead serious. Rihanna notices his gaze, asking if something is wrong. Thor's eyes glow bright blue as he activates Magic Sight to pierce the darkness. He detects a massive concentration of compressed dark mana hiding behind an illusion spell. A chilling, raspy voice echoes through the cavern, mocking the humans. Thor warns his squad to prepare for battle as a high-tier threat reveals itself. A dark-cloaked figure draped in red ceremonial robes emerges from the Shadow Realm. Miasma leaks off its body as it steps into the torchlight. It's an ancient, high-ranking undead boss, an arch-lich carrying a skull staff. Thor greets the monster calmly, addressing it simply as a lich. The lich rages, its red eye sockets burning as it demands respect for its true title. It boasts that its name was granted by the supreme ruler of darkness. The lich proclaims that it serves the resurrected demon king Gizbal. Rihanna steps forward with a cold, mocking smirk on her face. Rihanna really called the ultimate demon king a certified loser right to his head priest's face. The lich shrieks in rage, declaring it won't tolerate blasphemy against its dark lord. The lich raises its staff, chanting an ancient high-level necromancy ritual. It vows to sacrifice the entire capital to resurrect Demon King Gizbal. Dark red aura surges through the floor, reanimating every slaughtered monster in the Colosseum. Mia gasps in horror as thousands of dead bodies stand back up with glowing red eyes. An army of undead goblins, orcs, and direwolves surrounds the party once again. Rihanna analyzes the situation, knowing an endless horde of undead is a nightmare matchup. She notices Thor's hand trembling with rare, burning anger at the mention of the Demon King. Rihanna tells Thor to leave the undead horde to the squad while he focuses on the lich. Thor looks back at her, thanking her for covering his flank. He steps past the rising undead, striding directly toward the lich with absolute calm. Thor unsheathes his new custom silver longsword, telling the lich to end its foolish delusions. He declares that in Hero Allen's place, he will personally destroy the remnants of the Demon King. Divine holy aura erupts off his blade as Thor prepares to crush the lich into oblivion. When the peaceful support mage finally gets serious, the villain's life expectancy hits absolute zero. The Archlich rages, threatening to disintegrate Thor's entire group into ash. Thor turns to the squad, ordering the knights and Reyna to dismember the reanimated monsters. The undead horde surges forward toward the party. Mia blocks their strikes, knowing necromancy requires massive ongoing mana to maintain. A diagram shows that if a zombie corpse loses more than 50% of its body mass, the spell breaks automatically. Reyna slashes an undead orc in half, instantly deactivating its necromancy spell. Thor watches her strategy, impressed by how quickly she picked up on the mechanics. The squad realizes that by keeping the mob busy, they are forcing the Lich to drain his own mana reserves. Furious at their tactic, the Lich raises its skull staff to channel an AoE spell. A massive fireball storm manifests above its head, threatening to collapse the entire arena. Mia panics, fearing they won't survive a blast of that magnitude. Thor steps forward with absolute calm, calling the Lich's ultimate move completely disappointing. He looks the ancient undead monster dead in the eye with zero fear. He raises his hand and casts Aqua Veil at maximum scale. A torrential water barrier completely douses the Lich's firestorm in seconds. Thor roasts the Lich, asking if Demon King Gizbal's magic was really this weak. The Lich shrieks in blind rage, screaming at Thor to shut his mouth. It channels 5 different elemental spells simultaneously around its body. The Lich brags that this is the true multi-elemental magic granted by the Demon King. It fires all 5 elemental blasts directly at Thor. Thor counters every single projectile in real time with superior opposing elements. Thor lectures the monster, asking if its brain rotted away since it forgot basic elementary magic counters. Man is giving a 200-year-old Lich a remedial elementary school magic lesson mid-combat. The knights watch in awe, mistaking Thor's godly precision for basic spellcasting. Reyna analyzes his technique, knowing not even high-division commanders can judge and counter 5 elements at once. A breakdown explains that countering spells requires hitting the microscopic mana core of the incoming magic. Since Thor has lower raw mana, he compensates with god-tier precision and tactical timing. Thor taunts the Lich, telling it to stop holding back and use its real dark magic. The Lich fumes, channeling its final reserves into a forbidden spell. It unleashes dark haze, enveloping the room in pitch-black destruction. Thor smiles, noticing the Lich has officially exhausted 99% of its mana pool. The dark haze surges forward like a tsunami of death. Thor casts a simple, lightened shroud, completely neutralizing the dark spell upon contact. The Lich screams in horror as its ultimate spell dissolves into nothingness. Thor points out that the monster ran out of mana from spamming high-tier spells. He flicks his finger, casting a tiny, harmless beginner spell called Firebug. Reyna gets confused, wondering why Thor used a campfire lighter spell against a boss. The tiny firebug lands on the Lich's staff, igniting the residual mana. The tiny flame triggers a chain reaction mana overload, forcibly canceling the Lich's necromancy. With its mana pool empty, the Lich collapses to the floor, unable to defend against basic holy light. The Lich curses human intellect as holy light purifies its skeletal body. The ancient Lich crumbles away into glowing golden dust. Thor quietly sheaves his silver longsword as the battle concludes. Suddenly, Luna drops down from the balcony, firing a stray spell to finish the job. Reyna snaps in rage, screaming at Luna for trying to steal Professor Thor's kill. Luna flails in panic, arguing that she just wanted to help make sure the boss was dead. Luna really came in at the last second like a kill-stealing lead player and paid the price. Thor frantically holds Reyna back, telling her Luna just wanted to assist. Thor looks over the arena floor as the Capitol guards arrive to secure the area. Reyna notices a strange, glowing object resting in the rubble where the Lich died. Thor picks up another active dungeon core, confirming their worst fears. He realizes someone is deliberately planting artificial dungeon cores inside the Capitol. Thor stares at the purple core with cold resolve, vowing to stop the Demon King's revival at all costs. Later that night, the team gathers at a lively tavern for dinner. Luna bows repeatedly to Thor, begging for forgiveness for her reckless behavior. Thor smiles warmly and accepts her apology, while Reyna pouts in the corner. The squad enjoys a delicious feast together, celebrating their successful mission. The Royal Guard Knights ask Thor if they can enroll in his support magic class. Thor's eyes light up with pure joy, thrilled by their interest. The knights cheer, eager to learn his god-tier support techniques. Thor smiles brightly, happy that support magic is finally getting the recognition it deserves. Meanwhile, far away on an imperial highway under the starry night sky, a handsome knight commander rides on horseback toward the capital, eager to meet a certain person. Out in the courtyard, Archmage Luna scratches her head in total confusion as she practices her spellwork. The new student knights gather around, marveling at how insane it is to cancel an incoming attack spell using an opposing element mid-combat. They discuss how standard defensive shields are far more practical than risking a misfire trying to match elements on the fly. Reina steps up beside Luna, pointing out that since Luna already knows high-tier attack spells, she needs to hold herself to a higher standard. Luna pouts in frustration, shouting that Reina is being way too strict with her. Thor thanks Reina and Luna for taking time out of their day to help coach the new recruits. The female knights cheer with excitement as they successfully cast basic support spells like Acceleration and Magic Sight on their own. Thor smiles proudly at their rapid progress, promising to personally check everyone's mana flow later that afternoon. Luna immediately runs over and clings to Thor's arm, whining that Reina is picking on her again. Rihanna looms behind her with a dark, terrifying aura, demanding to know why Luna keeps forgetting to address him as Professor Thor. Thor sweat drops and steps between them, gently reminding Reina that Luna is still young while telling Luna to stay focused. To ease the tension, Thor pulls out a fresh box of high-end pastries he picked up from a famous bakery in town. The student knights gasp in delight, instantly swarming the snack box like happy kids. Thor hands a specially wrapped box directly to Reina, revealing he bought her favorite rare berry flavor. She thought she was just his assistant, but he literally remembered her favorite snack order. Thor turns to Luna and mentions she doesn't have to use formal titles if she finds them stuffy, though Reina blushes happily at her treat. Rihanna clutches her custom box of sweets close to her chest with a dreamy smile, feeling like the luckiest girl in the world. Mia inspects her snack with sparkling eyes, marveling at how kind Teacher Thor is to all his students. The rookie guard squad happily munches on their macarons together while Luna pouts off to the side. Later that day, massive crowds gather along the main avenue of the capital to watch an upcoming Imperial parade. Thor walks down the bustling street alongside Reina and Luna, taking in the lively festive atmosphere. He notes with satisfaction that thanks to Princess Elena's swift orders, monster purification around the city is going smoothly. Luna groans beside them, complaining that all the extra patrols cleared out the free mission board, leaving her completely bored. Rihanna adjusts her glasses with a devious smile, teasingly suggesting that Luna head back to the dorms so she can have Thor all to herself. Luna snaps at the suggestion, pouting that there's no way she's leaving them alone together now. Distant cheering echoes down the thoroughfare as citizens announce that the grand parade is finally approaching. The crowd goes wild, chanting the name of Lord Arno, the wildly popular young captain leading the royal guard. Confetti rains down as Reina explains Arno's background, noting that he defeated the previous captain in an official duel 2 years ago to take command. She adds that portraits of Captain Arno sell out instantly across the city, making him a total heartthrob among the citizens. Thor strokes his chin as he looks toward the procession, remembering that he once taught a student named Arno back at the Magic University. A flashback reveals the handsome young Lancer Knight Arno riding proudly in white and silver armor. Thor remembers spending extra hours helping Arno train his spear technique when he was still an ambitious student. Suddenly, mid-parade, Captain Arno turns his head and locks eyes with Thor in the crowd. Arno's face lights up with pure joy as he spots his former teacher. Abandoning all formality, Arno leaps off his horse and sprints straight toward Thor. Arno drops directly onto his knees right in front of Thor, grabbing his hand like a devout believer. The most famous knight captain in the Empire is literally groveling on the pavement in front of thousands of fans. Thor smiles proudly, placing a gentle hand on Arno's shoulder and praising him for growing into such an incredible leader. The spectating crowd stands in absolute dead silence, completely dumbfounded seeing their golden idol bowing to a random court mage. Arno promises to report to the Emperor quickly before begging Thor to visit the Royal Guard headquarters later that day. Rihanna looks at Thor in surprise, asking if he was really the master who trained the famous Captain Arno. Noticing the entire street staring at them in shock, Reina suggests they move somewhere quieter to talk. The grand parade continues down the street as the crowd cheers for the departing knights. As they walk toward the palace gardens, Reina brings up an old traditional rule that used to govern the royal guard. She explains that in the past, royal knights were strictly forbidden from using magic, believing it made warriors rely less on physical training. Thor shakes his head at the memory, recalling how he discussed that exact outdated rule with Mia during her exam. Rihanna notes that despite the rule being officially abolished, many traditionalist elites within the guard still look down on magic. An image shows Captain Arno standing strong against heavy pushback from conservative senior officers who despise his pro-magic reforms. Thor puts the pieces together, finally understanding why Arno was so emotional and relieved to see him today. Thor gazes toward the sky with a warm, determined look, resolving to stand by his beloved student if Arno is struggling alone. Rihanna and Luna look at Thor with starry eyes, deeply moved by his unwavering dedication as a mentor. Thor decides to head straight over to the Royal Guard headquarters to meet up with Arno as promised. He bids the two girls farewell, telling them he'll return after finishing his visit. Thor turns around with a smile, telling Reyna and Luna to behave themselves and play nice while he's gone. A few minutes later, Thor arrives at the Grand Command Office inside the Royal Guard headquarters. The moment Thor steps inside, Captain Arno drops onto both knees and bows his head all the way to the floor. Arno looks up with desperation in his eyes, begging Thor from the absolute bottom of his heart. Thor stands frozen in sheer horror as Arno drops the massive bombshell. Please become the official magic instructor and advisor for the Royal Guard Corps. Thor sweats in pure panic, trying to get Captain Arno off his knees in front of the entire division. Arno looks up with serious eyes, explaining that the Royal Guard must integrate magic into their combat strategy to remain the Empire's ultimate defense. Thor tries to modestly decline, telling Arno that he's vastly overestimating a simple support mage like him. Suddenly, Knight Captain Verger steps forward, shouting his full agreement with Arno's proposal. Verger praises Thor, reminding everyone how he saved multiple knights during recent crisis missions and willingly offered private guidance to rookies. Arno beams with pride at Verger's support, while Thor sweat drops, realizing the stoic dragon slayer is secretly a massive fan of his too. Thor stammers nervously, thoroughly overwhelmed by both top captains cornering him at once. Suddenly, a furious voice roars from the back of the assembly hall. An arrogant conservative officer named Etman steps forward, screaming that the Royal Guard will never take orders from weak court mages. Arno turns around, his warm expression instantly hardening into a cold glare. Arno steps in close, his eyes blazing with terrifying intensity as he reminds Etman of the massive casualties caused by poor unit coordination 10 years ago. Thor watches Arno's outburst, remembering that his student always had a fiery short temper when provoked. Even so, Thor agrees with Arno's core message about the dangers of lingering military conflict. A flashback shows the brutal war against Demon King Gizbal's forces 10 years prior. Factional rivalries between knights and mages prevented unified tactics, leading to tragic losses among soldiers and civilians alike. Because of those failures, very few veteran knights survived to pass down real battle experience. Etman screams back in denial, clinging to the ideology that true knights fight with physical strength alone. He brags about his father, former Captain Gustav, formally petitioning for Arno to be stripped of his command. Murmurs ripple through the hall as the Royal Guard stands divided between traditionalists and reformers. Edmund aggressively demands a formal duel according to core tradition to settle the leadership dispute once and for all. He accuses Arno of using secret magic to cheat during a previous duel 2 years ago. Verger snaps in rage, yelling that Emperor Heinrich personally witnessed that match and validated Arno's clean victory. Arno calmly raises his hand, telling Verger to step back and let him handle it. Arno looks down at Edmund with absolute conviction, stating that a true captain's highest duty is returning every soldier home safely. He points to the wounded guards resting in the hall, asking if Edmund cares about the 17 knights injured during their last expedition. Arno declares that if using magic could have halved those injuries, he would gladly embrace it without hesitation. He adds that he doesn't care about titles or rank, only about making the Royal Guard strong enough to protect lives. He offers to accept any fair challenge from the traditionalist faction, whether it's a duel or arm wrestling. Thor steps forward smoothly, interrupting the standoff to address Edmund directly. Edmund fumes, demanding Arno's dismissal and the immediate reinstatement of his father as commander. Thor points out that his demands are completely unreasonable since Captain Arno hasn't committed a single crime. Enraged, Edmund steps up aggressively to shove Thor out of the way. Arno snaps in rage at Edmund disrespecting his teacher, lunging forward to strike him. Before anyone can react, Thor's magic circle ignites instantly. Stand immovable X2. Glowing purple binding rings instantly lock both Arno and Edmund completely frozen in midair. The entire hall gasps in sheer disbelief at Thor deploying dual target spatial control magic with zero chanting delay. Thor hits both hot-headed fighters with a terrifying pitch-black teacher glare. He used elite spatial freezing magic on 2 high-ranking captains just to give them a timeout. Both Arno and Edmund sweat profusely under his aura, instantly shutting their mouths. Thor proposes an official dungeon conquest competition, a clear, objective trial to settle their dispute fairly. He explains that both factions will enter an active dungeon, and whoever destroys the core first wins the challenge. Thor selects the target, the Gurmel abandoned mine in the eastern mountains, known as the Golem Dungeon. He asks Edmund if his faction has any specific stipulations regarding party members. Edmund claims there are no restrictions, telling Arno to bring whatever mages he wants. Arno smirks confidently, declaring that his squad will consist of just himself and Professor Thor. Edmund bursts into mocking laughter, agreeing to the 2v many match before Arno can change his mind. Thor double takes in shock, asking Arno when he ever agreed to enter the competition. Arno clings to Thor like a golden retriever, begging his beloved teacher not to abandon him in his hour of need. Arno promises to do all the heavy lifting during the raid to cover for him. Thor lets out a soft sigh with a fond smile, telling his former student not to drag him down. Arno scoops Thor up in a huge victory hug, cheering loudly that they're officially adventuring together again. The assembled knights cheer for the upcoming dungeon match, while Etmund smirks wickedly in the dark corner. At the former Gurmel mine in the Gravel Mountain Range, knights and mages assemble for the high-stakes dungeon duel. First Company Captain Verger steps forward as the official Imperial referee, confirming that both Arno and Etmund accept the terms of victory. Arno agrees without hesitation, stating that if he wins, Etmund is dismissed, but if he loses, he'll surrender his command. Arno looks over at the spectator area, surprised by the massive crowd that has gathered to watch. Thor double takes as he spots familiar faces standing at the front of the spectator line. Rihanna and Luna stand proudly alongside Mia and the new student knights, cheering enthusiastically for Professor Thor. Verger raises his arm, declaring that the victory condition is destroying the dungeon core first, with retreat counting as an instant defeat. Verger drops his arm and shouts, "Den, begin!" The microsecond the match starts, Thor channels max speed buffs into Arno. Acceleration. Arno turns into a literal lightning streak, blasting into the dark mineshaft at Mach speeds. Etmund and his squad stare with their jaws on the floor, unable to process someone running that fast into a dungeon. Outside the mine, Reyna adjusts her glasses with a smug smile as she watches the action through a high-tech magic projection screen. Inside the dungeon, intense heat waves pulse from rivers of boiling magma along the stone path. Thor activates Mage Sight, marking a hidden golem's core with a glowing purple target ring. "Arno, the core is yours." Arno lunges forward like a blur, shattering the target in a single thrust. Thor tracks incoming enemies from behind, calling out real-time coordinates for Arno's next strike. He casts Degrade on the golem's outer shell, stripping its physical durability in a split second. Arno's spear drives straight through the weakened armor, obliterating the core instantly. The heavy stone golem collapses into a harmless pile of rubble. Arno exhales, amazed at how effortless golem hunting becomes when Thor handles core detection and shell degradation. Arno boasts playfully that he's a knight commander now, but Thor gently scolds him not to get cocky mid-dungeon. Arno grins like a happy puppy, admitting that even getting scolded by his beloved teacher brings back great memories. Thor smiles back, praising Arno for how refined his speech and leadership have become since his university days. Arno blushes in embarrassment from the compliment, but Thor cuts the chatter as heavy footsteps rumble from the shadows. The cavern floor vibrates as massive shapes step out from the magma streams. A pair of rare, high-tier armored iron golems with weaponized limbs emerges to block the path. Thor notes that standard knight tactics dictate luring them into lava pools, but offers to take them head-on instead. Thor multicasts Flame Shroud on Arno's weapon while pinpointing the core with Mage Sight. Arno thrusts his blazing spear forward, piercing cleanly through the iron golem's core in one single strike. Out in the spectator area, the watching knights and mages gasp in absolute shock at the projection screen. Rihanna smugly watches the crowd's reaction, having modified a communication magic tool to broadcast live footage of the raid. Captain Verger watches intently, deeply grateful to Reyna for allowing the order to observe Thor's tactical genius. A knight screams in disbelief, pointing out that Arno is dropping A-rank iron golems like they were basic goblins. Verger steps in to correct him, explaining that one-shotting golems is entirely thanks to Thor's godly support magic. He adds that even when fighting alongside Arno previously, taking down a single iron golem required at least 2 full hits. Luna steps forward to break down golem anatomy for the spectating guards. A detailed diagram illustrates how mineral-type golems lack fixed core placements and possess no natural elemental weaknesses. Luna explains that you normally have to chip away at the armor blindly until you stumble upon the core location. Verger realizes that if Thor teaches his support methods to the Royal Guard, their combat efficiency will skyrocket. However, Luna hits him with a reality check, telling him not to expect standard mages to replicate Thor's results. She explains that Thor simultaneously locates the microscopic core, applies Flame Shroud, and casts Degrade on the shell all at once. An illustration shows how absurd that is. It's like chanting 2 complex spells at the same time while aiming and firing an arrow. Verger stares at the screen in pure awe as Luna beams with pride over her teacher's brilliance. Overwhelmed by admiration, Verger mutters out loud, I've fallen for Sir Thor. I want him." The legendary Dragon Slayer captain just dropped the most romantic-sounding line in front of the entire division. All the surrounding knights freeze in total shock, staring at their captain with wide, horrified eyes. Mia turns bright red, desperately asking Captain Verger to clarify what he means by that. Verger deadpans that he simply wants Thor as the official magic advisor, prompting Luna to yell at him for his awful choice of words. Meanwhile, a second surveillance screen tracks Etman's Challenger squad moving through another sector. Sweating heavily from the volcanic heat, Etman barks orders at his men to split into searching parties. He orders his night unit to scatter in teams of 4 while letting his mage unit search freely. Outside, Luna notices something strange on the screen, wondering why Etman's mages are separating from the knights. She scans the faces of the mages Etman brought along, noting that she doesn't recognize a single one of them from the capital. Reyna smiles with razor-sharp eyes, pointing out that there isn't a single real mage in the Challenger squad. Verger gets serious, asking Lady Reyna to explain her alarming discovery. Deep inside the volcano, Thor and Arno navigate a narrow stone bridge over a roaring river of magma. Thor notes that the extreme environmental hazards are likely what earned this dungeon its A-rank classification. Arno slings his spear over his shoulder, praising Thor's water shroud for making the scorching heat feel like a summer breeze. Suddenly, the magma below them begins to churn and bubble violently. Thor's eyes glow bright blue as he senses a colossal surge of mana beneath the lava surface. A massive, mechanical armored golem boss erupts from the boiling magma lake. Arno gets a fierce, excited grin on his face, raising his spear alongside Thor as the final battle begins. Facing down the colossal armored golem boss, Arno grins with absolute confidence, knowing victory is guaranteed with Professor Thor by his side. Thor analyzes the monster's heady plating, noting that its outer shell resists both physical spears and standard elemental magic. He inspects the chestplate, locating the core signature inside and estimating a 10-minute fight time. The giant golem raises its massive iron fists, slamming them down toward the two mages with deafening force. Arno leaps back with lightning speed, boasting that he'll cut Thor's 10-minute prediction right in half. He ignites his spear with dense fire magic, Flame Wrap. Arno lands gracefully on top of the golem's shoulder, effortlessly dodging a crushing sweep from its massive arms. He slides down the monster's back, keeping the boss's total aggro locked onto himself. Thor watches from below, recognizing that the golem's outer shell is made of magic earth steel that fire alone can't melt. Watching from the spectator tent, Luna and Reyna marvel at how fluidly Arno maneuvers in heavy plate armor. Captain Verger explains that Arno's fighting style is modeled after solo high-rank adventurers rather than standard knight formations. He adds that pairing Arno's high attack power with Thor's top-tier support magic creates an undisputed one-man army. Verger chuckles as he reflects on core politics, while Reyna keeps her eyes glued to the screen with a serious expression. Reyna senses an abnormality, pointing out that this armored golem is unnaturally large even for an A-rank dungeon. Inside the cavern, Thor feels the exact same suspicion, suspecting an artificial mastermind injected dark mana into the core. Standing on the golem's head, Arno taunts the boss, asking if a heavy swing is the only move it has in its arsenal. Annoyed by the taunt, the golem suddenly lifts its massive leg to stomp the ground. Thor acts instantly, targeting the monster's leg joint, immovable. Spatial binding rings wrap around the giant foot, freezing its movement mid-stride with immense pressure. Unable to adjust its balance, the colossal armored golem topples backward, crashing flat onto the cave floor. Thor multicasts in a flash, Mage Sight, Flame Wrap. A radiant golden target manifests directly over the exposed chest core. Arno dives straight down from the ceiling like a falling meteor with his blazing spear. Fire blazes in Arno's eyes as he aims his strike directly at the core mark. Boom! Arno's spear slams into the chest plate, but the thick armor absorbs the initial impact. Realizing the tip hasn't pierced deep enough, Thor raises his hand. Spell target Arno's spear weight amplification. Gravitational weight multiplies tenfold, forcing the spear blade deep into the golem's chest. Crack! The spear drives through the heavy earth steel, pulverizing the golem core to pieces. The giant armored golem completely deactivates, slumping into a lifeless pile of scrap metal. Arno catches his breath atop the corpse, joking that the ending felt a bit anticlimactic. Thor chuckles, pointing out that they cleared the entire boss fight in under 3 minutes. They walk into the rear sanctum, where the glowing orange dungeon core hovers above the rocks. Arno winds up his spear to strike the core, telling Thor he's ready to wrap up the duel. The moment his spear touches the core, a violent purple shockwave detonates across the cavern. The massive annihilation discharge blasts both fighters flying across the room. Arno crashes hard onto the stone floor, groaning in pain from the unexpected trap. He dusts off his armor, thankful that his heavy plate absorbed most of the blast damage. He turns around to check on Thor, only to find him lying flat on his back with his soul literally floating out of his mouth. Bro took a point-blank dungeon core self-destruct to the face and met God for 2 seconds. Thor sits up slowly while clutching his stomach, groaning that he almost lost his entire breakfast. He offers to help harvest monster loot, but Arno frantically insists that he sit down and rest. Arno looks around the silent cavern, suddenly realizing that Etman's Challenger squad was nowhere to be found during the discharge. He concludes that Etman's team never even bothered entering the dungeon at all. Suddenly, slow footsteps echo from the dark tunnel as a hooded figure steps into the torchlight, waving casually. The stranger claims he's a mage from Etman's team who wants to lend them a hand after getting betrayed. Arno draws his sword with a cold glare, telling the guy to cut the act because he knows he's a hired assassin. The scarred killer clicks his tongue in annoyance, realizing his cover was blown instantly. He drops his friendly facade as dark aura erupts around his body. The assassin flexes his stealth suit, admitting his contract is to claim Captain Arno's head today. Watching the broadcast outside, Verger slams his fist in rage, declaring the duel invalid due to foul play. He orders the royal guard to storm the mine immediately to rescue their captain. Rihanna calmly steps in front of Verger, holding up her hand to stop him. She takes a casual bite of her macaron, telling Verger that a captain backed by Professor Thor would never fall to a cheap ambush. Luna agrees, munching her snack and stating that Thor wipes out assassins without even breaking a sweat. They advise the guard captain to just sit back and watch the masterclass about to unfold. Inside the cave, Arno steps in front of Thor with his spear raised, begging his teacher to fall back to safety. Thor's expression darkens as a terrifying blue aura flares around his body. The assassin leader stares at Thor, alarmed by the sheer, overwhelming pressure radiating off the support mage. Before the killers can react, Arno charges forward like a cannonball with his spear readied. Arno sweeps his spear in a wide arc, forcing the assassin leader to leap backward to avoid getting impaled. Thor analyzes Arno's strike, noting that he struck with the dull butt of his spear to capture the assassin alive rather than kill him. The assassin leader backflips toward an open cavern section, attempting to draw Arno into a prepared trap. Arno tracks his movement, calling out the assassin's retreat tactic as completely obvious. The assassin leader stops in the center of the wide cavern, asking how many fighters Arno brought along. Shadows writhe along the canyon walls as dozens of stealth-suited assassins step out from the rocks. The assassin leader boasts that his guild deployed a full execution squad specifically to eliminate the Knight Commander. Thor looks over the massive crowd of armed killers, but Arno just smirks, claiming 30 enemies is no problem at all. Arno raises his spear, mockingly thanking the assassin guild for making the trip just to get beaten up. The assassin leader orders his men to overwhelm Arno while he steps forward to kill the support mage in the back himself. Thor sighs with a relaxed smile, humbly claiming he isn't very good at fighting people. Arno leaps into the middle of the assassin mob like a whirlwind of destruction. He spins his heavy spear, knocking out 4 fully armed assassins in a single fluid strike. The surrounding killers panic, unable to process how someone in heavy plate armor can move that fast. Watching from a spectator tent, Verger points out that Arno's mobility is powered by Thor stacking 5 speed and weight buffs simultaneously. He explains that self-buffs are simple in theory, but managing 5 separate activation timers mid-combat requires insane practice. Verger praises Thor's training, stating that Arno's speed proves magic enhances a knight's physical prowess rather than replacing it. On screen, Arno seamlessly blends high-speed footwork with heavy spear strikes to dismantle the execution squad. Back inside the cavern, the assassin leader draws dual daggers and slowly approaches Thor. He sneers, asking if Thor's calm demeanor is real confidence or just sheer stupidity. Thor gives a warm smile, answering that his secret is simply composure. He raises his glowing hand to deploy spatial control magic, Immovable Stand. The assassin flexes his high-tier magic resistance suit, shattering Thor's binding spell upon contact. He lunges forward at light speed, driving his dagger straight toward Thor's neck. Thor deploys defensive mana rings to intercept the assassin's throwing knives. He applies acceleration to his own legs, dodging a lethal strike by a fraction of an inch. Thor sidesteps another dagger slash, using tremor vision to predict the assassin's stealth angles. He deflects incoming throwing blades with his custom silver sword, surprising the killer with his instincts. Thor unsheathes his blade completely, locking swords directly against the assassin leader. The killer's eyes widen in horror as he recognizes the metallic glow of Demon King steel on Thor's weapon. Enraged, the assassin leader swings his daggers in a frenzied flurry of lethal strikes. Thor parries every single blow with flawless, god-tier swordsmanship. The killer gasps for air, shocked that a support mage can hold his own in a close-quarters duel. Thor chuckles softly, explaining that he's a former frontline swordsman who transitioned into support magic. The assassin leader introduces himself as Kalman, asking if Thor knows why assassins state their names. Thor notices Kalman sneakily preparing a hidden poison capsule with his left hand. Kalman screams that stating his name means he's prepared to kill his target through mutual destruction. Before he can detonate the poison, Thor targets his left hand, Flame Veil. Flames ignite on Kalman's hand, detonating the explosive powder in his palm before he can throw it. Thor flashes behind Kalman, resting his custom sword directly against the killer's throat. Kalman freezes in sheer terror, realizing he's completely outclassed. He collapses face first onto the stone floor, knocked unconscious by the blast wave. Arno walks over holding his spear, having single-handedly wiped out all 30 assassins. Thor catches his breath, groaning that holding back from killing assassins is way more tiring than actual combat. Arno praises his teacher's skill, but Thor tells him he's overestimating him. Suddenly, Edmund and his traditionalist knights stumble out of the tunnel, gasping for breath. Bro really showed up after the fight was over, claiming he came to help. Edmund stares in horror at 30 unconscious assassins littering the floor, realizing his hit squad failed completely. Realizing he's backed into a corner, Edmund completely loses his mind and screams at his remaining knights to attack. He draws his sword, roaring that they must erase Captain Arno right here and now to take back the core. Edmund's eyes burn with unhinged malice as he declares Arno an eyesore that must be eliminated. The remaining conservative knights draw their weapons, surrounding Thor and Arno in the cavern. Arno slings his spear over his shoulder with a confident grin, ready for round 3. Edmund leads the charge, screaming at his squad to kill Captain Arno at all costs. Inside the Grand Throne Room, Captain Arno kneels before the Emperor, taking full personal responsibility for the mutiny within the Royal Guard. Emperor Heinrich strokes his beard, noting that military custom demands a traitor be executed immediately by the commander's own hand. Arno bows low to the marble floor, humbly submitting that Edmund's actions stemmed entirely from personal resentment toward him, rather than treason against the crown. He begs the Emperor to grant mercy and spare Edmund's life, asserting that the Guard cannot afford to lose skilled noble knights. The Emperor considers the request, secretly impressed by Arno's sharp political awareness in appeasing the noble faction. He grants Arno's counsel, officially sparing Edmund while warning the commander that there will be no second chances. Heavy wooden beer steins clink together with a deafening cheer to celebrate Arno's victory and Thor's official appointment. A completely wasted Captain Arno clings to Thor like a golden retriever, slurring his words of love for his favorite teacher. The entire tavern bursts into laughter as Verger chuckles at how unhinged their commander gets after a few drinks. Thor groans under Arno's heavy weight, while Verger takes a drink and reminds him that Arno has been under insane stress lately. Thor asks Verger about sparing Edmund's faction, wanting to ensure stability within the capital's defense forces. He asserts that with dark forces looming, humans cannot afford to destroy each other from within. Luna munches on a meat skewer, mentioning that the Imperial mages are in an uproar over the recent demon cult revival plots. Rihanna adds that the underground Colosseum investigation concluded with several corrupt noble houses being arrested at once. Thor checks if Gebert Zaxberg was involved, learning that while Gebert was cleared, his father's family faced total ruin. Thor looks solemn, realizing dark collaborators have infiltrated the highest ranks of human society. He ponders the growing threat, feeling a deep pang of sadness for young knights ruined by their parents' treason. Rihanna notices his somber expression, asking if something is troubling him. Thor hesitates, nervously admitting he's worried about whether he's truly qualified to be the Royal Guard's magic instructor. Instantly, Mia, Rena, and the female knights slam the table in unison, shouting at him for doubting himself. The entire squad was ready to fight him over his extreme imposter syndrome. Rena grabs Thor by the shoulders, her eyes burning with passionate devotion as she praises his teaching. She declares with absolute certainty that Professor Thor's support magic instruction is the best in the entire world. Verger nods in agreement, stating that Thor's battle-tested tactics are invaluable to every knight in the order. Luna points her finger tsundere style, shouting that Thor's endless humility is getting genuinely annoying. The student knights cheer in agreement, telling Thor that his real-time combat calls are unmatched. Drunk Arno raises his mug and roars into the rafters, declaring, "Professor Thor #1 in the world." The tavern erupts into joyful laughter as the party toasts to their new magic advisor. Thor smiles warmly through his blushes, finally accepting the position with a grateful heart. Warm light and cheerful voices spill out of the tavern into the quiet night air. Later that evening, Thor wobbles down the cobblestone street, chuckling at how easily Arno dragged him into drinking. He walks under the moonlight, feeling a comfortable buzz as he steps over the stones. He hears soft footsteps behind him as Rena catches up, waving goodbye to Luna as she heads home. Thor flashes back to earlier that night when a drunk Arno leaned in to whisper a secret question. Arno asked him point-blank how he truly feels about Rena as a woman. A cute illustration shows both Arno and Rena staring expectantly at Thor's answer. Thor praised Rena's grace, dignity, and beauty, before Arno playfully teased him about going out with her. Back then, Thor laughed it off, humbly claiming he was no match for a brilliant girl like her. Looking at Rihanna walking beside him under the street lamps, he smiles, wanting only her absolute happiness. Rihanna looks up at him with a breathtaking, radiant smile that lights up the night. She playfully bumps into his arm with a soft giggle, teasing her handsome teacher. Thor smiles softly, content to simply walk by her side as they head back toward the palace. Moonlight washes over the tranquil capital as the night settles in. Deep in the middle of the night, Thor suddenly falls into a terrifying, recurring nightmare from his past. A traumatic flashback erupts. 10 years ago, blood and pitch-black flames consumed the Demon King's lair. Thor's past party members scream at him to stop as he forcibly drains his own life force to generate mana. With blood pouring from his eyes, past Thor channels max support magic to keep the frontline alive. Past Thor coughs up blood, maintaining quadruple divine shields with flawless mathematical distribution. A radiant green support dome encapsulates the hero's party, shielding them from the dark firestorm. Thor reflects on his 7 years adventuring alongside Hero Allen, holding the line until his body broke. While his party members possessed God-given genius talent, Thor knew he was just an ordinary support user. Surrounded by a graveyard of broken swords, Thor sacrificed everything to fulfill his sacred duty. Blood drips heavily from his fingertips as his soul burns away. His tear-stained, bloodied face looks up toward the sky with heartbreaking resolve. His one and only pride was ensuring that not a single comrade died under his watch. Suddenly, Hero Allen did the unthinkable, turning around mid-combat to look at Thor's failing barrier. Thor's eyes widen in sheer horror as he realizes what Allen is about to do. Desperate to save his own skin, Hero Allen casts Anti-Magic Purge directly onto his own shield, severing Thor's mana link. Hero Allen explicitly abandoned Thor to die, letting the Demon King's black flames swallow the support mage whole as Thor screams in utter betrayal. 10 years ago, Hero Allen did the unthinkable, abandoning Thor's protective support shield to charge the Demon King alone. It was a complete suicidal charge into the heart of Demon King Gizbal's black flames. Yet, against all odds, Allen's holy sword pierced the Dark Lord's heart in a blinding flash of light. Thor watched in utter shock as the apocalyptic black flames dissolved into thin air. The sun rose over the battlefield, illuminating the fallen Demon King in what history would call the miracle of the hero. The surviving party members cheered in disbelief, celebrating their ultimate victory over darkness. Thor rushed over in a panic, desperately casting natural regeneration onto the battered hero. He reached out to grab Allen's hand, but Allen slumped forward, completely devoid of strength. Thor looked into Allen's pale, dying eyes, terrified of what was happening. Allen offered a faint, gentle final smile before closing his eyes forever. Allen's hand slipped from Thor's grip as his life force faded away entirely. Before Thor's horrified eyes, Allen's body disintegrated into a pile of black ash. The hero's heavy armor collapsed empty onto the dirt with a hollow clang. Thor sank to his knees in front of the empty suit of armor, his soul completely shattered. A dead silence settled over the vast, desolate wasteland. Thor reached into the empty air, mumbles of denial spilling from his lips as he called out Allen's name. Tears streamed down his face as the unbearable reality of losing his comrade crushed him. He scooped up the hero's remaining ashes into his hands, weeping hysterically in the dust. His companion stood in silent grief as Thor sobbed on his knees. At the cost of slaying the Demon King, the world lost its greatest hero. When the party returned to the imperial capital, no joyful crowds gathered to cheer. Citizens watched in somber silence as the heroes marched through the streets in mourning attire. Thor carried Allen's ash pouch against his chest, drowned in the despair of failing his duty as a support mage. In the present, Thor gasps as he wakes from the recurring nightmare. He opens his eyes, realizing he's lying with his head resting on a soft lap. Thor panics and jumps up, realizing he was sleeping directly on Rhaena's lap on a park bench. Rhaena blushes with a cute smile, teasingly saying she's honored he entrusted his body and heart to her. She mentions he was thrashing around in a terrible nightmare before dropping a bombshell. Girl took advantage of his nightmare to drop the ultimate fake confession joke. Thor drops flat onto his knees on the pavement, bowing profusely in sheer, mortified embarrassment. Rhaena giggles softly, admitting she was just teasing him to snap him out of his bad dream. She looks at him with tender eyes, knowing how deeply the memory of Hero Allen still wounds his heart. She reflects on how none of the surviving party members ever spoke about the details of Allen's final moments. Thor stands up and wipes the cold sweat off his forehead, admitting her joke definitely sobered him up. Rhaena advises him to drink in moderation next time, and Thor humbly agrees. She offers to walk him back to the palace, noting that the sun is already rising. Morning light bathes the grand statue of Hero Allen standing in the plaza. Thor looks up at the marble statue, thinking back to the mystery surrounding Allen's final journal. 10 years ago, they recovered a burnt diary among Allen's belongings. A single surviving passage stated that Alan planned to remove Thor from the party after defeating the Demon King. Thor sighs internally, accepting that he will never truly understand what Alan meant in those final days. Suddenly, Rihanna turns around with a bright, radiant smile, calling out his name. Thor blinks in surprise as she points excitedly toward the morning sky. Rihanna beams with joy, marveling at the vibrant rainbow-colored sunrise clouds above the capital. Thor gazes at her, completely mesmerized by her beauty in the morning light. He smiles softly, telling her that she is truly beautiful. Rhaena's face turns bright red as she flails in embarrassment, squealing at his sudden smoothness. Thor chuckles softly as they continue walking side by side down the tranquil street. Rhaena looks ahead, her expression softening into genuine affection. She admits that, ever since the beginning, Thor has been her absolute special person. She reminds him how he chased after her when she was lonely, feeding her good food and caring for her non-stop. She pouts playfully, telling him it's entirely his fault that she fell for him. Thor stammers in panic, asking if she's confusing him with someone else. Rhaena adjusts her glasses, stating that the reason she can smile today is entirely because of him. She looks into his eyes, whispering that he is truly special to her. She recalls how Thor looked 10 years ago, a hollow shadow of a man carrying his friend's ashes in despair. Rihanna smiles warmly, vowing that just as Thor once saved her, she will now support him with all her heart. Thor's eyes widen as her sincere promise pierces straight through his years of hidden pain. He reflects on his oath never to forgive himself for his past failure. Yet, in his heart, he resolves that he will never let anyone else suffer that same crushing despair. He envisions all the cherished companions standing by his side: Rena, Luna, Mia, Arno, and the Knights. Thor smiles with absolute clarity, thanking Rhaena for showing him his true path forward. He places his hand over his heart, swearing to protect those he holds dear and destroy any threat of the Demon King's revival. Meanwhile, far away on the jagged peaks of Mount Eld, a dark demonic fortress looms under purple lightning. Inside the Shadow Sanctum, demon commanders panic over the destruction of the Golem dungeon, realizing the humans are closing in as they prepare for Demon King Gizbal's ultimate return. Out on the sunny training grounds, Verger and the Guard Knights practice channeling their internal mana. Verger grits his teeth, trying desperately to form even a basic magic spark in his palm. He bows his head in shame, apologizing to Thor for having zero natural talent for magic. Luna teases him for taking it so seriously, but Thor steps in to defend Verger's effort. Thor reassures him, explaining that he doesn't need to become a full court mage, just treat magic as a utility tool to enhance his existing combat style. He smiles warmly, reminding Verger that his physical sword skills are already top tier among royal knights. A breakdown shows how adding basic support spells expands a warrior's options when cornered by hordes. Across the field, Mia successfully unleashes a giant flaming fireball. The knights cheer in awe, while Luna nods approvingly at Mia's impressive output. Luna notes that Mia has been practicing her mana-needing fundamentals every day since meeting Thor. Thor addresses the crowd, encouraging everyone to stay patient and master the basics without losing heart. The academy bell rings out, signaling the end of today's magic lecture. The guard recruits bow low, shouting their heartfelt thanks to Professor Thor and Miss Luna. Luna tells Thor not to let the knight's overwhelming enthusiasm intimidate him. Thor admits this is his first time ever teaching a large class, remembering how dead his support course was at the academy. He wonders why support magic was universally hated among academy students. Luna hits him with a massive reality check, explaining that support magic is actually the hardest magic discipline in existence. She breaks down the difficulty. Offensive magic just fires converted mana, while support magic requires simultaneous spatial awareness, targeting, and multi-formula control. She points out that Thor only found it easy because he's a complete monster, and his previous students like Rhaena and Arno were super geniuses. Thor slumps over in sheer emotional damage, realizing his entire career's difficulty curve was completely skewed. Bro thought support magic was entry-level stuff, only to realize he was teaching god-tier rocket science the whole time. Captain Arno arrives holding an imperial folder, praising Thor's incredible reputation among the Guard Order. Thor groans in defeat, admitting he just learned an unexpectedly harsh truth about his own subject. Arno gets serious, presenting an urgent, top-secret imperial decree directly from the Emperor. A high-speed horse carriage gallops across the dusty plains toward Mount Eld. Thor reviews the briefing, remembering Mount Eld as the former enemy fortress where Gizbal once stationed magic superweapons. Arno granted Thor full authority to select an elite unit from the Night Order for the mission. Inside the speeding carriage, Mia and the female recruits chat excitedly about putting their acceleration training to the test in live combat. Verger scolds them sternly to take the secret mission seriously, while Thor chuckles and tells him to relax. Thor warmly thanks Verger, Mia, and the recruits for volunteering to join the raid team. Luna pouts in the corner, whining that Thor casually left her out of his thank you speech. Mia notices something missing, asking why Lady Reyna isn't by Thor's side today as usual. The heavy carriage bounces along the Rocky Mountain Trail. Luna mentions that Reyna was assigned to escort Princess Elena on a royal outing in the city. Thor sweats nervously, overthinking if Reyna is secretly avoiding him after his drunk antics the other night. Verger looks out the carriage window, announcing that Mount Eld is coming into view. A massive stone fortress looms atop the jagged mountain peak under heavy clouds. Verger outlines the pincer strategy. Thor's squad will attack from the south, while the Empire's greatest military force invades from the north. Thor tilts his head, asking who this mysterious greatest military force actually is, learning they're top-tier legendary adventurers. Verger notes that dark dungeon activity is spiking across the realm, making this reclamation critical. He bows to Thor, declaring that the entire Night Squad will follow his tactical commands. Thor looks out at the fortress, his expression turning cold as intense blue aura flares off his body. His eyes glow with terrifying intensity as he vows to destroy any force attempting to revive the Demon King. Verger shivers in awe, sensing a dangerous, bloodthirsty aura radiating off the usually peaceful support mage. Suddenly, Luna chops Thor on the head, scolding him for putting too much pressure on himself. She reminds him sternly that neither she nor Alan would ever want him to sacrifice himself again. Thor blinks in surprise, softening his expression and promising to fight safely. The carriage arrives outside the heavy iron gates of the lower mountain outpost. Thor steps up to the guards, presenting his court mage badge and imperial movement orders. The outpost guard salutes and grants them immediate entry through the gates. The guard begs them to liberate the upper fortress, knowing their defensive lines won't hold if the demons push down. Thor offers a confident smile, telling the guard to consider it already done. Verger walks beside him into the courtyard, asking what strategy they should deploy against a high-ground mountain stronghold. Mia and the recruits get into combat formation with absolute focus. Mia declares that a full-speed frontal assault is the optimal play for their team. Thor grins with pride, drawing his custom sword alongside his reliable students as they prepare to storm the fortress. Thor's elite strike force advances toward Mount Eld Fortress to reclaim the lost Imperial stronghold. Thor takes the front line alongside Mia, applying continuous fatigue relief and iron wall buffs to the squad. Dozens of demon scouts and goblin vanguard troops surge down the mountain in a chaotic horde. Fireballs and magic projectiles detonate along the slope as combat erupts. Thor calls out real-time orders, telling Luna to target the enemy backline archers to disrupt their formation. Luna looks confused, asking why they shouldn't just wipe out every single monster on the field. Cherika explains that in large-scale unit battles, crippling the enemy's fighting capability is far more efficient than hunting solo kills. Luna gets an idea, asking Thor if she can just wipe out the entire vanguard with one massive high-tier spell instead. Thor approves the plan, stacking 4 high-tier amplification buffs on her staff simultaneously. Mana Boost, Wide Magic, Savage Magic. Overflowing with God-tier mana, Luna raises her staff and unleashes her ultimate spell, Hell Burn. A blinding pillar of light-hot nuclear fire erupts across the entire mountainside. Thor meant to give her a small power boost, but accidentally enabled tactical nuke mode instead. A catastrophic explosion obliterates the terrain, reducing the entire demon scout horde to smoldering ash. Up on the fortress ramparts, demon commanders stare in absolute terror at the mushroom cloud rising from the valley. Thor sweats profusely at the smoldering crater, realizing he vastly miscalculated Luna's natural mana capacity. Verger chuckles, promising to officially report the blast as an experimental magic weapon test to avoid panic. The thick smoke clears, revealing that the entire enemy defense network was completely wiped out in one strike. Thor catches his breath, noting that while it was overkill, the path forward is officially clear. He orders the squad to sprint straight up the mountain path toward the fortress gates. Suddenly, dark magic distorts the air above as high-ranked demon commanders descend from the clouds. A winged female demon officer lands on the ridge, mocking the small human strike team. Thor calmly divides the targets, assigning the recruits to the flanks while taking the center demon leader solo. Luna panics over him fighting alone, but Thor reminds her that mid-battle tactical orders are absolute. He multicasts a quintuple buff across the team, Shield plus Holy Enshroud X5. The squad spreads out into formation as glowing divine armor encapsulates their bodies. Mia and Verger charge their assigned target, completely confident in Thor's defensive coverage. The female recruits lock arms to protect Luna while she charges her high-tier artillery spells. She gathers dark miasma in her palms, boasting that she'll burn Thor into black ash. Thor applies quadruple self-speed buffs instantly. Fleetfoot, Acceleration, Lighten. In the blink of an eye, Thor materializes directly in front of the demon commander's face. Panicking, the demon fires a barrage of dark magic projectiles called Death Arrow. Thor activates Hawkeye, enhancing his vision to inspect the trajectory of every incoming dark bolt. He weaves through the dense projectile barrage with effortless, phantom-like agility. Frustrated that her magic failed, the demon draws a heavy, dark broadsword and lunges forward. She swings her heavy blade, but it slams uselessly into a spatial force field. She gasps in confusion as Thor's holy shield deflects her dark magic armor. Gaining the high ground, the demon smirks and dives down toward Thor's blind spot from behind. She slashes down with all her weight, confident that she caught the support mage off guard. Thor snaps his fingers behind his back. Holy magic! A blinding flash of divine holy light erupts point-blank right into the demon's eyes. Blinded and disoriented, the demon commander screams in agony as her dark aura dissolves. Thor materializes above her with his custom Demon King steel sword blazing with sacred flames. He drives his flaming blade straight through the demon commander's chest plate. Thor lands gracefully on the stone path as holy fire consumes the demon from the inside out. The demon commander shrieks in disbelief before disintegrating into a pile of dark ash. Thor quietly sheathes his sword, turning around to check on his student's progress. Luna unleashes Sacred Arrow, sniping demon archers with divine precision. Sherika and Anaya combine their sword strikes to overpower the remaining demon soldiers. Thor watches proudly as Mia and Verger coordinate their vanguard defense. Mia uses acceleration to close the gap, slamming her heavy shield directly into a demon's chest. Verger follows up with a holy infused broadsword slash, Holy Enshroud. He bisects the final demon commander in a single radiant sweep. The demon curses the human race as its body crumbles into glowing particles. The battle ends in total victory, with all 6 demon commanders completely eradicated. Thor walks over to inspect his team, relieved to see everyone completely unhurt. Verger bows with deep respect, praising Thor's flawless command structure and tactical matchup distribution. Thor smiles warmly, reminding the squad to stay sharp as they approach the main fortress gates. The unit shouts in agreement, marching up the sunlit mountain trail to reclaim Mount Eld once and for all. Thor's strike team reaches the upper mountain plateau overlooking Mount Eld Fortress. Verger notes in surprise that they encountered 0 resistance along the southern trail, guessing the northern pincer attack drew all enemy forces. Thor praises the northern unit, calling them truly worthy of the title, the Empire's strongest force. Thor looks over the ridge and freezes in shock, finding the entire northern valley drenched in a massive sea of demon blood. He inspects the carnage, noticing high-rank orcs and rock lizards cleanly sliced in half by a single master swordsman. Luna catches her breath beside him, gasping out that the entire army was wiped out by just one person. Across the valley, a high-tiered demon general gets blasted through the air, crashing onto the rocks. The demon commander coughs up blood, groaning in terror at the human monster standing before him. A flash of crimson light cuts through the air, cleanly bisecting the demon general. The student knights stare in sheer, terrifying awe at the lone, red-haired warrior standing among thousands of corpses. A breathtaking, red-haired female swordmaster sheathes her glowing blade as the wind flutters her cloak. Thor's jaw drops in utter shock as he recognizes her face. Verger identifies the legendary warrior as S-rank adventurer Lena, the Flashing Blade. He breaks down her record, revealing she has cleared over 30 S-rank dungeons and slain tens of thousands of monsters solo. Lena turns around, her fierce gaze locking onto the approaching unit. The moment she spots Thor, her stoic warrior mask completely crumbles into sheer, flustered shock. Thor walks over with a gentle smile, explaining that Captain Arno was called away so his team stepped in as support. Verger bows low, asking Lady Lena if she's willing to entrust overall battlefield command to Lord Thor. Lena turns beet red, coughing into her hand to hide her blush as she stammers that she doesn't mind as long as he doesn't drag her down. In her mind, a chibi version of Lena throws a jealous temper tantrum, scolding Thor for acting like her teacher again. She draws her sword, asking how Thor plans to breach the mountain fortress. The heavy iron gates burst open as a massive army of demon troops surges out into the canyon. Thor analyzes the incoming horde, noticing they are all high-tier demon species. He realizes the demons are attempting a grand, dark summoning ritual inside the fortress, sacrificing their own vanguard troops to power the portal. Thor orders the recruits to bypass the front line to destroy the summoning altars, but Luna yells at him for taking the risk alone. Thor explains that if the summoning completes, the dark spell could obliterate the Imperial capital from miles away. Lena steps up beside Thor with a confident smirk, offering to stay back and hold the line with him. Luna relents, warning Thor not to do anything reckless before leading the recruits toward the gates. Thor gives a reassuring nod, telling them to force their way into the fortress the moment he opens a path. A giant demon general steps to the front, boasting arrogantly to the human mages. He sneers that humans put on a good show, but Thor cuts him off coldly. Thor steps forward, telling the demon to spare the speech and get straight to fighting. Thor raises his hands, deploying wide-area speed and stealth buffs across the recruit squad. Acceleration. Hide! The recruit knights turn completely invisible, blitzing right past the demon vanguard at light speed. The demon general fumes in rage as the human strike team slips straight through his defense line. Realizing their sacrifices are getting cut short, the demon leaders decide to force the ritual early. Thor multicasts Divine Light projectiles, Break Light S Blazer X5. The demon general curses the humans, realizing they are completely outmaneuvered. In a desperate move, the demon commanders offer up their own lives as sacrifices to fuel the ritual. Their bodies dissolve into pitch-black miasma that billows across the entire battlefield. The recruit squad coughs as toxic purple gas fills the air, forcing them to cover their faces. Above Mount Eld, massive dark magic circles ignite across the sky. Thor analyzes the ritual scale, realizing the sacrifices weren't enough for a demon king, but easily sufficient for a calamity-tier beast. The clouds split open as a colossal, terrifying, S-rank dark dragon descends from the portal. Thor orders Lena to fall back beside him, knowing a dark dragon is the absolute apex of dragon species. Lena lands gracefully by his side, ready to engage the calamity beast. Thor apologizes for dragging her into a dragon fight, admitting he can't protect 5 students while soloing an S-rank monster. Lena glares through the purple smoke, noting that the dark dragon is temporarily blinded by its own miasma. Thor lays out the plan: wait for the smoke to clear, then execute hit-and-run tactics continuously. Thor addresses her casually, but Lena snaps, asking why he's acting so stiff and formal around her. The dark dragon opens its massive jaws, charging a nuclear dark breath attack. Lena turns beet red, screaming at him for ever thinking she could forget her absolute favorite teacher. Thor panics and deploys a double defensive dome, shield, holy, and shroud. The dark dragon's fiery breath slams into the barrier, washing harmlessly around the radiant holy dome. Lena looks at him with blushing, affectionate eyes, whispering his name. Thor offers a gentle smile, telling her that, of course, he remembers his very first student. Lena clutches her chest as her face turns bright crimson under the glowing barrier. She flails in panic, stammers out an embarrassed denial, and tells him to focus on supporting her. Thor blinks in shock, thinking to himself that for a second, Lena sounded completely identical to Rena. Lena fixes her hair, shyly admitting she still struggles with veil-type magic and needs his support. He just realized all his female students operate on the exact same tsundere wavelength. Thor maintains his protective dome, noting that the dragon's breath is weakening and asking Lena for her support. Thor shakes the distraction out of his head, reminding himself that a dark dragon requires total concentration. The moment the fire subsides, Thor stacks speed buffs on Lena, acceleration, fleetfoot. Lena readies her blade, looking over at Thor with absolute faith as she prepares to strike. She calls out his name with firm resolve in her eyes. Thor multicasts divine enhancements directly onto her weapon, Holy Enshroud, Holy Veil, Leap, Lighten. The dark dragon roars in fury, swinging its massive spiked tail across the canyon to smash Lena. The heavy tail shatters the cliffside, sending a rain of massive boulders tumbling toward her. Lena sidesteps the tail, but realizes she can't escape the falling rubble unscathed. Targeting her from afar, Thor channels physical armor reinforcement, Iron Wall. Glowing golden armor runes wrap around Lena as falling boulders crash off her shoulders. Lena is amazed that Thor's support magic completely nullifies impact damage. Spotting the dragon's follow-up claw sweep, Thor targets her body again. Thor casts Weight Gravelide, multiplying gravitational pull to yank Lena down to safety. The dragon's razor claws miss her head by a hair's breadth as she lands gracefully on the dirt. Lena catches her breath, realizing this ancient dragon is experienced in hunting human warriors. Thor's face turns pale as he recognizes the dragon's combat patterns. He realizes this beast is the legendary Wings of Gizbal, a calamity dragon that serves directly under the Demon King. Thor screams at Lena to stay in close-quarters combat to prevent the dragon from using its ultimate breath. The dark dragon snickers, reacting directly to Thor's human speech. Lena asks what special breath attack Thor is referring to. Thor reveals the terrifying truth. This beast wields Demon King Gizbal's black flames, the exact cursed fire that killed Hero Alan. Tension. Thor warns her that a direct hit from black flames will carbonize her body permanently beyond any healing magic. Lena nods in understanding, resolving to avoid a direct hit at all costs. Lena pouts softly, noting that Thor is so focused he accidentally called her Lena instead of Rena. The dark dragon opens its jaws, charging a massive sphere of pitch-black fire. Thor raises his glowing palm. Shield, Holy Enshroud. A radiant holy dome encapsulates both mages just as the black firestorm detonates. Apocalyptic black flames wash over the barrier, darkening the sky with pure killing intent. Lena braces behind the shield, shuddering at the oppressive aura of the Demon King's flames. The firestorm subsides, leaving Thor's holy dome completely intact. Thor analyzes the dragon's breath cooldown, realizing the beast exhausts its mana pool after unleashing black flames. He assigns the final blow to Lena, entrusting her to strike the dragon's reverse scale. Thor outlines his plan to drop the main barrier and transition to individual speed shields. Lena nods in complete agreement, trusting his tactical timing without a single doubt. Thor counts down from 10, preparing to release the dome. As the countdown hits 0, Lena readies her stance for the assault. Thor drops the barrier and stacks max speed buffs on Lena. Acceleration, Fleetfoot. Lena turns into a red lightning streak, charging straight into the dragon's guard. Knowing the dragon is protecting its throat, she peppers its body with rapid, wholly infused slashes to draw its focus. Frustrated by the harassment, the dark dragon spreads its wings to take flight. Seeing the dragon airborne, Lena shouts for Thor's signal. The dragon roars as it lifts off the ground into the air. Thor multicasts silently. Immovable, leap. Spatial rings lock the dragon's wing joints mid-flight, throwing off its balance and exposing its neck. Lena launches herself off Thor's spatial platform, diving straight toward the exposed reverse scale. Crack. Her wholly infused blade slashes through the throat, severing the dark dragon's head in a single radiant sweep. Suddenly, Thor's eyes widen in sheer horror as dark mana erupts inside the severed dragon head hovering in midair. The severed head spins toward the helpless recruit squad, charging a point-blank post-mortem black flame breath. Thor sprints from afar in a desperate panic, knowing a basic shield can't withstand Demon King flames. The dragon literally used its own severed head as an automatic turret to target his students. Traumatic memories engulf Thor's mind as pitch-black despair consumes his vision, terrified that he's about to watch his comrades die all over again. Thor sprints with everything he's got as the severed dragon head aims its post-mortem black flame breath at the students. Suddenly, 5 radiant holy domes deploy simultaneously over every single recruit, wholly enshroud X5. Lena catches her breath, gasping in shock as the black firestorm washes harmlessly off the student barriers. Luna boasts proudly from inside her dome, reminding Thor that his current students have mastered multi-casting defensive magic. Thor stares in utter disbelief, his knees buckling beneath him as the crushing weight of panic finally leaves his body. He collapses flat onto his knees in the dirt, tears of sheer relief streaming down his face as he weeps hysterically. The recruit mages rush over in a panic, offering to cast rapid healing magic on their teacher. Thor wipes his tear-stained face on the ground, sobbing in relief that everyone made it out alive. Tears roll down his cheeks as he cries, happy tears of overwhelming relief. Captain Verger watches in awe, realizing how deeply Thor cares for the lives of his comrades and students. The female recruit knights blush softly, deeply moved by their teacher's heartfelt emotion. Luna turns away tsundere style, scolding Thor for being a drama queen while secretly feeling touched. The student knights kneel beside Thor, begging him to raise his head and praising his guidance. Thor wipes his eyes, whispering to himself in disbelief that he actually protected everyone this time. Mia points to the destroyed fortress, declaring Thor a true hero who saved both his students and the capital. Mia smiles warmly, promising that this timeline will never repeat the tragic past. Thor looks into Mia's eyes, his heart filling with profound peace. Overwhelmed by emotion, Mia suddenly lunges forward and scoops Thor into a tight, passionate embrace. Mia turns bright red, blushing furiously as she gushes over how nice Professor Thor smells. Luna loses her mind, pouncing on Thor to tackle him away from Mia. Luna screams that with Rihanna absent, she's the official substitute, while Lena deadpans in the background at their ridiculous antics. Chibi-Lena throws a silent rage tantrum in her head, scolding Mia for abusing her rookie status. Thor looks up at the clear sky as tears mix with sweat on his hands. He wonders if Hero Allen is watching down on him from above, finally feeling proud of his support magic. The squad hikes down the sunlit mountain path together, surrounded by glowing clouds. A few hours later, Thor returns to the Grand Imperial Palace as sunset bathes the spires in gold. Walking down the marble corridor, Thor plans to visit Reyna to discuss the Mount Eld raid. He spots the Emperor's royal guard standing posted outside the high chambers. Emperor Heinrich himself steps out from the hall, greeting Thor warmly upon his return. Thor drops to his knees in a respectful bow, but the Emperor chuckles and asks why his eyes are so swollen. Thor blushes in embarrassment, apologizing for his puffy, tear-stained face. Thor asks about Princess Elena's whereabouts, learning she hasn't returned to the palace yet. The Emperor strokes his beard, teasingly asking if Thor is currently unmarried before offering to arrange noble suitors. Thor panics internally, wondering if the Emperor is dropping a subtle royal warning. The Emperor mentions he's already spoken with several eligible young ladies about Thor's future. Thor respectfully declines the offer, claiming he wants to focus entirely on his court mage duties. The Emperor praises Thor's speed and modesty in securing Mount Eld without a single casualty. Thor's sweat drops, thoroughly overwhelmed by the Emperor's grand presence and praise. The Emperor notes that demon activity is escalating across the Empire, asking Thor to lend his strength. He points out that monster outbreaks are higher than ever, requiring strategic countermeasures. He asks Thor to lend his support to protect the citizens, just as Hero Allen once did. Thor bows with firm resolve, swearing to devote his life to protecting the innocent. Princess Elena walks down the hallway in her grand gown, scolding her father for making Thor kneel in the corridor. The Emperor laughs off her scolding, while Elena glares at him for meddling in Thor's affairs. The Emperor chuckles, saying he'd rather not be scolded by his daughter and telling Thor to stand up. Elena glares at her father for trying to set Thor up with noble ladies, while Heinrich chuckles playfully. The Emperor takes his leave, telling Thor they will meet again at the official debriefing. Elena steps close to Thor, softly asking if her father said anything unpleasant to him. Thor asks about Reyna's whereabouts, and Elena mentions she summoned Reyna for a full day of royal errands. Thor exhales in relief, realizing Reyna wasn't avoiding him after all. Elena giggles, telling Thor that if Reyna knew he was looking for her, she'd come running instantly. Elena rushes off to her private chambers, leaving Thor slightly confused by her sudden hurry. Inside her locked room, Princess Elena steps onto a glowing transformation circle. Her maids prepare her outfit in a hurry as magic circles ignite around her. She casts a secret royal spell passed down through generations. Dress shift, outfit transcription. Radiant magic wraps around her body, shifting her clothes, hair color, and features in a flash. Hold on, Princess Elena ES Reyna A&S, rank adventurer Lena? She was playing all three characters the entire time. The magic fades, revealing Princess Elena completely transformed into Reyna as she fixes her glasses. Chibi Elena throws a massive mental breakdown, screaming internally that running into Thor as Lena was a complete accident. Meanwhile, deep in the dark underworld, demon generals rally their forces over Mount Eld's defeat. A massive horned warlord raises his fist, roaring into the night as the demon army prepares a full-scale invasion on the imperial capital. Sunset washes over the capital streets as Thor's party gathers at their favorite tavern to celebrate. Arno stares in disbelief, unable to process the news that Professor Thor broke down crying during the Mount Eld raid. The team sits around the table, discussing how Thor gave Mia a huge hug right after the battle. Verger and Arno note that whenever Thor hears about the Demon King, his eyes change into a terrifying glare. Verder reflects on the war 10 years ago, recalling how no celebratory parade was ever held for the returning heroes party. He notes that after losing Hero Allen, the party returned in total grief, with no room left in their hearts for celebration. The recruit knights change the subject, teasingly asking if Thor is close with S-rank adventurer Lena the Flashing Blade. Arno roars in shock, unable to believe that anyone actually manages to get along with the famously antisocial Lena. The recruit mages cheer, praising Thor for being so popular and amazing. Arno grabs Thor by his collar, aggressively shaking him and demanding to know how he tamed the arrogant Flashing Blade. Arno is experiencing a full jealousy breakdown over Thor having another star student before him. The squad watches Arno's tantrum while Thor tries to calm him down. Thor reveals that before becoming an academy instructor, he taught support magic to Lena during his early adventurer days. Arno double-takes in sheer heartbroken betrayal, screaming that Thor promised he was his very first disciple. Thor frantically clarifies that Lena was his first adventurer student, while Arno was his first official university student. The tavern table erupts into laughter as Arno pouts over the technicality before the conversation turns serious. Arno admits he would have never allowed only 6 people on the Mount Eld raid if he knew a dark dragon was present. Thor praises his team, pointing out that everyone utilized Holy Enshroud effectively in live combat. He adds that Captain-class armored demons were taken down effortlessly thanks to Verger and Arno leading the front. Luna turns beet red, blushing furiously as the female knights tease her about getting guarded by her bodyguards. Verger notes that despite their low entry ranks, the recruits' combat growth has been astonishingly fast. He attributes their success to Thor exploiting the demon's fixed elemental weaknesses through strategic support buffs. Thor turns to Arno, asking how his parallel operation to clear the poison dungeon went. A map illustrates the toxic river network flowing down from the mountain source near the capital. Arno reports that his squad cleared the dungeon with minimal casualties, but warns that dark forces are escalating their timeline. He notes that if Thor hadn't warned Princess Elena early, the poison dungeon might have gone completely unnoticed. Flashbacks show the artificial dungeons, the sewers, the Colosseum, and the Golem dungeon planned over several years. Rena and Luna listen intently as Arno breaks down the enemy's master strategy. Thor analyzes the situation, concluding that with all hidden dungeon seeds destroyed, the demons will launch a direct assault on the capital next. A dead, heavy silence falls over the table as the gravity of his prediction sinks in. Reyna gasps, asking if Professor Thor has formally alerted the Emperor. Thor takes a drink, explaining that while he gave a full briefing, royal politics are stalling defense preparations. He looks down sullenly, admitting the capital's military assets have never fully recovered from the war 10 years ago. He recalls how the Knight Order and Mage Corps are mostly young and inexperienced without proper unit coordination. He recalls the arrogant noble counselors shouting him down in the audience chamber when he made his report. Flashback shows the nobles dismissing his warnings as mere fear-mongering and calling him an agitator. Arno hangs his head in shame, apologizing for being an unreliable commander who couldn't sway the noble council. Thor pats Arno's shoulder, reassuring him that corrupt politicians always react with denial until crisis strikes. He notes that having the Emperor's support helps, but stubborn noble leaders are delaying capital defenses. The student knights sweat awkwardly, wondering if rank-and-file recruits should even be hearing top-secret state intelligence. Thor addresses his students, emphasizing that their unit is currently the only military force with seamless knight and mage coordination. He resolves internally not to drag his students into unauthorized solo actions as time runs out. Thor finishes his drink, declaring that he will personally conduct further field investigations first. Later that night, the group strolls through the peaceful, lamplit streets of the capital. Luna winks playfully at Thor, noticing he seems a bit down and asking what's on his mind. She teasingly asks if he was mesmerized by how gorgeous Lena has become as an adult. Thor chuckles awkwardly, admitting he was surprised by her growth, while the female recruits tease him for being a straight-laced old man. The girls laugh, calling him a dried-up old man for having no romantic reaction. Luna giggles as she points out Rena walking beside him, radiating a terrifyingly intense, "I'm right here," jealousy aura. Brianna asks him sweetly what he's talking about, making Thor sweat nervously. Thor glances at Reyna, thinking to himself that he's already 100% certain Reyna and Lena are the exact same person. He looks at her side profile, knowing she must have a specific reason for keeping her secret identity hidden. He smiles softly, deciding that if she wants to keep it a secret, he'll respectfully leave it alone. He wonders how on earth she plans to eventually come clean to him about it. Thor turns to his students with a warm smile, casually inviting anyone who wants to join him on a picnic-style scouting trip tomorrow. Meanwhile, in a quiet posting town along the main highway, a hooded traveler walks through the marketplace. The traveler speaks to a local peddler, asking for news about recent capital movements. The traveler hands a glowing magic stone to an informant, offering generous pay for intel. The informant whispers that rumors are spreading about the Demon King's remnants launching an invasion soon. The hooded traveler pulls back their cloak, revealing blue hair, mystical face markings, and a tiny dragon familiar perched on their shoulder as they prepare for the coming storm. Thor's group arrives at a lively posting town along the main highway, with the recruit knights reminiscing about their academy field training days. Thor sighs internally, amused that Captain Arno and the entire guard unit insisted on tagging along for a simple scouting trip. Arno checks on the horses in the courtyard, noting that stabling fees have spiked due to the town being packed with travelers. A local stablehand approaches, surprised to see well-equipped capital knights instead of standard adventurers. Thor asks the stablehand why travel fees are surging, learning that monster sightings along the highway have drastically increased. The stablehand points out that merchants and carriages are turning back because the automated monster-warding magic posts have stopped working. He points to a street lamp-like magic tool on the wall, explaining that nobody knows why the protective barrier wards suddenly shut down. Arno asks how the stablehand knew they were capital escorts, and the man praises their noble posture. He adds that wild rumors are spreading that the Demon King's remnants are planning a full-scale invasion of the capital. Thor and Arno exchange grave looks, wondering who is deliberately spreading panic among the civilian population. Suddenly, a panicked knight comes sprinting down the street, shouting for Thor and Arno to come quickly. Thor and Arno rush through the alley to see what caused the commotion. In the town square, a civilian thrashes violently on the cobblestones, foaming at the mouth and roaring in agony. The surrounding crowd panics as the man goes completely berserk without warning. The recruit knights panic in confusion, unsure of how to handle a thrashing civilian. Arno steps forward, his eyes blazing with commander authority as he roars orders into the square. The recruit knights freeze in place at Arno's authoritative voice. Arno orders Anaya to call the town guards while Mia and Sherika disperse the crowd. Mia and Sherika usher onlookers away to give the team space to work. Verger holds the thrashing man down while Thor kneels beside him, realizing the victim was infected by dark miasma. Thor multicasts Divine Purification, Clear Veil Cleanse, Holy Enshroud, Natural Healing. Verger gasps as the dark aura dissipates, leaving the victim completely calm. The man lies quietly on the dirt, gasping for air as his rationality returns. Thor gently asks him if he feels anything strange in his body. As the man sits up, a small object slips from his pocket and rolls across the dirt. It's a glowing purple magic crystal pulsing with unstable energy. Thor and Verger's eyes widen as they recognize the dangerous stone. Verger reaches for the crystal, but Thor screams at him not to touch it with his bare hands. Thor examines the stone, learning the victim received it from a hooded stranger in exchange for capital information. Arno leans in with a terrifying glare, asking for an exact physical description of the hooded stranger. Thor seals the magic stone inside a holy barrier, identifying it as an unformed, dormant dungeon core seed. Anaya returns with the town guards to secure the square. Arno splits the unit, ordering 2 knights to secure the town while assigning Mia and Verger to escort Thor to track the suspect. Thor bows to Arno, agreeing to head out immediately. Thor, Mia, and Verger mount their horses, galloping out of town toward the Hydeshell Plains at top speed. As they ride, Thor reflects on how dangerous these artificial dungeon seeds are to human memory and health. Thor explains that the magic stone was an unformed dungeon core that failed to grow naturally. Mia and Verger gasp, realizing only Demon King executives are capable of distributing artificial cores. Thor deduces that the hooded distributor joined a merchant caravan heading across the vast Hydeshell Plains toward the capital. He explains that Hydeshell Plains is the primary strategic route connecting the northern mountains to the capital. A tactical map illustrates how the elevation changes and low visibility of Hydeshell Plains make it the ideal march path for an invading army. Verger realizes that if the enemy launches a direct march, understanding the plains terrain is essential for defense. They crest a high ridge overlooking the expansive grassy plains below. A wide shot shows the vast, empty canyon stretching out into the distance. Thor notes that while tracking a single scout on a massive plain is tough, the enemy will inevitably come to them once they realize they're being hunted. Thor reflects internally, feeling grateful to have reliable comrades by his side on this investigation trip. Suddenly, the horses whinny in distress as a hooded traveler steps onto the dirt trail ahead. The stranger holds up his hands peacefully, claiming to be an ordinary traveling merchant selling medicines. The blue-haired merchant offers to sell supplies, looking completely harmless on the surface. Thor rides up, asking if he was the one who handed a magic stone to a young man in town. Mia looks at the merchant, whispering to Thor that the boy seems completely innocent. The merchant smiles innocently, asking what Thor means by that. Thor's eyes narrow as he notices the horses trembling violently under his mount. Without a single word of warning, Thor instantly fires a lethal holy laser straight at the merchant's face. Bro did not hesitate for even 1 second before launching a point-blank holy beam at a harmless merchant. Mia screams in absolute horror, terrified that her teacher just murdered an innocent civilian. Verger gasps in shock as the blast connects point-blank. Smoke clears to reveal the merchant floating casually in midair as his human disguise burns away into dark flames. A horned demon executive manifests in all his terrifying glory, snickering as he recognizes Thor the babysitting mage. Dun dun dun. Glowing purple teleportation circles ignite beneath the party's feet as spatial magic wraps around them. Thor panics in horror as the demon's trap forcibly scatters the squad across the continent. The demon executive floats into the air, waving a cheerful goodbye as the mages vanish into thin air. His winged demon partner hovers beside him, asking if that support mage was really Thor from the original hero's party. The demon executive snickers, boasting that separating the group guarantees the humans will take days to escape the plains. Suddenly, a massive wave of dark magic cuts across the horizon. A feral, bloodthirsty female demon licks her claws, giggling maniacally as she prepares to hunt the scattered recruits. Evil laugh. A flash of purple light dumps Thor onto a high mountain ridge far from his companions. Thor draws his custom silver blade, landing gracefully on his feet amidst the rocks. He scans the deserted canyon, realizing the enemy's goal was strictly to separate the party. He worries for Mia, knowing the demon specifically targeted her due to her lower combat evaluation. Thor uses jump to leap across mountain cliffs at Mach speeds. He analyzes the demon leader's illusion magic, identifying him as the legendary dark tactician Barbados from 10 years ago. Using float and jump, Thor glides over mountain chasms while tracking the position tracking tools Reyna gave him. He looks across the vast, endless plains, realizing an on-foot search will take way too long. Suddenly, he spots a massive desert condor bird resting in its nest along the canyon cliff. Thor gets a brilliant idea, realizing he can enchant the bird with lightweight to serve as aerial transport. In a nearby canyon, Captain Verger sheathes his sword after wiping out a pack of wild sand baboons. He scans the area, worried for Mia's safety after getting separated by high-tier spatial magic. In the dark shadows above, the feral horned demon chuckles, watching the isolated knights from the cliffs. Miles away, Mia stands cornered by a giant C-rank sand scorpion monster. She flashes back to Thor's support magic training in the courtyard. Thor advised her to embrace her unique physical strength rather than relying solely on speed buffs. In the present, Mia channels mana into her massive great shield, weight increase. Mia drives her heavy shield right into the giant scorpion's face with a deafening impact. She stacks weight increase onto her mace, bringing it down like a falling anvil onto the monster's head. Crunch! The sand scorpion gets completely flattened under her gravitational strike. The giant C-rank monster collapses dead into the sand. Mia catches her breath, staring at her hands in utter shock that an E-rank recruit soloed a C-rank beast. Suddenly, the sand explodes as 3 MORE giant sand scorpions emerge to surround her. Her horse whinnies in terror against the cliff wall. Mia gets into stance, shouting at the horse to flee to safety while she holds the line. She braces her great shield, resolving to hold out until Professor Thor arrives to rescue her. She grits her teeth against the overwhelming odds, putting total faith in her teacher. Suddenly, a spear wrapped in blazing fire crashes down from the sky, obliterating the scorpion horde. Mia looks up with tears in her eyes, crying out, "Thor's name!" Mia slumps on her shield, deadpanning in disappointment that it was just Commander Arno instead of Thor. Arno veins in anger, asking what she means by "just Commander," while explaining he flew over using Reyna's tracking tool. Mia stares in disbelief as Arno brags about sprinting across the Capitol walls in 1 minute flat using acceleration. Arno points out that pushing acceleration and swift step to the limit lets you run around the outer walls instantly. Suddenly, a shadow covers the sun as a giant desert condor bird glides down, with Thor casually riding on its back. My man literally tamed an S-tier giant eagle just so he wouldn't have to walk across the plains. Thor hops off the giant bird, analyzing the demon tactician Barbados from ancient hero records. Verger and Arno rejoin the group, confirming that Barbados was the shadow commander of Gisbal's army whose true identity couldn't be grasped. Thor's expression turns dead serious, vowing to track down the demon executive before a repeat of 10 years ago occurs. Thor apologizes to his squad for dragging them into a high-stakes investigation that turned into a big deal. Arno, Verger, and Mia smile with burning loyalty, declaring it an absolute honor to be of use to Sir Thor. Thor gets hit right in the feels once again, wiping away happy tears as he thanks his reliable comrades. Flanked by his tamed giant condor carrying a dead scorpion, Thor leads his elite unit across the Hydaishell Plains to track down the dark mastermind. Thor's unit pauses along the mountain pass, with Verger asking if Thor has a strategy to track the teleporting demon. Thor holds up a glowing pendant, revealing he modified one of Riena's magic detection tools to track the demon's specific mana signature. Verger and Arno gasp in surprise, amazed that Thor can locate the target's distance and direction. Thor points out that approaching an enemy who uses illusions and teleportation without a plan is reckless. Arno suggests sending a scouting pair forward to test the demon's reactions while the rest of the unit stays behind. Thor approves the plan, agreeing that testing the enemy's reaction is the smartest move before committing their forces. Arno looks at Thor's pendant, wondering if Reyna gave him such a high-tier magic tool for the mission. Thor explains magic tool mechanics, noting that while standard tools detect weather or water, this prototype reads fine biological mana. Arno marvels at Thor's deep knowledge of magic engineering, impressed by his mentor's versatility. Miles away on a high cliff, the horned demon executive sits with his tiny dragon familiar grumbling about traveling routes. The demon's ears twitch as his dragon familiar growls, sensing something approaching through the air. Down in the valley, Thor rides alongside Verger, using support magic to interfere with the demon's perception. The demon executive looks over the cliffside, calculating that ambushing or trapping Thor is his only option. He sighs in annoyance, complaining that he hates doing tiring physical work and just wants to run away. He flaps his wings and takes to the sky, boasting that support mages are harmless compared to combat maniacs. Suddenly, a flash of light cuts through the air as Thor multicasts, lighten, and jump. The demon's eye widens in sheer shock as a human shadow materializes directly beside him. A pink energy arc slashes across the sky as the demon gets blindsided in midair. The demon panics in terror, wondering what trick Thor used to close a distance that should have taken minutes. Sensing lethal danger, the demon's eyes light up as he prepares a desperate counter-magic spell. Thor multicasts defensive coverage midair, shield plus holy cloak, to absorb the demon's blast. Thor gets launched backward by the shockwave, landing gracefully on the ground while taking 0 actual damage. The demon executive crashes hard onto the cliff, clutching his head in agony as smoke rises off his horn. Bleeding and bruised, the demon grits his teeth, realizing his situation is spiraling out of control fast. Seeing Verger charging up the slope with acceleration, the demon decides to cut his losses and flee into the sky. Thor instantly raises his palm, deploying spatial control magic directly onto the demon, immovable. Glowing binding rings lock the demon's wing joints, completely paralyzing his flight midair. The demon glares in utter disbelief, unable to accept that he's getting completely outplayed by a support mage. Thor lands beside Verger, staring down the demon with absolute tactical composure. The demon flexes his remaining dark mana, attempting to unleash a point-blank retaliatory strike as Thor deploys spatial shields. Verger steps in and deflects the strike, while Thor's protective barrier holds completely firm. Verger checks on Thor, relieved to see his teacher completely unharmed after the exchange. Thor watches the demon retreat toward the eastern ridge, confirming that a surprise attack won't work twice. Thor analyzes the demon's movement speed, noting it exceeded standard acceleration spells without straining his physical body. He inspects the demon's appearance, noting his loose clothes and large bag are unlike any standard demon warrior. Thor identifies the target as Barbatos, the legendary intelligence gatherer and shadow tactician of the former Demon King, Tenjin. Arno asks for their next move, and Thor orders the squad to regroup before advancing further. A signal flare flares in the distance as the rest of the unit gathers on the high ridge. Mia and Verger rejoin them, wondering if the tiny dragon inside Barbatos' bag was amplifying his spells. Thor ponders the mystery, noting that besides Demon King Gizbal, no demon has ever been recorded using dragon familiars. They check on the horses, finding that Thor's magic camouflage worked perfectly to hide their mounts. Thor inspects a horse, confirming that the demon's detection spells function on the exact same principles as human magic tools. Arno smiles with absolute trust, declaring that the entire unit will follow Thor's command without complaint. Thor lays out the sector assignments for Mia and Verger to coordinate their next push. Miles away on a high cliff, Barbatos fumes in rage alongside his tiny dragon, cursing Thor's name. Purple veins bulge across Barbatos' body as dark mana erupts around his frame. His face contorts into a terrifying, bloodthirsty mask, boasting that he loves outsmarting arrogant humans. Dude is covered in blood and bruises talking about outsmarting people. Thor's tracking pendant suddenly flashes bright purple, detecting a massive surge in enemy mana. Thor activates Magic Sight, scanning the sky as massive dark manospheres manifest around Barbatos. Barbatos hovers above the ridge, mockingly laughing at the human squad for bringing a whole crowd along. He sneers down at them, boasting that even with a group, a support mage can't win against a Demon King executive. Thor and Arno exchange a silent nod, completely synchronized without needing words. Thor stacks max mobility buffs onto the Knight Commander. Lighten, acceleration, jump. Arno launches into the sky like a silver rocket, diving straight toward the floating demon with his spear raised. Arno spins his spear mid-air, creating a roaring tornado of holy energy around his body. Barbatos flaps his wings, surrounding Arno in a dense cloud of dark miasma to trap the airborne commander. Thor's eyes narrow as he notices something suspicious within the swirling purple haze. Up in mid-air, Arno struggles against the dark pressure while Barbatos laughs hysterically. Arno grits his teeth, realizing the massive haze isn't just smoke, but a giant teleportation boundary spell. Down on the ground, Mia and Verger look up in alarm as the purple energy expands across the canyon. Purple portals ignite around the squad as enemy strikes erupt from every direction. Thor turns his head in panic, shouting for Mia to watch her back. Verger steps in instantly, blocking a lethal ambush strike with his broadsword to protect Mia. Thor multicasts Water Entanglement to bind the incoming threats and give Mia space to position. Arno and Verger slice through the shadows, keeping the defensive line rock solid. A tactical breakdown shows how Thor's micro-assist bought Mia the exact split second she needed to raise her great shield. Thor lands beside his unit, staring down the demon executive with complete tactical composure. Barbatos hovers above the rocks, grinding his teeth in frustration that his surprise ambush failed to claim a single life. Thor looks at Barbatos and calmly calls out his weakness, pointing out that Barbatos himself can't cast direct offensive magic. Barbatos offers a dark, smug grin, unbothered by Thor figuring out his combat limitations. Thor turns to Arno, ordering him to take command of the squad and handle the mob while he deals with the mastermind. Barbatos' eyes glow with murderous malice as he glares at Thor, declaring him the absolute worst kind of opponent. Dozens of spatial portals open around the canyon, summoning hordes of sand scorpions, baboons, and goblins. Thor assigns sectors with precision, ordering Verger to sweep 6 to 12 o'clock while Mia guards his flank. Barbatos sneers, admitting he despises humans but genuinely envies how flawlessly Thor manages unit role division. Thor looks back with a sharp, stone-cold glare, calling Barbatos the ultimate hypocrite for hiding behind monster meat shields. Combat erupts across the entire canyon as Verger and Mia hold off the monster horde. Thor analyzes the demon's mindset, knowing that even if they speak the same language, humans and demons will never see eye to eye. Barbatos chuckles sinisterly, admitting that peace was never an option to begin with. His face contorts into an unhinged, bloodthirsty grin as dark mana surges off his body. Barbados dives out of the sky at lightspeed, clashing his venomous dagger directly against Thor's silver sword. Barbados grins maniacally into Thor's face, boasting that no mere human can keep up with his absolute speed. Thor activates Hawkeye, inspecting the blade and recognizing a lethal corrosion poison coating the metal. Thor deflects the dagger with a clean wrist flick, revealing the gleaming edge of his custom sword. Barbados gasps in sheer shock, realizing Thor's blade is forged from uncorrodable Demon King steel. Dude brought high-tier corrosion poison to a fight against a sword made from his own Demon King's metal. Barbados remembers the warning reports filed 10 years ago about the hero party's support mage reports that the demon army foolishly ignored. A chilling realization strikes him. As long as Thor Forlade is alive, the probability of defeating humanity is absolute zero. A flashback recalls Thor's legendary performance holding the front line together during the war against Gizbal. Unwilling to be outplayed again, Barbados's aura explodes with pitch-black, desperate energy. Verger turns to assist, but Thor yells at him to stay back and focus on clearing the mob. Thor senses an abnormal mana overload swelling inside Barbados as dark rune patterns carve into the demon's skin. Thor steps into stance, realizing that even with taboo magic, Barbados's mana pool is bound to run dry. Barbados zips through the air like a purple phantom, getting ready to launch his follow-up strike. Thor predicts his movement trajectory with god-tier precision, raising his sword. There, Thor multicasts a triple spatial trap, envelope full sphere shield, inner layer ice cage, outer ring holy net. Barbados slams headfirst into the multi-layered spatial cage, getting completely trapped in midair. Barbados thrashes against the holy bars in sheer panic, screaming in rage as his path to victory vanishes. Suddenly, Captain Arno dives from above, thrusting his blazing holy spear straight into the cage. Arno's spear pierces straight through Barbados's tiny dragon, familiar, destroying the source of his magic amplification. Barbados shrieks in agony as his familiar disintegrates, realizing he was thoroughly outplayed from start to finish. A flashback reveals Thor explaining his strategy to Arno, Verger, and Mia before the battle. Thor stacked Concealment and Shadow Shroud on the squad, completely masking their mana signatures and physical forms. Thor gave them a warm, confident smile, telling his comrades that he was counting on their support. Back in the present, Barbados vomits blood as his demonic teeth distort in insane, unhinged fury. Thor activates Hawkeye and Magic Sight, locking his focus entirely onto the dying demon. Barbados's body erupts with unstable purple mana as he triggers a taboo suicidal spell. He laughs like a total lunatic, boasting that if the spell runs wild, the caster dies, but teleporting himself alongside Thor means mutual destruction. Arno and Verger gasp in horror as Barbados lunges forward, grabbing Thor by the cloak. Verger reaches out in panic, but the unstable spatial portal swallows both Thor and Barbados whole. Barbados screams insanely into the void as toxic purple flames consume them, dragging Thor down into the abyss. Bro really pulled a kamikaze move just because he couldn't handle getting outsmarted by a support mage. Barbados stares in disbelief, asking why Thor is still breathing when his poison should kill in seconds. Thor's hand glows with wound mending, calmly explaining he dispelled the enchantment poison the moment their blades crossed. Barbados chuckles weakly, admitting total defeat as dark purple mana leaks off his body. Spitting blood, Barbados mentions that he already passed all intelligence regarding the capital to the Demon King's main army. He offers a final bitter smirk, telling Thor to do his best before his physical vessel collapses. Barbados's body crumbles away into purple dust as Thor stands alongside Arno, Verger, and Mia. Thor raises his hand, casting Blazer Lightburst to completely purify the lingering miasma. A blinding flash of holy light disintegrates the last remains of the demon executive. Barbados smirks one last time as his soul completely vanishes into glowing ash. The massive light pillar clears the dark clouds, restoring clear skies over the canyon. Arno slings an exhausted Thor over his shoulder as the squad prepares to ride back to the capital. Thor's vision blurs as blood drips from his lip, losing consciousness from internal exhaustion. In a hazy dream, Thor sees a young hero Alan standing atop a windy cliff. He recalls the quiet promise they made to survive the war and protect the world together. He remembers how the demon army targeted Alan first, believing the support mage was harmless. A younger Alan turns back with a bright, warm smile, telling Thor to pass his support magic down to the next generation. Alan chuckles, saying that way humanity will always be ready if the Demon King ever returns. Thor's eyes flutter open as he mutters in disbelief, wondering how he could have forgotten Alan's final request. He wakes up to see Reyna, Arno, and his students gathered around his bed in the palace. Arno lets out a huge sigh of relief, scolding Thor for calling a demon hunt a casual picnic. Sitting up with messy bedhead, Thor immediately asks if Barbados's intelligence report was delivered to the Emperor. Arno confirms the initial briefing was sent, asking if Thor feels well enough to address the Royal Council directly. Thor gets out of bed, reassuring Reyna that his experimental regeneration spell healed his internal wounds completely. Arno stares in awe at Thor's fast recovery, while Reyna reminds him not to push himself. Over in the Imperial Audience Chamber, arrogant noble counselors yell about rumors of the Demon King's revival being fake news. Emperor Heinrich slams his hand down, asking how they can call it nonsense when dungeon outbreaks are spiking nationwide. The Emperor reminds the council that political complacency 10 years ago almost wiped out the entire empire. The ministers continue arguing in circles, demanding concrete physical proof before allocating military funds. Suddenly, the royal guard steps forward to announce a high-priority arrival. Your Imperial Majesty, Court Mage Thor Forlade requests leave to report. Emperor Heinrich looks up with relief, granting immediate entry to the audience hall. Thor peeks through the heavy double doors, stepping into the grand chamber. He sweat drops, realizing he just walked right into the middle of an explosive political argument. Thor steps forward calmly, dropping a massive bomb. A horde of over 10,000 monsters is currently marching straight toward the capital. Bro walked into a quiet meeting and casually announced a 10,000-strong monster invasion. The entire council of nobles loses their minds, screaming in utter terror at the news. Corrupt ministers start pointing fingers at each other, panicking over their neglected defense armaments. Silence. Emperor Heinrich's voice booms across the chamber, shutting down the noise instantly. An oppressive, heavy quiet settles over the audience hall as everyone freezes. Thor bows respectfully to the Emperor, offering to present the physical evidence retrieved from the field. He explains that after defeating the demon executive Barbados, he secured the enemy's personal intelligence notebook. Thor presents a leather-bound demon cipher journal containing detailed strategic records. Emperor Heinrich flips open the journal, his eyes widening in sheer horror. The decoded diagrams reveal complete maps of the capital's defense outposts, troop counts, and underground infiltration routes. The Emperor closes the book with grave resolve, declaring that humanity must launch a preemptive strike immediately. Thor bows his head, knowing that without this sense of absolute crisis, the stagnant council would have never moved. Emperor Heinrich stands tall, issuing an official royal decree to prepare the full imperial army for war. The once deadlocked council rallies instantly, uniting behind the crown's direct order. Outside in a quiet corridor, Thor walks back to his room, glad he played the recovering patient card to escape early. Suddenly, a familiar, arrogant voice stammers out behind him. It's the corrupt former Vice Commander Bedan, sweating profusely in his formal uniform. Bedan glares at Thor, grumbling about him causing a panic among the noble counselors. He brags that Emperor Heinrich requested his high-tier magic, reassigning him straight to the Vanguard unit. Bedan sneers, arrogantly claiming he'll use this war campaign to earn a total royal pardon. He walks away laughing hysterically, completely convinced that talk of the Demon King is just a cheap political trick. Bro is strutting around thinking he got a promotion, completely oblivious to the 10,000 monsters coming to eat him. Thor stares at his retreating back, sweat dropping as he wonders if Bedan is secretly an unhinged battle maniac. Bedan struts down the hallway, boasting that accessories like the Demon King don't even exist. He waves off all warnings, completely delusional about the impending threat. Thor sighs internally, genuinely worried about Bedan's complete lack of survival instincts. Meanwhile, far to the north in the gloomy Grimvale mountain region, a winged demon scout kneels before a looming armored figure, reporting Barbados's defeat. A fierce, red-haired demon warlord with massive horn armor looks down with burning golden eyes. Commence the march. Emperor Heinrich addresses the assembled court mage corps, warning that the Demon King's invasion from 10 years ago is about to repeat itself. He announces that, unlike last time, humanity detected the enemy's advance early, giving them a once-in-a-lifetime chance to strike first. The Emperor outlines the war strategy, ordering the vanguard to intercept the demon army on the Hydaishell Plains and execute Demon General Gilbus. Listening from the back, Thor realizes a high-ranking executive who survived the war 10 years ago is now orchestrating the Demon King's return. A tactical map illustrates the strategic layout, the Knight Order leading the front line while the Mage Corps guards the rear. Emperor Heinrich commands all units to unite alongside the Imperial Guard to protect the capital's citizens. Thor looks down in quiet frustration, realizing that staying in the rear on basic escort duty won't keep the frontline knights safe. He thinks about the former Vice Commander Bedan being placed on the front lines as an unmotivated meat shield. Thor knows that if criminal officers lead the vanguard, frontline casualties will explode the second combat begins. As the Strategy Council wraps up, the nobles begin filing out of the Grand Audience Chamber. Emperor Heinrich notices Thor lingering behind in the hall, asking if the court mage has something on his mind. Thor swallows his anxiety and looks up with firm, unshakable resolve. Thor drops to his knees before the throne, respectfully asking to be reassigned from rearguard duty. He drops a shocking request, begging for permission to deploy to the front line completely solo. Emperor Heinrich chuckles warmly, amazed by Thor's selfless courage. Thor sweats profusely, overthinking whether he just committed a major royal faux pas. The Emperor's eyes glow with deep admiration, praising Thor for his boundless dedication to protecting human lives. He formally grants the request, officially permitting Court Mage Thor to leave his unit and proceed alone. The moment permission is granted, Thor stacks max speed buffs and launches himself out of the capital at Mach speeds. He sprints across the countryside, calculating that while carriages take 3 days, he'll overtake the advance knights in hours. Thor flashes back to earlier that morning, when Verger, Mia, Luna, and the recruit knights called him into the corridor. The recruits bowed deeply, thanking Professor Thor for every support technique he taught them. Mia and the girls looked tearful and somber, explaining that while they don't plan to die, they wanted to leave nothing unsaid. Verger explained that writing final wills and visiting cherished mentors is a sacred tradition in the Night Order before major battles. Thor offered them a gentle smile, telling them it's a noble tradition, but ordering them all to return home safely. He thinks about Rhaina, assuming Princess Elena kept her assigned to separate royal duties in the capital. He decides it's better not to drag Rhaina into a high-risk battlefield, resolving to carry the burden himself. Thor speeds through the mountain valley, planning to disrupt the demon horde before his students even reach the plains. His eyes blaze with fiery determination, swearing that he won't let a single knight, mage, or soldier die on his watch. Meanwhile, back in the palace, Princess Elena slams open her father's study doors in an absolute fury. Emperor Heinrich looks up in surprise as Elena screams at him for lying to Lord Thor about her whereabouts. The Crown Princess is throwing a full royal temper tantrum because her dad tricked her favorite guy into leaving alone. Heinrich calmly claims he just phrased it carefully, but Elena accuses him of intentionally manipulating Thor to keep him away from her. The Emperor sips his tea unfazed, insisting he acted strictly in the nation's best defense interest. Elena blushes furiously, yelling that sending teacher Thor on a suicidal solo mission isn't best for the country. Heinrich tells her to calm down, stating he fully acknowledges Thor and won't oppose her marrying him in the future. Elena snaps back, asking why he's treating teacher like an expendable military tool if he respects him. The Emperor's expression turns grave, reminding her that as a princess, national survival comes before personal feelings. He points out that if Thor dies like Hero Allen, building a plaza statue won't bring him back, reminding her that no hero is absolute. Elena glares back with tears in her eyes, declaring that just as the Empire needs Thor's strength, she needs Lord Thor in her future too. Elena turns on her heel and storms out, declaring she'll handle things her own way while Heinrich tells her not to become a burden. Emperor Heinrich quietly watches the door close after her exit. He chuckles softly to himself, wondering how this war campaign will unfold. He slides a knight figure across his tactical map board, contemplating humanity's chances. Miles away, heavy horse carriages bounce down the mountain highway toward the Hychel Plains. Inside the carriage, Verger asks Rhaina if she's worried about teacher Thor fighting alone. Rhaina adjusts her glasses with a calm smile, stating simply that Professor Thor is unmatched. She plans to break through the battle line and track his location using her magic compass tools. Mia and the recruits get hyped up, resolving to show teacher Thor how much stronger they've grown under his guidance. Anaya and Sherika cheer in agreement, promising not to let Thor down. Luna pouts off to the side, grumbling that since she hasn't defeated Thor yet, he's strictly forbidden from dying. Luna insists, tsundere style, that her raw attack power is still far superior to his. Rhaina chuckles softly, enjoying the squad's lively banter. She clutches her glowing magic pendant, whispering to herself that no matter where Thor runs, a flashback recalls a young, lonely Rhaina crying in an alleyway until Thor reached out his hand to rescue her. Rhaina's eyes glow with fierce, devoted affection, declaring that she will chase him to the ends of the earth. My man tried to go on a solo mission to protect everyone, but his Yandere student is already tracking him down. High above the clouds, Thor leaps across the canyon ridges like a phantom, charging toward the front line to face the demon army alone. Sunset bathes the rocky canyon in red as the human advance force sets up their forward camp. Perched on a high cliff, Thor looks down at the campsite, identifying it as the vanguard unit made up of former convicts. He analyzes Badan's defensive layout, noting that relying on unmotivated criminal mages guarantees at least 10% casualties. Thor activates Hawkeye, his eyes glowing bright blue as he scans the encampment details. He spots Badan shouting at his troops, heavily equipped in expensive enchanted armor while throwing tantrums. Thor shifts his focus to Captain Arno, noticing the Royal Guard is struggling to maintain discipline over Badan's unit. Thor calculates that if the line collapses during a surprise raid, frontline casualties could easily spike to 30%. He looks across the dark valley, sensing the demon horde approaching from beyond the northern ridge. Night falls over the encampment as campfires flicker against the cold mountain wind. Badan's officers rally their men, announcing that the Emperor's main army will arrive at dawn. Standing among his knights, Captain Arno looks toward the mountains with a grim, heavy expression. Arno tells his lieutenant not to rely on Badan's men, suddenly sensing a familiar warm presence in the night air. Arno reflects on his mentor, knowing Professor Thor would never accept a war strategy built on sacrificing soldiers. He clenches his fist in frustration, feeling pathetic for failing to find a better tactical solution. High above on the dark cliffside, Thor stands like a silent guardian watching over his students. He calculates the demon army's position, locating them in a valley depression just 2 minutes away on horseback. Thor activates night vision, his eyes blazing with electric blue light in the dark. He scans the dark ravine, counting over 10,000 monsters including orcs, goblins, direwolves, wisps, and liches. Thor compares the numbers, recalling that the Demon King's invasion 10 years ago numbered over 100,000 beasts. A flashback recalls his legendary days standing shoulder to shoulder with Hero Allen and his party. Thor clenches his fist with unshakable resolve, knowing that even without Allen he can handle a threat of this scale. His eyes glow with icy determination, whispering to himself that he will make this strategy work no matter what. Without a second of hesitation, Thor leaps off the cliff edge, diving headfirst into the 10,000-strong monster army alone. Down in the dark ravine, thousands of orcs and direwolves prowl around their dark campfires. An undead lich wizard turns its head in confusion as a phantom shadow cuts through the night sky. Thor materializes inside the monster camp like a silver whirlwind, moving faster than the eye can track. Instead of killing them outright, Thor fires beginner Firebug sparks directly into the orcs' eyes. My man used a basic lighter spell to start a full-blown battle royale inside an enemy army of 10,000 monsters. Blinded and enraged, the giant orc swings its spiked club on reflex, smashing straight into a nearby goblin. Furious at the betrayal, the goblin horde turns on the orcs, igniting total chaotic friendly fire across the entire camp. Thor activates Shadow Cloak, turning completely invisible while slipping seamlessly through the roaring brawl. He continues sniping monster eyes with Firebug, deliberately fanning the flames of their internal riot. Low-intelligence beasts tear each other apart in blind rage, completely unaware that a single support mage is manipulating them. Thor looks up at the high wooden balcony, spotting the high-tier Lich Commander overseeing the army. He channels fierce magic into his palm, asking the undead wizard for one massive, flashy AoE spell. Boom! Thor forcibly overloads the Lich's mana, causing the monster's own high-tier spell to detonate in its face. The Lich's skull glows bright red as its internal mana pool triggers a massive nuclear chain reaction. A colossal fireball mushroom cloud erupts over the mountain valley, illuminating the night sky for miles. Back at the human camp, Captain Arno and his knights stare in absolute shock at the massive explosion on the horizon. Arno smiles with awe, realizing instantly that Professor Thor started the raid early all by himself. Suddenly, carriages screech to a halt as Verger, Mia, Luna, and Reyna arrive on the front line. Rihanna adjusts her glasses calmly, explaining to the bewildered knights that Teacher launched a surprise solo attack. Arno's jaw drops in utter disbelief, unable to process someone solo raiding an army of 10,000 monsters. Arno is losing his mind, realizing his peaceful teacher is currently 1v10, thousandsing an entire demon legion. Arno grumbles playfully, complaining that Thor should have at least invited his favorite student along. Rihanna and Verger grin, while Arno declares they won't wait for dawn to join their beloved master. Mia and the recruit knights cheer in excitement, fired up to back up Professor Thor. Luna shouts tsundere style, bragging that she's going to clean up Thor's mess before he steals all the glory. Rihanna smirks with devious satisfaction, fully approving of the squad's aggressive plan. Captain Arno raises his spear into the night sky, ordering all knights to charge into the valley at full speed. High above the burning ravine, demon generals watch the flames in absolute horror. Winged demon officers panic, reporting to their supreme commander that human forces have ambushed their camp. A demon officer drops to his knees, begging for forgiveness as he promises to suppress the chaos immediately. The red-haired demon warlord Gilbus smirks with cold amusement, impressed by humanity's sudden boldness. Gilbus orders his elite royal guard unit to sortie and eradicate the intruders without mercy. Glancing down at the smoldering crater, Gilbus's eyes widen as he realizes it's not a human army, but a single man slaughtering his troops. On a nearby cliff, a hooded figure holding a staff watches the battlefield, whispering Thor's name. It's Court Mage Corps Commander Lewis, looking down with deep worry over his colleagues' endless recklessness. Down in the bloodbath, Thor leaps onto a giant orc's shoulders, slicing through monster lines with god-tier precision. Sensing high-rank demons descending from the sky, Thor smiles calmly, ready to dismantle their leadership one by one. Thor's eyes burn with fierce, legendary resolve, swearing that he won't let anyone die in this war. Across the ridge, Arno, Reyna, Luna, Mia, and the entire squad charge down the mountain together, refusing to let their beloved teacher fight alone. Deep in the dark valley, purple-winged demon commanders hover above the burning monster camps. The demon officers sneer at the lower beasts, disgusted by how quickly their 10,000-strong army collapsed into chaos. The demon commander barks orders at his unit, telling them to suppress the riot with steel and spread out across the canyon. Perched on a high cliff ridge, Thor smiles calmly, grateful that the officers are separating themselves. He channels high-tier magic into his palm. Fierce magic, magic boost, magic expansion. The winged demon commander turns his head in shock as a radiant light spell approaches at light speed. Holy light! A massive divine beam obliterates the flying demon officers in a blinding explosion. The demon leader screams in agony as holy fire disintegrates his body mid-air. A female demon commander drops into the canyon, gasping in terror as multiple holy beams rain down from above. Down below, the demon officer watches in horror as human knight formations surge through the burning valley. Captain Arno leads the vanguard charge in heavy plate armor, his spear ablaze with roaring flames. Arno's lieutenant asks if charging ahead violates royal orders, but Arno declares that wasting Thor's opening would be the true crime. In the second line, Luna blasts monsters with wind magic, shouting that Princess Elena authorized their advance. Mia crushes orcs with her great shield, resolving that they won't let Professor Thor fight alone. A recruit knight looks around in confusion, realizing Reyna has completely vanished from their formation. Mia and Luna gasp, realizing Reyna snuck ahead solo to be the very first person to reach Thor. Captain Arno loses his mind, veins popping on his head as he screams that no one is beating him to teacher. Arno is really turning a nation-defining war campaign into a 100-meter dash against Reyna. Arno roars at his squad to charge at 100% speed, as the entire Knight Order surges into the valley with a deafening cheer. Back at the advance camp, Badan panics in his tent, screaming in terror as the battle erupts ahead of schedule. Court Mage Commander Louis steps out of the shadows, ordering the rearguard mages to launch a full-scale assault. Deeper in the valley, a swordmaster in white robes slices cleanly through demon ranks like a phantom. It's Reyna, tracking Thor's position as she notices the intervals between his holy light casts getting shorter. She looks toward the high ridge with deep worry, knowing that spamming high-tier light magic strains even Thor's body. On the high cliff, a squad of high-rank armored demons surrounds a cornered human figure. Reyna slashes through an orc, remembering how Thor once came to rescue her when she was completely alone. She gasped for air as blood spatters across the rocks, wondering if Thor felt this exact same desperation years ago. A traumatic flashback erupts. Years ago, a young red-haired girl was cornered in a dark alley by starving monsters. Bleeding and exhausted, the young girl gripped her broken blade, accepting that death was inevitable. Suddenly, a warm, gentle hand reached into the darkness toward her. A young Thor appeared by her side, casting natural healing to wrap her wounds in soothing green light. The young girl stared in awe as her pain vanished and her strength returned. Thor stepped in front of her with a gentle smile, promising to support her with everything he had. He offered her a warm look, telling her that as long as they fought together, they would never lose. Tears welled in the girl's eyes as blue light illuminated the alleyway. Back in the present, Reyna steps through fluttering flower petals, her eyes glowing with absolute devotion. This time, it's my turn to support YOU, teacher. Up on the cliff, Thor drops to one knee, panting heavily as winged demons circle above his head like vultures. Thor casts a quick water creation to splash cold water over his face, admitting his body has hit its absolute limit. His legs tremble with exhaustion as over 10 high-rank armored demons land to surround him. The demon executioners draw their heavy dark broadswords, mocking the support mage for looking so weak. They sneer that the famous Thor Forlaid is nothing more than an exhausted, helpless human. Thor lets out a long, quiet exhale, accepting that his physical stamina has run out. Even so, his eyes ignite with fiery, terrifying resolve as dual elemental magic swirls around his fingertips. The demon squad roars, diving down to execute him simultaneously. Thor closes his eyes with a soft smile, whispering a quiet greeting to Hero Allen. Flash. A blinding storm of holy sword slashes and red flower petals obliterates every single demon in a fraction of a second. Thor's eyes snap open in shock as a gentle, familiar voice speaks from above. I'll support you, teacher. Reyna stands majestically atop the mountain of demon corpses, her blade dripping with blood as flower petals flutter in the wind. She looks down at him with a breathtaking, radiant smile under the moonlight. She reminds him of his own lesson, that things impossible alone become possible when two people support each other. Thor looks up at her, memories of young Lena and Reyna merging as he realizes she was always his very first student. Reyna kneels beside him, blushingly admitting she's embarrassed. He saw through her disguise from the very beginning. Thor offers a gentle, warm smile, thanking her deeply for giving him that exact same answer twice in his life. She came across the kingdom disguised as 3 different people just to support her favorite teacher. Brianna blushes beet red, her eyes sparkling with pure, unshakable affection under the starry sky. The 2 of them stand side by side on the high ridge, looking over the battlefield together. Thor chuckles awkwardly, admitting he never expected their teacher and student roles to get reversed. Brianna winks playfully behind her glasses, scolding him to rely on her more from now on. Chibi Thor and Chibi Reyna share a cute moment as Thor admits his stubborn teacher pride got in the way. Reyna giggles sweetly, whispering that she loves an honest teacher. Thor smiles softly to himself, accepting that he can never win against her. Down in the valley, the demon army's front line is completely collapsing under the human counter-offensive. Ryena's silver blade flashes like a blue lightning arc, dicing through enemy lines with effortless grace. She turns back to Thor with a gentle smile, begging her teacher not to push his body past its limits. Golden light beams rain down across the canyon, rapidly wiping out the remaining rank-and-file monsters. Thor and Reyna stand side by side, sensing a colossal surge of high-tier demonic mana further up the mountain. A terrifying wall of giant mountain beasts, armored beetles, serpents, and demon wolves blocks the high pass. Reyna unsheathes her longsword, promising to carve a path through while Thor conserves his stamina. Behind her, Thor's vision blurs as cold sweat drips down his forehead, realizing his body is severely fatigued. Looking at Reyna's back, Thor resolves that even if it costs his life, he will ensure his student returns home safely. He gasps for air, swearing to protect everyone no matter what the cost. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of holy light and a giant golden magic construct erupt across the pass. Thor blinks in shock as the monster wall gets instantly blown to pieces. Captain Arno lands gracefully on a high rock, waving his spear with a huge, cocky grin. Mia, Verger, Luna, and the recruit knights drop down behind him, announcing their epic arrival. Giant dark monsters swarm the cliff, but the reinforced Knight Order stands ready to engage. Mia drives her great shield into a giant beast's skull, screaming for Professor Thor to push ahead. The recruits form an impenetrable shield wall, telling their teacher to leave the frontline mob to them. Captain Arno points his spear toward the dark tent, shouting that they'll hold off the small fry so Thor can slay Jilbus. Luna yells tsundere style, threatening that if Thor fails to finish the demon general, she'll never forgive him. Luna is really giving her teacher a death threat motivation speech mid-combat. Thor stands frozen as every single one of his beloved students shouts their support in unison. A warm, radiant light washes over his soul, clearing away the lingering shadow of his past trauma. Reyna turns to him with a breathtaking, affectionate smile, extending her hand toward her master. Warm support energy flows back into Thor's body, completely stabilizing his trembling legs. Thor grasps Reyna's hand firmly, feeling total, unshakable trust in his partner. Thor's eyes burn with majestic, legendary resolve, ready to face the ultimate dark threat together. Side by side, Thor and Reyna blitz up the pass like twin silver lightning bolts. They arrive outside a massive, pitch-black demon command pavilion emitting suffocating miasma. A chilling, regal voice echoes from the darkness inside, inviting the uninvited human guests to enter. Thor and Reyna exchange a silent nod, stepping through the dark entrance with zero hesitation. Inside the grand tent, purple flames burn in iron braziers surrounding a high throne of dark skulls. Dark magic runes ignite across the stone floor as the atmosphere grows dangerously heavy. Thor immediately deploys shield and holy cloak as poisonous miasma fills the room. Radiant holy barriers wrap around both mages, neutralizing the dark poison upon contact. Lounging on the skull throne is Demon General Jilbus, a towering red-haired warlord clad in obsidian armor. Jilbus sneers down at them, mockingly praising the support mage for pushing his army this far. Thor warns Reyna to stay sharp, identifying Jilbus as a high-tier demon executive who cannot be reasoned with. Jilbus bursts into dark, arrogant laughter, finding the human's serious expressions hilarious. He mocks Thor, asking if the support mage is using his female student as a meat shield to save his own skin. Reyna steps forward with a cold, mocking smirk, roasting Jilbus for being too weak to recognize real strength. She hits him with the ultimate disrespect, saying Demon King Gisbal died like a fool, and Jilbus is following right in his footsteps. Reyna really called the Supreme Demon King a certified fraud right to his top general's face. Jilbus's eyes explode with unhinged rage, roaring that no filthy human is allowed to speak Lord Gisbal's name. He channels a massive ball of dark magic, Dark Javelin, as Thor orders Reyna to take the offensive. Thor multicast speed enchantments. Acceleration, Swiftfoot, sending Reyna charging forward at Mach speeds. Jilbis hurls a barrage of lethal dark spears across the pavilion. Thor tracks every projectile with Hawkeye, adjusting Reyna's speed buffers in real time. Reyna weaves through the dark javelins like a phantom, clashing her silver blade directly against Jilbis's dark broadsword. Jilbis gasps in shock as Reyna deflects his heavy counter, while Thor positions himself for the game-ending assist. Thor unsheathes his custom Demon King steel sword, knowing the entire battle hinges on his tactical timing. His eyes glow with fiery determination, swearing to seize the winning opening created by his beloved comrades. Jilbis looms on his high perch, boasting that weak human lives are worthless and challenging him is completely meaningless. He gets a sinister, arrogant look on his face, declaring that trash will always be trash. Before he can even finish talking, Reyna lunges straight at him with her blade drawn. Reyna smirks behind her glasses, mocking Jilbis for whining like a scared bully. She slashes forward with speed magic, refusing to give him a single second to breathe. Jilbis blocks her strike with his heavy gauntlet, sparks flying as the blade grinds against steel. Suddenly, Reyna vanishes from his sight in a flash of movement. Jilbis glares over his shoulder in shock, unable to believe a human can move this fast. Reyna materializes directly behind his blind spot with her cloak fluttering. Even with speed buffs active, Reyna notes that Jilbis's reaction speed is keeping up with her strikes. Jilbis hovers above them, looking down with cold, murderous intent. He channels dark purple magic into his hands, asking if they seriously thought speed was their winning strategy. Jilbis unleashes a torrential barrage of dark javelins straight at Thor. Thor raises his hand, multicasting, immovable, on his legs alongside Fierce Boost and Magic Boost. He counters by firing a colossal golden beam of holy light directly back at Jilbis. Jilbis panics, desperately raising his dark shield as the divine light engulfs him. Reyna cheers for her teacher's clutch hit, but Thor warns her that the fight isn't over yet. The smoke clears to reveal Jilbis standing, his dark armor cracked and smoking from the blast. Jilbis grunts in shock, realizing his Demon King armor barely saved him from being disintegrated. Thor drops to one knee from stamina drain while Jilbis's eyes widen, realizing Thor's magic output outclasses royal gear. Enraged by his broken pride, Jilbis channels every drop of his remaining dark mana to erase them. Before he can unleash his spell, Reyna blitzes forward and cleanly slices off his arm. Jilbis's severed arm flies through the air as blood spatters across the rocks. Jilbis stares at his bleeding stump in sheer horror, unable to accept that a non-hero human holds power rivaling the Demon King. He stumbles backward in total denial, screaming out to Demon King Gizbal to grant him power. Reyna stares him down with cold, unforgiving eyes through her glasses. Jilbis collapses hard onto the throne of skulls behind him. Demon subordinates shout his name, but Jilbis realizes his frontline forces are completely finished. Reyna guards Thor's flank, asking if her teacher is doing all right. Slumped on the throne, Jilbis looks up and demands to know the support mage's name. Thor catches his breath, coldly answering that he has no name to give a demon. Jilbis chuckles weakly, admitting that Thor is as clever as he is dangerous. Remaining demon minions gather around the throne as Jilbis prepares his final move. Thor's eyes widen in sheer horror as he realizes the throne itself is an active catalyst. Jilbis sneers his final words, triggering the hidden mechanism before Thor can reach the throne. Boom! A terrifying pillar of blood-red dark magic erupts from the throne. The demon minions scream in horror as Jilbis sacrifices his own life to fuel the blood ritual. Dark purple flames consume the entire pavilion, sacrificing every demon inside to open the gate. A massive dark summoning array opens above the canyon, turning the sky pitch black. Thor stares at the rising energy pillars, realizing the throne was the central core of an ancient summoning ritual all along. Reyna asks if they can disrupt the ritual, but Thor admits his mana is too drained to fire attack spells. Thor apologizes to Reyna, blaming his own poor stamina management for failing to stop the core. Suddenly, a colossal, clawed demonic arm tears through the purple portal rift. A terrifying demon face with glowing eyes and razor fangs emerges from the dark void. A giant horned leg stomps onto the earth, shattering the canyon floor. The mythic calamity demon boss, Lucifer, manifests in all its terrifying glory. Lucifer unleashes an apocalyptic wave of red destructive energy across the entire mountaintop. Thor instantly scoops Reyna up in his arms, shielding her body with his own as the blast hits. The catastrophic shockwave obliterates the mountain peaks for miles around. Thor holds Reyna close among the flying debris as she recalls the ancient records about this monster. Reyna reveals the terrifying truth. Lucifer is the only demon species completely immune to holy magic. Bro's main weapon is holy magic, and the final boss turns out to be 100% immune to it.